otomatis cepat ambil Nielsen Forte. Langkah cepat. We got snowman. That was so disturbing.
BLG team, it was great to kick off the day with the bin jacket throw and then bookend it with his very sincere, heartfelt interview at the end of the day. And then looking ahead, he wants to face T1 coming out of this. He really, really wants that matchup against Zayas. But it was just so cathartic to finally see them overcome their unexpected demons in Weibo Gaming and make it to the World's Finals.
I mean, that team is already, like, there's so many, like, legends there. I swear, Bin is a living legend of top lane already. If he can get his hands on the Summoner's Cup on a World Championship, if Knight can
Tes.
it's epic already that they're waiting for whoever wins today.
It is really awesome, but of course we need to find out who's going to join them. So let's send it over to Laura to see how the fans voted in our Mastercard fan vote.
It is absolutely insane here. You see the fans here? Suddenly have been here waiting for the players.
Gelap bener, gelap.
AM. You see some drawings of the pioneers, the Korean signs as well. Even some flags. And even if 75% of the fans think that T1 is gonna win, there's also some love for Gen.G here. But let's ask some T1 fans what they think. How long have you been
T1 73% ya, hampir 74 lah, versus G2 26%. T1 sih seharusnya. Tapi ya G2 juga kuat juga sih. Tapi seharusnya tahun ini T1 versus BLG sih. Kemarin tebakan gue udah benar 3-0. Enaknya sambil nyemil apa ya nonton ini ya? Kan telepon kali ya? Nyemilin. Anjir, masih 25 menit lagi. Masih ya, setting lah. Kok quarterfinal kan, Nur? Iya sih. Final. Iya bener, quarterfinal baru final. Kenapa bingung sendiri gue?
3 years since T1 hadn't been to a finals, Hamas stopped them. 2 years since Gen.G hadn't won that finals, and Hamas stopped them. But we still get it for Worlds, so it kind of works out in the long run, you know?
Yeah, it works out for sure. Now, to get us going, we did prepare a little quiz for you because it's T1 versus Gen.G.
Gue kenalnya jokes doang anjir. Yang ini udah baru-baru kayaknya nih. Baru-baru enggak sih, lupa gue. Kayaknya masih orang lama, cuma yang baju jas abu-abu kayaknya baru deh. Maksudnya baru tuh tahun kemarin udah ada, cuma gue baru ngeh aja gitu. Tahun kemarin udah ada tuh ya, cuma gue baru ngeh aja. 3-1 sih, seharusnya 3-1. G2 dapat 1 di pertama T1 menang 1, kedua T1 G2 menang lagi 1, 2 game lagi T1 dapat 3. Seharusnya 3 match sih. Tergantung pick-pickan aja nanti.
T1 2022, well 2019 2020, 6 straight, yeah. I thought it was I put only 4.
I have T1 won 9 straight, spring 2019 to summer 2020.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, it was difficult. Okay, also 2 points here. How many consecutive best of 5s has T1 won at Worlds? Is the first part. And what is the longest
Berapa kali ya?
streak all time?
Masuk BO5 ya? Berapa kali? Lupa gua. 2017, 2014 juga gak ya? 2017 tuh, 2017 2018 enggak.
Oh my god, Emily.
Berapa ya lu?
3,
3 kayaknya
2,
deh.
1, stop. Alright, show me your answer.
Masuk BO5 3 kayaknya deh. Berapa? 3 apa berapa ya?
I mean, they beat all the LPL last year, and then they beat TES this year.
It's 4.
Four? I don't know.
Why did you take it away?
I should have erased
Oh,
it.
4.
No!
No kan, benar.
You won 10 consecutive best of 5.
Dari pas 2017.
Let's go.
You got that? Let's go.
Lupa gua 3 apa 4 soalnya.
Question 3 is worth 1 point. How many consecutive international matches? That's the one. That's the
Berapa
best of
banyak?
5 has Gen.G
Waduh, MSI.
How many consecutive international?
matches. Yeah.
Yuan.
And best of ones?
Yes.
Berapa nih ya? Nggak ngikut lagi gua MSI. Nggak ngikutin. Sebenarnya sih banyak yang nggak ngikutin anjir.
Just MSI and Worlds, I think second. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The longest streak? This is hard.
It's very hard,
Yeah, I have
actually.
to
To
remember
be
the
fair, I was
first
just
one.
given these questions. I would definitely not be able to answer them.
Let me just write the wrong number. Let's do. I don't know. I picked a number. I just picked a number this year and Worlds this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 8. Wow. Correctly. How did that happen? Oh
We're
my
too
god.
good. I mean, I studied incredibly hard for this test on came in prepared. So I really do, buddy.
That's like the LEC getting a win at Worlds. It just stumbled into it somehow.
Well, basically, the whole thing is counting streaks that
It is. I mean, yeah, it is. So, last one. Kurioshi has gone deathless for a record 7 consecutive Worlds knockout games, who previously held the record.
Siapa ya?
Games with that weird qualifier.
Yeah.
That is such a weird qualifier. Like only knockout games.
Gumayusi
Don't shoot the
dapat
messenger, please.
It has to be someone who's in knockout games often.
I'm putting mine. Yeah.
Oh, hint. There was some news today.
wow.
But the number also, right? Yeah, well, it's fine. You all got it correct. Yeah, ruler, and it was 4, but that was fine. I guess I said
4 kali si Roller.
Right? Yeah. No, I did not. No, you didn't.
You're all winners.
I just wanted a high five.
I've written down every question.
But that is crazy news. The news she's talking about is Ruler leaving Gen.G. And Ruler has said in the past that he wants to end his career with Gen.G. Which is, I mean, Pace has filled the spot. Pace has already filled the spot.
Also, he's kind of a shadow protagonist in the minds of everybody looking at this best of 5 because, of course, Faker had the catch on him last year. Oh, I love it. It's all interwoven. Let's talk a little bit more as we have unsuccessfully played a quiz about these two teams. So I want to start with Gen.G just a little bit because they were very much pushed last week, and there was a content piece or a content they sent out about Mata in the locker room. I'm gonna say before that game 5. Let's take a look.
Ini mana sih display? Ini suara gue masuk dari ini apa itu sih?
I love this from Mata because even on his previous teams, he was a player, right?
Coba
He's
kalau
sort of been,
misalnya
like, going into games, helping
pakai headset.
his AD carries learn how to CS. But like,
Telegram ya?
it's great to see that from, again, a former world champion himself. He's been there before, just trying to pump up the team in a very crucial series.
Yeah, I mean, Paze is still 18 years old. So I actually think like going through that, FlyQuest series, even though, they, won MSI and everything, having a veteran like that, Mata is legendary to be able to, refocus them is quite good.
Yeah, I think it also proves that we sometimes see them as these infallible demons that are so good at League, but that's not the case. All humans with those same emotions as everybody else, and when it gets to the stress in a game 5, you do need someone to step in.
And I think they definitely did on Gen.G's side. FlyQuest had them rattled, and you could see it kind of move back towards, hey, we want some comfort picks for the...
Gue kira dari sini yang musuh ini.
Later course of the game, it felt like Mata knew exactly what his team needed in that moment and was giving them tools to succeed.
Speaking of the man himself, we're gonna send him down to the floor. Who's standing by?
Salah gua, kocak, tolol banget. maksud gue ini hilangin guanya aja dulu.
Game day interview. I'm joined by Coach Mata from Gen.G to talk about everything that's been happening for the team last week. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to talk about what happened last week because obviously no one expected you to go 5 games against FlyQuest. I'm wondering about the impact of you guys going 3-0 in the group stage, in the Swiss stage rather, and having less time on stage to train afterwards.
영향이 없지
I mean, I would say there was an impact. I can't really deny that, but also we are pros, you know. I feel like that's just an excuse. So I want to say.
I don't know what happened after game 1. It felt like we were making silly mistakes. We lost our League of Legends, from what he said. How did you refocus them?
Iya benar, masuk dari sini dia.
They were going to be able to focus on what they needed to grab the victory in the end. What was the mental process between the games?
보통 대회를 진행하면은
So usually the bigger the stage or the stakes are, the lesser feedback I give to the players. I only bring out 1 or 2
major mistakes that would have impacted the outcome of the game, but if that's something minor, I don't really bring it up. And also on that day, I felt like my players were not on their best form and their condition, so I focused on that to make sure that they can be back at their full condition. So one thing I figured throughout my Worlds experience as a coaching staff, you know, it's also important to make the players who are not doing their best or like underperforming to kind of make them become their best form again. So I think that's also an important part.
되는 것 같습니다.
And keeping all that in mind, how do you make sure that they're going to be ready today?
일단 뭐 지난 경기에 많은 선수들이
Even in the previous quarters, I could tell that they were pretty nervous playing the match. So I wanted to make sure that I helped them feel more relaxed. You know, I was making some jokes for them to feel a lot more comfortable. I think, yeah, the coaching staff play a big role, but also I think Worlds, it all comes down to the player. It's where the players are proving themselves. I think it's them who has to prove themselves. So I think they have to overcome this by themselves also. And all I can do is trusting and believing in them.
믿음밖에 줄 수 없을 것 같습니다.
Well, wishing you the best for today, Huaiting. Thank you so much for the interview.
감사합니다.
I love it how fighting is kind of like the thank you when interviewing someone from the LCK. But yeah, I love it there about fighting the demons every single time, right? Someone who's proven that over and over and over 4 times at Worlds. It's Faker going up versus Chovy, which will be, I think, obviously one of the main storylines going into today, Kobe. It's incredible, right? And even though Chovy and Gen.G have had the upper hand, there is always something in the air when it comes to Worlds and Faker.
Everybody is so ready to latch on to the Faker magic and T1 magic that honestly does exist at Worlds.
Yeah, and I mean, look, these guys constantly set records when you look at the LCK. It's like most kills and assists ever for a person is Faker. Most titles in the LCK at 10. Most Worlds for Faker as well. But when you look at the opposite side for Chovy, it's the first player ever globally to hit 100 KDA. The first player ever to hit 6 back-to-back of those playoff opportunities. Like, Chovy has been so incredible for this squad as well. And now he just has to try and take down the long-standing Demon King to see if he can move on to the final spot.
But Chovy's been here before, right? Domestically, and it's only like it's very apropos that he has to go through Faker first domestically, then goes on this massive title streak, right? Just barely broken this past summer by HLE, but then now he has to go through Faker once again on the international stage. It's just really appropriate.
It is, and we talked so much at MSI about it felt like a dam that had to break for him to get his first international title. Well, he did it at MSI, right? So a lot of those doubts should be washed away. But let's look at how these two have done in lane, specifically in this World Championship.
Yeah, and I think Chovy has been absolutely spectacular at just trying to get the control over his laning phase, have those really high CS numbers. Whereas when you look across at Faker, it's kind of been a lot of people helping him to succeed, to go onto these late game carries where you have things like the Silas and these kind of picks that can come alive, which only makes it more important when you see him coming out with these big gold leads that he's getting at that 14-minute mark.
And of course, those stats that you had just seen are like a lot of TES crushing stats that are pretty heavily weighted there because there's a lot less of a sample size. But if you look at the LCK stats, you know, with all of these games, Chovy had just been demolishing. Meanwhile, Faker struggled in a lot of lanes in the LCK in summer. And so now that we're at Worlds again, people are wondering, like, how powerful is the T1 glow up here? You know, change in meta, so also more comfortable champions, but Chovy is a monster.
Yeah, it also says something about Gen.G's strength as a whole, right? That Chovy doesn't have to pull out these insane Chovy laning performances. I actually did think he had a really good one, very quietly actually, against FlyQuest in Game 5 as Smolder. I thought he was just actually absolutely beasting CS in that game. We see the stacks. I believe he's second in all of those at this tournament to HLE Zeka.
He also peaked really hard and won the World Championship, so it was a couple of years ago now. All-time game record is 53 for Faker, 52 for Chovy. I mean, it's pretty insane. But let's talk about Gen.G a little bit more about how they got here, right? And the fact that, what should we take from the fact that they went all 5 games versus FlyQuest? Was it ultimately a good thing for them to iron out their mistakes, or a bad thing in that there is now so much to look at in tape for T1?
So I actually am of the opinion that it was a good thing for Gen.G because, you know, they hadn't played that many games at Worlds already, and the evolution of the meta has been pretty quick. If we can pull up the champion select, then we'll be able to look at some of the evolution of their drafts in that series. Also, remember the first game of the series? FlyQuest absolutely got a big advantage in the lane swap versus them.
Yep.
Both Canyon and Keen were pretty far behind. I don't know if we can pull up the actual
It's coming. There you
graphic.
Go.
There we go. This one is going to help. So this is a lot to look at, but as soon as it does come up on screen there for you, you can kind of go back and remember how in the opener, Gen.G did a very like kind of previous meta star, you know, and they had the Ahri and everything, but they lost to the full like death ball team fighting scaling of FlyQuest. And so then they started to make some of these adjustments here, you know, and they were like, ah, well, we're going to need some more side laning and some scaling with the Kassadin. That one, they barely squeaked out though, and it was actually a lot of help from FlyQuest giving money early to the Kassadin. I don't believe the drawing is actually showing up there. But as they progress, you know, you can kind of see it on screen. They over-chased in that game versus the double 80 carries of FlyQuest, gave them extra money, and then lost there as well. And after that one, they themselves incorporated again the double 80 carries with the Triss plus Ashe, and the very strong team fighting, having the Maokai for the front line there for them as well. So honestly, working through more stage games, and you heard it from Canyon in the interview afterwards too. He was like, we are going to cook up some more picks. We are going to take this as an opportunity to re-examine, you know, the lane swaps as well as the drafts coming into now an opponent that they know ever so well in T1. I think that this is actually good for Gen.G heading into this match.
It might be, and your drawing was wonderful.
What, did it actually show up though?
I don't know, maybe on the stream, but not for our preview. Who knows? Who knows?
Schrodinger's drawing.
Yeah.
You know?
Indeed, and I think we can all agree that regardless of our prediction, right? If you follow kind of the normal order of things, the normal order of how Gen.G has done this entire year, taking out the MSI finals perhaps, and the summer, sorry, not the MSI finals, the summer finals. That they are the stronger team. They should be coming into Worlds, and I just want to remind people of last year when T1 went up against Gen.G, right? It was a similar story for T1, Dagda. They came into Worlds, people would not rate them that highly, and then this happens, right? In a moment where everything is up against it, and Faker has to take it into his own hands.
Yeah, and I think that's the clutch factor that Faker can bring to the table, but it was also a lot of T1 breaking and redefining the meta to fit their style, and we're also starting to see a little bit of that with the T1 drafts as well, with Carrier bringing out things like the Bards, the Nikos, the Pikes, and saying, look, this is our style and our game, and we're going to show up and play it. And I think when you add to that just how strong they can be, finding these plays, making these moments that stand the test of time in the history of League of Legends, that's where T1 thrive, and I'm very excited to see what they can do against Gen.G with that.
Yeah, and it makes it super interesting given the state of both of these teams all year, right? Like Gen.G has been able to get the better of T1 pretty routinely for the past 2 years. T1 was looking very shaky. It's kind of insane to remind ourselves they are a 4th seed, and I think here we hear from Chovy himself. He must defeat Faker to earn the right to be at the top. He knows this better than anyone, being in that exact same position and eventually having to surpass Faker en route to becoming the best performing mid laner in the world. And I think I'm so curious to see how this is going to turn out with what T1 have done at this tournament already and what Gen.G have been able to do against T1 for the past 2 years.
Yeah, in my opinion, I feel like T1 are usually best looking when they have like hard pushing top for Zeus, very aggressive play, and pushing bottom at the same time. So they have like 2 points of attack, whereas Gen.G, normally they're stacking up towards mid and late game, and you feel like unless T1 makes some flashy engages and like fight their way out of it, Gen.G have that advantage the later the game does go.
There's so much to talk about. I feel like we won't get there, but there's a couple of touching points that I think are really important. You know, Oner is one that comes to mind, and I know you've prepared to draw my life, Emily.
I have. So let's get ready for Draw My LCK Life. Oner. Moon Oner Hyun-jun began his pro career with T1 in 2020. He has spent his entire career thus far with the T1 organization. When Oner was 12, he heard about how the Shy, it's always the Shy, hit Challenger at 15 years old, and it inspired him to keep grinding. It was also around this time in junior high that he realized he wanted to become a pro gamer. As part of a controversial 10-man roster experiment in 2021 LCK Spring, Oner actually faced a lot of doubt and strife in his first split, going as far as to say he didn't feel like he was necessarily ready to debut because he was rotating through junglers. He became the T1 starting jungler that summer, and in 2022 found his home with the now famed ZOFGK Zeus Oner, Faker, Kumayushi, and Keria lineup. They made Worlds Finals that year but narrowly lost to DRX. Once a lightning rod for criticism of his team, Oner has become a stable force for T1 and now aims for his second Worlds trophy as a reigning world champion along with the rest of T1. I think the thing I'd want to stress is he's had, again, a lot of ups and downs in his career, both off and on the Rift. And this past summer, I actually thought when T1 were really struggling, he maintained a pretty consistent performance to kind of steady them at times that was really crucial and not something we'd yet seen from him as a player.
Talking about steadiness in the bot lane, I'm sorry. We got it. There's so much. You are steady by my side as well, but it is time for today's featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz. It's Gumayushi versus FaZe.
T1's Gumayushi faces Gen.G's FaZe in our featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz. These legendary marksmen have faced each other many times over the years and have gone blow for blow, but lately it has been FaZe getting the upper hand, winning the LCK 3 times in a row in the last 2 years, and beating Gumayushi in the finals whenever they met, every single time.
Gen.G's so far ahead. Bwipo's gonna be your target here next as the Shockwave doesn't do much. FaZe getting the kill on Bwipo. Gen.G just cutting them down like flies. Another triple for FaZe.
Though we cannot deny the world buff T1 seems to magically receive every year. As the lowest LCK seed team in the quarterfinals, they were the only one to sweep their opponents. And it was off the back of Gumayushi's deathless performance.
Now the turn back, the bullet time, an equalizer of their own. Ulti coming in, JackeyLove about to fall. Carrier going to the wall, it's a little bit over eager. TES still standing, JackeyLove still standing, double lady carries. But Faker in the clutch, the arm guard, he goes golden, he buys a moment. TN perfect timing, but it does not matter because here comes Guma, baby. Double coming through, T1 takeover.
The unkillable Demon Prince now stands unfallen for 7 Worlds knockout games in a row. Will FaZe be able to take down the Crown Prince, or will T1 reign supreme at Worlds yet again?
And I do think FaZe has been absolutely standout performer for Gen.G over the course of themselves domestically. He's been able to pick up things like the Ziggs and be the best Ziggs in the LCK. He's been able to fit into multiple different styles, but no matter what they need from him, FaZe has been consistently able to stand up and be that guy for Gen.G.
Yeah, it's really important for people to understand that previously I think people saw FaZe as being carried by the rest of his team. This summer he really stepped into his own and earned his spot as one of the best AD carries in the world.
Absolutely, and I think we've seen a lot from the Gen.G roster in terms of that stability and being able to perform at a very, very high level. But I think the question on everyone's lips is, will it happen now when the pressure is the absolute highest? We know what has followed Chovy for a lot of his career, which we thought was erased, you know, coming into this World Championship. But is it, Kobe?
I think that it will be for Gen.G this time around. I mean, we showcased, you know, Mata and the coaching there. Also think for him, it is really nice to have a bot lane partner like Lehens. You know, they showed the comms clip after the Twitch pick, and Lehens was like, "I told you, you should pick Twitch," and he's like really always like giving him confidence, and they're definitely a team that can also pull out some of these other strange picks. I would say definitely Canyon too. As far as some of the draft things they can get up to.
I think though, when you're talking about pressure, that was kind of Pays and Lehens who, for me, disappointed me. So I want to see more from them coming into this series because against FlyQuest, it was kind of like, hey, we're going back towards the Ziggs to give you comfort. Because when you look at the opposite side for T1, Gumayushi has been incredible. Rain Haler.
Will hopefully be a crazy day. Yeah.
I'm excited. All that CS, and then when it gets to the team fights, he's coming in with low resources, divvying out a ton of goal or damage, and as well has the most impeccable team fighting I've ever seen.
And it can keep going, the graphic, because there's just so much for Gumayushi, who maybe has flown under the radar. And as it rolls out, Kobe.
I still think that active like streak connecting last year to this year TES is a for fun, you know, kind of stat.
You know, it's storytelling.
It is fun.
We're having fun with it. As we get closer, let's take a look at everyone's predictions, as they love doing it in the LCK. You got a little spoiler behind us as well.
Pretty even.
Actually,
or T1 favored, actually.
Do you want to qualify your prediction, guys? Kobe?
I mean, I'm sticking with Gen.G. I think that they will be able to overcome any sort of nerves or bumpy road that they got into with FlyQuest. I think the time that they'll invest after that series, they'll be able to smooth it out here.
Yeah, I also think T1 is an opponent that they're intimately familiar with, so I think they'll have some specific game plans prepared for T1 specifically. I think it's going to be really, really, really close. But this time, unlike my other predictions, I'm siding towards domestic rather than international.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think Gen.G's early macro was not as strong against FlyQuest. I think T1 are the red side kings at Worlds right now because they get that counter pick for Carrier. And against top esports, their early game was absolutely impeccable, and I think having that control in the early stages is going to set them up so well. Plus, they've got that man on the screen behind them. I mean, if you've got Reckless in Europe, I mean, that's a buff off the bat, right?
That's a great point. Yeah, it's awesome to see. You can hear it behind us that things are absolutely heating up, and we got to sleep an hour extra if you were in Paris last night. And the symbolism, it was not lost on me. Was it a sign of the times changing quite literally, or the seasons ending and getting into a new one, and what is more apt as a backdrop for the match of today, where it is Chovy, if he can usher in that new era. But he has to go through Faker, who has weathered every single storm. Who will make it to the grand finals in London?
Perbaikan dia lah kemarin soalnya bikin mistake dia, tapi kemarin udah menang sih, cuma ya biar nggak ngebebanin diri sendiri gara-gara mistake waktu itu yang penjedotin kepala dok. Gila, itu stres banget itu gara-gara Faker lagi pakai apa ya, lagi pakai Azir, lagi di bot lane di daerah rumput, terus diselamatin sama Oner apa siapa ya kemarin ya? Lupa gue, pokoknya diselamatin jungle-nya yang malah mati, jungle-nya T1, terus jadi kalah. Itu yang bikin stres tuh jedotin kepala.
Sacrifier tout sur son chemin pour réaliser son rêve. Le voyage n'est pas pour les cœurs fragiles.
Ya, sejauh ini T1 3-1 lah. 3-0 agak sulit sih. 3-1 lah. Kalau T1 kalah ya berarti belum rezeki.
페이커 선수에 대한 첫인상은 일단 기본기도 되게 좋았는데 계속 끊임없이 심리전을 거는 게 인상적이었어요.
Mais ne parvient pas à le vendre.
계속 뭐가 문제였을까 생각하게 되더라고요. 네, 내가 못해서 졌다기보단 상대가 잘하는 게 많았고, 그래서 이기려면 그 잘하는 상대보다 더 잘해야 한다고 생각을 했던 것 같아요. 페이커 선수를 이겨야만 최고가 될 자격이 주어진다고 생각을 합니다.
초비 선수가 굉장히 뛰어난 선수이기 때문에 같이 맞붙는 게 굉장히 저에게 있어서 재밌고 스스로도 많이 배우고 성장할 수 있는 것 같습니다.
En 2022, Chovy a enfin pris le dessus.
제가 처음 우승했을 때가 2년 전이었는데요. 했던 말이 말도 안 돼라고 하고 우승을 했던 걸로 기억하는데 그만큼 마음의 힘이 많이 떨어진 것 같아요.
Gen.G continua de gagner à domicile. Ils étaient imparables.
처음 우승했을 때 그때 당시 목표가 미국 우승을 해보는 거였는데
et 2024. Gen.G a battu T1 encore et encore quand cela comptait le plus.
이제 첫 우승을 이제 T1 상대로 우승을 해가지고 감정이 북받쳤던 것 같습니다.
결승에서 많이 진 후에는 저희가 많이 부족한가 라는 생각도 들게 되었던 것 같고 실망도 많이 했었던 것 같습니다.
여기는 LCK가 아니고 월즈이고 월즈는 T1에게 적합한 무대라고 생각합니다.
챔피언으로 참가했고 챔피언으로 떠날 계획입니다.
À ce jour, 53 victoires pour Faker. 52 victoires pour Chovy. Un sentiment d'inachevé persiste au fond de son cœur. Le rêve d'être champion du monde. Imposant et le fardeau. Pour l'un, le fardeau de rester au sommet. Pour l'autre, le fardeau d'atteindre le sommet.
Gen.G was pushed to the limit. They were pushed to the edge, but they were built for these situations. They were built for victory. They were built to win, and they will do just that.
페이커 선수 새로운 미래를 열겠습니다.
초비 선수 미래를 원한다면 증명하세요.
Kedengeran nih baru nih.
목에 함께 짊어지겠습니다.
Gimana nggak kedengeran?
저희가 새로운 세대입니다.
Udah bener begini.
T1은 과거, 현재, 그리고 미래입니다.
Tapi masih pelan ya suaranya ya, aneh banget. Make them believe. Gila yang nonton. Finalnya di Cina kan ya?
Bonjour Paris! Bienvenue à la Minas Arena!
Oh, ini di Paris.
Pour la dernière demi-finale
Paris.
2024 des mondiaux de League of Legends. Aujourd'hui, au bout du chemin, une place à Londres, aux côtés de Bilibili, à se présenter devant vous, les deux derniers représentants de la Corée. D'un côté, champion du MSI, en quête du titre ultime, et de l'autre, 4 fois champion du monde, défendant leur couronne. Alors, mesdames et messieurs, pour vos deux équipes, Gen.G et
T1. 4 kali juara.
Sur le top lane, Green, en face de lui,
Lah mana teman-temannya, masa Jin? Masa
dans la jungle, Canyon,
aduh,
et son
alhamdulillah
adversaire,
kenapa mulai ke situ sih? Heran gua. Tapi kan gua hijau. Jadi ngilang dia. Prisoner tuh bikin merinding kan, tapi lebih merinding yang dulu sih, yang orang Spanyol. Lupa namanya. Waktu di Prisoner tadi badan langsung gemeter.
pour inscrire son nom dans la légende. Alors, mesdames et messieurs, une dernière fois pour Gen.G et pour T1, que la dernière demi-finale des mondiaux de League of Legends commence.
Semifinals. I'm Atlas. As usual, I'm joined by Chronicler, but we're also getting to welcome our friend Andrew Vedius Day to the LCK, which is absolutely fantastic. Oh, sorry, we're still at Worlds, aren't we? We're still at Worlds.
Yeah.
We've, of course, got a little bit of experience with this particular matchup, but there are a lot of very critical changes moving into this best of 5.
Oh iya benar.
It's Worlds. It's Worlds. that really summarizes it.
That's like 98% of the changes, yeah.
I was like, wait, there were changes you didn't tell me about?
Yeah, throwing us up there, Atlas.
It was such an emotional teaser, right?
Oh,
I
God,
mean, we were
yeah.
all getting choked up watching the. I mean, there's so much on the line. Under the banner of Gen.G, this is a barrier that this organization hasn't been able to cross, and now they face across T1, the reigning world champions, I mean, what an accomplishment it would be to beat them on what feels like T1's home ground here at Worlds.
And I feel like this weird combination of relieved today, but also nervous, because no matter what happens in this matchup, we're going to have an incredible finals.
Oh,
I think the stories are just writing themselves for either team here. The main thing is, can we get a banger best of 5? And I think most signs are pointing to yes. We're going to jump into the draft here to start this one off. And already, things are going pretty similarly to what we were expecting, except for maybe the Nidalee first ban to come through here from T1 to deny that from Canyon.
No surprises, T1 taking away the lessons here. And the real question is, what happens to Yone? T1 is, I think, expecting Gen.G to ban it here. The smaller was their #1 answer that we saw them pull out. And generally, outside of that, under no circumstances have teams be allowed to get that Yone.
And the Ashe is the other thing that's such an incredibly high priority. With that Kalista ban, it is important, but I think the trade of Yone and Ashe is going to be how we start this best of 5. And Zeus is going to say, well, I might play it, but it's probably my buddy in the mid lane.
That's the beauty of this pick for T1. It is a flex between top and mid. We'll see what T1 do with it later on, as the Skarner looking to be the priority for Canyon. We'll see if they look to pair that alongside the Ashe, which you already mentioned, Atlas. The Rumble is something else to take into consideration. Yone plus Rumble is such a terrifying combo, and there are so many junglers that can help facilitate it as well. Sejuani is one that potentially comes to mind to really enable that mid lane matchup, as the Skarner locked it for Canyon.
And Canyon, obviously, we'd all love to see him on carries, but Skarner, definitely the strongest jungler currently on the patch, with the exception of that Nidalee that was banned away early on. Now, Gen.G knew 100% that this Yone was going to get picked up. We've seen teams do this, particularly in best of 5 in the first game, give it up. What is their answer going to be? I was actually expecting the Ashe to get picked up here early on, because it has been such an insane prio pick. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case, so T1 getting Yone and Ashe right here on blue side.
I'm actually very surprised, because T1 had Sejuani Rumble just straight up and available for them. That top side has been so incredibly strong, and it fits their playstyle so incredibly well. But what this does is it hides where that Yone is going. It opens up the board and gives this bottom lane a whole lot of power.
Is it the Blitzcrank to come out here? Because if they don't pick it here, I do think it's going to get taken away. Is Jovi going to get his hands on the side?
They're going for a bruiser top side on the side of Gen.G, looking to get down and dirty and look to try and scrap against T1. We saw a similar composition from T1 against Top Esports in their first game, where they were able to find great success. The key difference being a Renekton coming through from the side of Keen. Now we turn our attention to that jungle wall. Gen.G, what are they going to ban away? The Sejuani, we already talked extensively about it as an option. That's going to be the first one removed. Do they want to consider AP threats? The Blitzcrank also discussing that. Lahan's very well known for his Blitzcrank. They're not going to allow him to have that one. Now you kind of move into uncharted territory. Do you also consider something worth taking away?
Yeah, I think Rakan's a really important one. Do they just ban the Rumble because it's still very, very strong, opens the doors for a lot more heavy compositions as well? Certainly a lot of things on Gen.G's mind is what they could be taking away here.
The benefit here for Gen.G is that they will know where this Yone is going before they lock in their final pick. So we'll see, gives them a little bit more leeway. I imagine Pace is going to be picking up an AD carry here on R4, as the Rumble does get taken away. Gen.G also still saying we don't know where this Yone is going. We haven't seen it for Zeus in the top lane in a while, but given his history, wouldn't be no surprise. The Ezreal going to get taken away. Extremely self-sufficient pick. That is very hard to punish, and I think the range, so you don't have to interact too much with that Ashe lane, quite big as well. What is Pace going to lock in here to go with this Bruiser style? Because it's really hard to find something that can play into the Ashe Renata, and might be a lane swap on the cards.
Well, I was going to say my instinct is something along the lines of Kai'Sa, but Pace no stranger to the Ziggs. It looks like that's going to be the direction, the safe wave clear. And I mean, you look at this top side from Gen.G, wave clear is definitely something that they're lacking. But I feel like Ziggs can be very self-sufficient, especially if Lahans wants to play and engage support. And I think that it complements the composition nicely. T1 now considering what they're going to put in the jungle.
A lot of different considerations.
A lot of potential options being flicked through by Gumayusi. Teasing the crowd a little bit, but it is Oner. We're at Worlds, and his Vi is going to be the option.
Gonna have to be that. Oh, the Gragas locking as well. Also also kind of keeps things up in the air as far as where these two champions are going. Of course, Zeus is an incredible Gragas player just in general, so it's not likely to go to Faker, but he's played it a few times.
Yeah, there was that random 3 weeks where everyone in the LCK was pranked into thinking Gragas mid was good because Faker played it winning on it. It wasn't. It was all a psych out. This used to be a really good matchup for specifically tank Gragas. With Grass, back when his sustain was a lot better, you could just completely stonewall the Renekton. He never really was able to get shoved. I do imagine, though, looking at the damage roll for 41, this is going to be the full AP variety, so maybe a little bit more carry or shutdown potential early on here for Gen.G, but they are really heavy on the AP, and that's something that I do think we have seen be a problem for them before.
I mean, that's certainly true. The advantage is that Oner is a champion that very rarely builds things like the Merc Treads. He's very locked in his typical itemization build, along with the Gragas as well, who you kind of expect to go more towards an AP direction. I feel like that they should be fine. I think the biggest thing for Gen.G is being able to play through that first item spike. When you have this strong, skirmish-heavy topside in Renekton, Skarner, Silas, you're going to be looking to fight around Herald, fight for those early dragons. You want to draw T1 into those early skirmishes before they have that opportunity to scale. And I think that it's going to be crucial for Gen.G to kind of force T1 into their game.
Now that we also know for a fact that this Oner is going to Faker. Faker, not one of our top tier Yonis, but Zeka, BDD, Chovy, all right ahead of him. So this is a big test for him as well. Being able to perform on this pick would really throw a wrench into, I think, the drafting plans for Gen.G, who take a big gamble here with this Game 1 draft.
And Faker has found success and had some iffy moments on that Oner just in general. We saw Xiaohu not really pass that test yesterday. We'll see whether Faker, our other veteran mid laner, as far as our semifinals matchups are concerned, is going to be able to handle it. I don't think the GOAT's going to struggle too much. I think it's about how both of these drafts are going to function when we actually get into some of these brawls. But ladies and gentlemen, it is almost the moment that you've been waiting for. Game number 1 in our second semifinal of Worlds 2024 to decide who is going to be meeting BLG in the final. Oh man, already just a little bit of a defensive start. Not going to have those insane level 1s like we did in Game 2 yesterday.
The atmosphere is absolutely electric, and I think back to that spring final, the epic 5-game series that we had.
Where did those 5 games come? I'm still actually confused about where they came from. It shouldn't have happened that way.
I don't think we ever figured it out.
It's a shame that we were robbed in summer of them meeting in the playoffs, and I'm hopeful, well, we've got them here at Worlds. We get to see this opportunity.
Better late than never, eh, Betty?
T1 now setting up for an invade, looking to potentially set up for a swap.
All right, so I was saying that there might not be a swap, but there is. It is immediately spotted. Canyon's just going to move over to his blue side quadrant, so should be okay. Keen also going to be rotating immediately, getting the idea that there is going to be a potential lane swap in the air. Does make a fair bit of sense, but leaving a Ziggs in a bottom lane by himself is a recipe for plates.
Well, that's the big thing. Ziggs is a champion that even in top lane, because of his passive, you actually do a decent amount even for all the resistances. And if you are in a bot lane, it's going to be even more pronounced. T1 though, looking at the setups here, Zeus actually did go for Grasp, same for the mid laners, but shouldn't come as a surprise there. There's been a lot of Grasp mids throughout the tournament. We've been seeing it on ranged champions like Smolders, and it looks like Gen.G is going to go for the variety where you do have Lahens just laning together with Chovy or Canyon, starting on the bot side, and looks like just the usual jungle split. Neither jungler able to steal away a camp.
Yep, just some vertical jungling to start things off here as Keen's just doing his best to zone Zeus away from minions. Of course, Gragas in a lane swap is pretty good at it. Teleport from Keen to get him towards that top side of the map. 3 versus 1 could be a little bit dangerous. Having hit level 2, I think he should be all right.
It's actually really nice timing. As he arrives, the minion dies, and he immediately dinks too. So he got enough experience in bot to not be at quite a high risk of a dive. But even with that early attention being paid towards the mid lane, we do see Baker still doing fine. Bot side might be a dive setup here. Zeus is still fairly full health.
All right, let's see whether they can actually make this one work. You can see Barrel has been charged. Doesn't do a whole lot of damage at this point. Level 2 for Zeus. Does have that body slam. Going to use it immediately onto Canyon. Already down to 50%.
Leonanya bakal nebein. Scannernya baru masuk. Ini udah bilang tadi. Dapat. Anjir, dapat.
And Zeus says not today, boys. Lahen's looking for another option.
Bagus banget pasnya.
Lahen's able to walk out of that one, but he's still going to have to flash as Baker comes down to make sure his top laner stays alive.
A colossal blunder on the execution of the dive. Lehens can't connect the E. The tower aggro is mismanaged, and Gen.G are forced to retreat on their first play of the series.
And Gen.G, I think, should count themselves lucky. That could have gone way worse.
Oh, yeah.
The Canyon unintendedly getting the aggro there was the big thing. I think it might have been Red Buff. He clearly wasn't expecting it. They were looking for the redive. And that moment, bot time for Faker to TP towards the bottom lane. Only good thing for Gen.G is that did give Chovy a little bit of time while he still has a teleport available. But T1 going to be feeling great about that, trading just that flash on Zeus and a TP for multiple summoners from Gen.G.
There were so many instances there where it was really awkward for Zeus because he was one minion off leveling up, but the cannon minion had aggro. Hang on a minute, a play.
Yeah, Lehens Hex flashing in. Not going to find that Zenith blade either. Good handshake from Carrier. Keen taking so much damage. Lehens got to hit those if Gen.G is going to find some tempo back in this game.
Wow. Gumayushi's Ash so prevalent, it even causes the screen to freeze. Lehens 3 for 3 on misses when it comes to the Zenith blade now. He needs to be able to connect those if he wants to set up plays for his team, but I question a couple nerves feels like coming through here from the side of Gen.G early on.
Lance, known as a joker, but has had some moments. Him and Pace, I think, have throughout the course of this roster often been the most criticized. Has had incredible performances being back to the first series against Nobar Live in summer playoffs, but then also often cited as the reason why they struggled so much in the actual finals. I do want to note the fact that Gen.G has triple teleport, bailed them out a little bit because they were able to still catch that top wave. Even with Keen being bullied out of the lane, Chovy could TP top, and Keen has now made his way to the mid lane.
Oh, that's very cute. Being able to dodge the hawk shot there as Chovy rotating back down, spotted on this control ward as Carrier, taking some chain lash damage. Should be able to get out of here just fine, no worries. Be able to dodge some moves. And Faker with his unbound soul just going to be able to try and push this wave in. Of course, the luxury of being able to teleport to the top lane is purely because Faker had to use his to get down to the bottom side. But good handshake going to come in here. Could this be first blood against Chovy? That would be such devastating news for Gen.G. T1 already with a lot of control, 600 gold in the lead, and Faker is really having a good time in this lane despite having to vacate early.
I mean, this matchup is quite favored for the Oner early on just because of how restrained Silas is the champion around cooldowns. He just doesn't have them in the early game to effectively trade against a champion like Oner who could just keep spamming that Q. The CS advantage, you rightly said, though, coming from the fact that early TP came through. And Chovy, he's going to be forced back to base very soon. He doesn't want to miss this wave. At level 6, Faker threatening the potential ult there to try and zone Chovy away from that farm, but he will be able to get the can.
Ya bagusnya Ion tuh
kayak gitu. And with King being pulled around the map, we see that he's actually, even with the fact that he was able to catch that middle wave, he has had to really pay. Whereas Zeus, because he absorbed that early dive, has just been able to catch multiple waves. And I think T1 as a team always look their best when they get to play this aggressive. When the lanes are pushing and they are the ones dictating. As we see the grubs now being started up as well, would be a really big boom, particularly for Faker that wants to use that pressure in a side lane. Going to be a Drake for Grubs trade. I do think an early Drake for Gen.G is great because obviously looking at the composition, Renekton is going to lose a lot of value as the game goes on, but Silas and Ziggs most certainly will not.
Yep. Very close to being able to steal that one away. I do like an opportunistic barrel being thrown in as now. Potential dive towards the top side of the map. Lehens with that Eclipse is trying to tank things up. Doesn't really do a whole lot of work. That is another miss on the Zenith blade, but also, like you say, the minions are all going to die, so they should be okay at least for another crack.
Keeping my eyes on a potential cross map as both mid laners made their way up towards top. Nice follow there from Chovy. Losing a little bit in terms of experience, but ready for the potential play happening on the top side of the map. Reset now come through for Faker, securing his first 2 items of the game, and we're in a very timid early game. Crucially though, we talked about those first item spikes for Gen.G. Their biggest strength in the early game is the fact that they have Silas, Skarner, Renekton on the top side that I think want to try and leverage this skirmishing power in the early game to try and force these objectives. And as you rightly said, Dragons are going to be a great way to try and force that. Get yourself the second, and then you'll be ready to force a fight around the third, maybe even look to contest the next grub.
Yeah, and I think that I kind of want to draw out a little bit and have a conversation about what these compositions are trying to do, as another Hawkshot is going to spot Canyon here this time around. Because I'm looking at Gen.G and I'm thinking, there is a lot of magic damage here, but also it's solo AD Renekton. So if you're not building armor, then maybe the Crocodile just eats you. which could become a problem if Keen gets accelerated. And I think that is what's so incredibly important about what you say, playing through that top side, getting those skirmishes. Because right now, I mean, we haven't had a first blood just yet. And I think that Gen.G probably hoping that some of that starts a little bit sooner rather than later in their favor.
Gen.G have often taken this role in games against T1. It's also something that's important to note. And it's not until we really start to see turrets falling or more impactful objectives go over, right? We talk about Soul Point, we're talking about 6 grubs, possible Herald, and the 6 grubs I think is attainable for T1. That alone is not going to be enough. There's a possible trap being set up here. Oner has that ultimate available, but instead, even if you don't actually get anything out of the play, like you're crushing this wave, you're getting the plates, and you're still putting Gen.G further behind.
The key difference I think we're seeing in terms of impact in this early game is Carrier. Carrier is really making his presence felt in the mid lane, and remember Chovy had a CS advantage because of Faker's TP towards the bot side of the map. So Carrier has spent like at least 2 to maybe even 3 minutes of this game just hovering around mid, making it awkward for Chovy to base at the right time, keeping him to stay for that extra minion wave, helping Faker chip away at his HP. And you look at that CS, look at that gold slowly shifting back in Faker's way. You can see 3 plates secured in the mid lane. Meanwhile, Lahens has just been shadowing his AD carry, shadowing Pays, just making sure that yes, he can get that experience, but he's even behind Carrier when it comes to XP. So with the grub spawning in a minute's time, desperately he needs to get the level 6 to have that ultimate available. And I wonder if Gen.G is actually eager to try and force a fight as the grub's now spawning soon.
And it's the opportunity cost for the 2 plays that they tried to go for. The dive was a failure, and then the topside play we tried to set up for Keen, trying to punish this pushing power of the Ashe and Renata. Also not really working out, and that not only set Lahens behind, but also started Keen being in a bit of a tough position when it comes to catching these waves. And I do agree, I think Gen.G, if they are denied a good fight, things are going to be very tough. Gen.G has, again, I think been in this position before, but I do really want to highlight, we say that often, but if you look at their gold stats in the LCK, they weren't getting a lot of kills, but the amount of gold they generated early was actually insane. Like they were sitting on, I think it was on average like a 1.5k gold lead, and obviously there was a meta that was textbook perfection for them, but it isn't like they were getting into fights without anything to grasp onto. In this game, feels like that might be the case as the grubs are going to get started up. You see Gen.G is looking to contest. Level 6 has been hit on Lahens. Is that enough? 4 grubs are definitely going to go the way of T1 here.
Yeah, it's at least 4, but I think it's almost guaranteed to be 6. So 5 are going to be going down here at least. Here for T1, no vision up and available at all as Pays can throw a Mega Inferno Bomb if he would like to, but looks like T1 are just going to cut their losses. 5 grubs is pretty good. Canyon going to be able to grab this 6 potentially. Oner a little bit far away as now could just be a team fight in. Pays doesn't actually get over the wall with that satchel. Could be an important start to this fight as Chovy's teleported in. That's going to be the grub going down, but can they win the fight? Impale comes in, kept it as well.
Skyless mendapatkan first wall.
First blood against Oner, and T1 just not enough damage.
T1, they could have just taken the 5 grubs and left it at that, especially with the teleport coming in from Chovy, but instead they look for the 5v5 and Gen.G punch back.
Yeah, I'm surprised that T1 chose to take that, because the thing we've been talking about, right? Renekton in this early game is just, he's just so strong. Ultimate alone is enough to be so durable, a lot of damage. And you can see how the engage was a little disconnected here from T1. It's going to be Oner diving onto the back line, attempting to steal the grub. Chovy on the side, and look at Pays' positioning. Perfectly safe, nice angle. The Ashe arrow gets stolen. Gumayushi really can't do much. While the barrel looks good, the front line dissipates, and T1 is immediately forced to disengage.
Yeah, it was a Dominus Renekton, and he was kind of okay with just slicing and dicing his way around. So even though it looked amazing, didn't quite work out there. So T1, they lose first blood, but they still have a lot of tempo around this map, unless Chovy has something to say about it after he does crash this wave towards the top side. 5 grubs certainly going to be valuable as the game goes on, though, and T1 are looking to also even out the Dragon.
And the kill going to Chovy is a big deal. This Silas, we've seen how hard this champion can snowball when he does get a lead. He's able to very consistently force plays with his catch potential. And it's also something that the Chovy that we saw domestically, I think we've only seen in one game this Worlds, and it was that Game 5 smaller game. Because his laning stats haven't really been comparable to what we have seen domestically as a trade for turrets.
Well, it's going to be 5 grubs, so T1 do have a fair bit, but Gen.G, I think they're going to be able to cut this one down. Gumayushi also in trouble there as a Solar Flare does get cleansed. Gumayushi going to be able to make his way out. I believe that was Gen.G taking it first.
Yeah.
And so despite the grubs, they're still able to get there with the slight lead they had as far as the turret health. So a bit of extra gold going over to Gen.G, and that's going to very close to even things out here between the two squads.
I mean, what could really answer for, could we? Dead even game, 13 minutes
Maybe a few more kills, still just as even.
They're coming. Remember, it's game one of a best of 5. You don't... We have the entree, you know? We're just starting off...
I'm sorry, just a little bit of patience.
Atlas is not a patient man.
I know.
I just want to...
I agree with you,
the
Benny.
main course is on its way. I think what was smart there from Gen.G is, I mean, they had to reset after the grubs. The problem is the dragon was spawning relatively soon, so T1 already back out onto the map in a position to secure that. Gen.G leveraged the fact that they had that time advantage to secure that first tower. So ultimately, in the even trade, the only problem for Gen.G is T1 can kind of sack the next dragon if they want to without much of a problem, and they can continue to scale up. Blade of the Ruin King is very close to being completed for Faker, and that is such a massive item spike for T1 that they're definitely going to be waiting to try and secure.
T1 berhasil
pushing another wave towards this top lane and does have quite a few friends around. Looks like Gen.G did have a bit of information as to who was coming. So Canyon going to be rotating up. Pays also there, Mega Inferno Bomb in hand. The siege could be a little bit dangerous. Good handshake for the disengage as Canyon looking for an opportunity. Might be able to get in there, throwing some rocks around as you can see. Not going to go for any stuns or anything like that just yet. T1 are just going to be allowed to back away.
Crucially, look at Faker going back to base. He should have enough money for Blade of the Ruin King. This means that T1 are saying, we don't want to fight yet. It's not worth it. They're not going to overstay their welcome. The TP
Kraken as well.
The question is this TP going to be up in time to contest? The pings are coming down from T1. They have the Ash Arrow available to try and stall. T1 are saying they do want to fight this.
Ulti
like
harus
buka ulti si S. As you can see, so Oner completely on vision right now as Chovy
buka ulti
with the fate sealed now stolen away or hijacked here as that's a solar flare. It's going to connect. Great impale as well, and I think Area was there for a second, but now he is just gone. So the Herald goes to Gen.G. They'll take a kill as well, and now Chovy looking for more as Faker just going to pop back to his Soul's S. Just going to body slam his way out, and Gen.G, they really are taking these skirmishes.
Gen.G's target selection in these skirmishes has been so clean. Every single time one member is getting blown up in a barrage of CC as Lehens is driving. Always scary, but this time it works out for the mid lane turret. Gonna get taken low. T1 is able to defend.
Yeah, ever since Lehens got his license earlier in this tournament, he has definitely been driving a whole lot better than he was throughout the rest of this year.
We've seen some
LCK fan, you know, exactly. Very proud of him, though.
What we saw there as well for Gen.G, and it's again, I think, T1. This one a little bit more understandable, but when Gen.G have the setup, this comp is so hard to engage on. There's so much disengage, and the Skarner in particular, I think, has really been a big problem for many teams this Worlds. And even with Pays, I think his flash was forced in one of the early plays we saw. Didn't actually happen on screen. I think maybe when they were looking for the catch on Guma, but he was positioning so safely. There was no way to get on top of the Ziggs.
Now it's just Canyon and Chovy up here towards the top side of the map. 4 members of T1 in the area looking to try and push down this turret. They really want to take their second to even out the map state as far as these structures, and a teleport to come in from Pays just to make sure that they don't lose it.
See, Gen.G are playing with their advantage very strategically because T1, like, the problem with the Herald was the timing. TP wasn't quite up for Faker. He needed to get that face off, yet they still wanted to try and contest rather than go for a cross map because the bot tower had already fallen. So rather than play for something like mid, they got over ambitious and they weren't able to make it work. Then what they did was they kept the pressure up in mid. So Gen.G could secure that mid tower, they kept Pays there, he had the TP available, he then goes back to base and then TP's top. So while this Renekton is free hitting onto the bot tower, uncontested to secure that tower, they have the Ziggs TP top to then catch the wave and prevent the siege. So T1 is just losing on the map, while Gen.G is continuing to gain advantage.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people have trouble liking Ziggs compositions, and I understand it's not exactly the most interactive when it comes to early game skirmishes and things like that, but what it does to a team that is very good at playing around tempo and macro that they are already good at is it's just basically a cheat code.
Well, it's as you were saying, Benny, because even if you do try to play for mid turret, they're like, Pays can just ult the way. And Gen.G at so many of these Ziggs compositions, and it plays really well into their style, which is always trying to out-trade you. And now, what was a 1.5k goal deficit 5 minutes ago. T1's going to get this topside turret, so they're going to equalize it a little bit, but is still 1.5k gold for Gen.G and a second dragon on the way as well.
And look at the map setup as well. Like, Gen.G conceding that top side to get full vision coverage around this bot side of the map, pushing Zeus deep towards his tier 2 tower. making this very difficult for T1 to contest.
There it is.
And the Ziggs ultimate to slow down the siege.
Clear wave begitu saja dengan ultimate dari Zig.
It's annoying. If you're T1, it's so annoying because
stupid Yordle.
You're trying to cross map the best that you can, and it constantly gets interrupted.
Okay, looking for an opportunity here, but Zayas is just going to be able to take the red buff just fine.
It's okay.
So there is a win for T1, but they're going to have to do something to try and grab some control back in this game because earlier on, T1 were in the laning phase able to get a lot of decent advantages. Yes, it wasn't translating into kills, but they were able to get some extra money. Of course, Gumayushi was very far ahead, still has, I guess, a couple of minions in the lead, but he was 20 CS up earlier on. That has been evened out. And yeah, this game state is all going to come down to, I think, just where team fights will finally erupt when these teams stop just trading objectives everywhere. As Arrow is looking to connect handshake straight into it here. And I don't think this Leona is going to last very long. That is going to be T1's first kill. They're holding on to it as best they can. Faker delivered that one. Gumayushi says, you can have it, mate. Let's allow you to scale into this mid game.
I think that's crucial as well because Chovy has that slight advantage over Faker in terms of itemization. So funneling a bit of gold over towards Faker makes him stronger in the side lane, gets him closer to that stride breaker completion. Baron spawning him at 45. I don't think that's going to be a major point of contention this early on, but it adds that extra sense of pressure. We know T1's Barons are famous for both positive and negative reasons.
There's been a fluctuation throughout the years, yeah.
But I think at this World Championship, their Barons have been very good overall. And I think it's something that Gen.G will have to keep track of, especially after their experience against FlyQuest.
Well, Canyon.
Ada ultimate dari
Faker. Able to dash back whenever he
would
would like to, but
dan berhasil di flanking. Ada ultimate dari Leona begitu saja. Dan V berhasil ulti, tapi ada zonnya yang berhasil menyelamatkan Chovy. Dan kita bisa lihat Faker dan Keira.
Able to walk his way out, but it's another skirmish win for Gen.G.
What is Gen.G going to do with this? Faker does have TP available. It is very early, and I do agree. I don't think they can actually do this. Their damage to Baron, not nearly to what T1 would have, but it's a win when it comes to the immediate play. That's still TP invested though, and much like the kill on Lahens, it's nice, but if they get like 2 more kills, you can probably look towards more. Instead, it's going to be TP, 4 kills, Gold going over to Canyon. Finally, I was going to mention is gets his first Heartsteel stacks. 20 minutes into the game.
Soalnya
I lost to see it.
Nggak lihat aja ada map, ada ward.
I will say that I feel that Gen.G started off this game nervous.
Ada tower tuh dia kayak mau balik.
Like the sense of pressure, the atmosphere, the arena. While it is exciting for the matchup in and of itself, there's definitely more T1 fans here than Gen.G. And we saw some of that in the execution. But now the game's slowed down a little bit. They were able to kind of play out the map. You can see the difference in confidence level, and the TP execution was the typical Gen.G that we're used to seeing. Really nice collapse from them. They did lose the mid tower, but ultimately Gen.G playing with a lot of control and confidence on the map. Their side lane setups are nice, their vision control is good, and now again around the Baron they're suffocating it. The good news for T1 is that, as you already said, Chronicler, they don't have a fast Baron. So T1, even if this Baron does start, we'll have plenty of time to react, even if there's not that much vision, thanks to the Ashy as well.
Balik lagi.
I think it's actually so interesting talking about lopsided crowds in this matchup especially, because Gen.G are exceptionally used to it, and not just Gen.G. You look at all of these players just in general. Keen, has he ever had a matchup where he's favored over the last 7 years?
That's fair.
I don't quite remember when. He won his first LCK title only very, very recently. Chovy going to be fighting against Faker here, but I don't think there's going to be any big result of a good trade there for Faker. Chovy and Lahens got smashed by T1 in their very first final that they made it to. So they're used to it over quite a few years, and Canyon was the first one to figure out how to actually do it, you know, and then became a world champion. So getting over that hurdle has been very important for all of these players.
Yeah, T1 always has the home crowd advantage. It feels like one of the things that they are going to really struggle with, though, particularly with Zayas, I think kind of going, you know, partially AP, partially tank. But even he is not going to be that beefy. If you lose control of the map with this composition, you do have the ability to contest for vision just because you have the Ashe. But face checking is actually really hard, and many of the plays that we've seen thus far have just been Gen.G finding whoever is closest and blowing them up with the CC as this rivalry goes a while back.
It certainly does.
It's the dawn of League of Legends, as we know it.
Because you got to remember that Gen.G, even acquiring all of the accomplishments of the former Samsung roster, right? Like, this goes way, 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 way back.
Yeah, and
Back
there were
when there were
multiple
sister teams.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. There were multiple SKTs in the league, multiple Samsung Galaxies in the league as well. Although not necessarily Samsung Galaxy because it was blue-white back then as well.
Atlas.
But I think we
what
understand the reference. I just wanted to make sure I understood the semantics in case someone gets mad.
And ultimately what we're building up to, and the reason why we're focusing on all these things, is because that main course dish is arriving soon. The fourth dragon of the game is going to be starting off. I ordered a banger team fight.
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm waiting for it to be delivered.
What about a T1 Baron
T1
instead?
Baron, like, so smart. They see that the dragon is being started off. The Ziggs ultimate is always there. They
Baron
know
udah mulai
this is
di-start
started.
begitu
Let's see
saja.
how Gen.G handle this cross-map pressure.
Ini harus
Chovy
dicek
is
ini.
going to make his way over there first.
Nggak bawa itu lagi, nggak bawa ward dia.
And there's a Mega Inferno bomb
berhasil
just to guarantee that they know exactly what's going
shoot
on.
begitu
Teleport comes
saja.
in and yeah, there is
Apakah
no
berhasil
fight
mendapatkan
anywhere
Baron
near
dengan
this
free begitu
pit.
saja? Kayaknya
Chovy,
berhasil
can you actually stop
dan
something from
berhasil
happening
Deka
here? Is this going to be
dapetin
Oner?
free gitu. Oh, ada ultimate dari Faker dan berhasil di ulti. Chovy mati begitu saja oleh Ace dan Renekton berhasil membunuh Oner. Dan kita bisa lihat carry ya tidak selamat dan kesalahan besar bagi Letan karena dia malah menggunakan skill 3-nya. Gumayusi berhasil mengkait tim begitu saja dan berhasil mendapatkan
The main course has delivered as T1 smartly start off the Baron as Gen.G tried to start the Dragon. They forced Gen.G into this very difficult situation that they just couldn't answer.
As we look here, Chovy, I imagine his
yang
job
gue
is to
maksud
stall for the
nih,
rest
si
of his team
ngebuka
to
duluan,
arrive, but he steps too
terus
far
si Faker
forward.
tadi
He
bilang
stays alive for a lot longer than we were
V-nya harus
expecting,
ngebuka
but it doesn't
duluan.
matter. That's such a big
Nah,
source of
akhirnya
damage gone. And then you see with Zeus threatening the backline, Gen.G doesn't
karena
actually have
emang
any
gitu doang
damage.
caranya.
Keen
Tadi
is
aku bilang,
trying, Kenyon's
ini harus
trying,
butuh 3
but it's a
orang yang
Skarner
mati.
and a
Bener-bener
Renekton
3
that's
kan
getting
mati.
kited away.
The resources are divided on two fronts with Zeus, putting that pressure on the mid lane. Meanwhile, Ash is such an annoying champion for Renekton to deal with. We talked about the scaling elements, and you're starting to see them come to fruition. The first major lead of the game, while it's not represented in the goal, goes to T1.
The soul
Sudah
point
berbeda,
goes to
Sri
Gen.G,
buka
and that's
dan
something
berhasil
that
dimenangkan
they are
oleh
going to try and hold on
T1.
to. What can
Lebih unggul
T1
Sri
get
buka,
with this
ya
Baron?
lumayan,
Both
dan
side push is going to come
Sri
through, but
buka
do remember,
plus
as long
Boss
as Pace
Baron
is in the lane, the wave
ini
clear is still going to be
bagus
very
ya,
annoying to deal
untuk
with.
mendapatkan satu
Yeah,
turret
especially
lagi.
when there's side lanes that are sort of pushing naturally towards
ini
Gen.G.
dapat
You can
turret
tidy
atas
those up
kayaknya,
pretty
udah
comfortably right now. Gen.G
bawahnya
doing
juga
a
dapat
decent
sih
job
seharusnya.
being able to remove these minions. 5 grubs
Silasnya
and
sudah
Baron
mulai
though.
berjalan
It's
ke
going to be
atas,
very,
tapi
very
sudah ada
difficult to stop
teleport
T1
dari
from taking these tier 2 turrets.
oh teleport balik itu.
It's going to be their option is now Chovy up here towards the top side of the map.
Diajak buy war
Fighting
begitu
against Faker,
saja.
who's happy to go
Chovy
underneath this
berhasil.
turret. So much damage.
Hampir aja. Too much
Also coming
banyak.
on through,
Too
and
much
so
banyak.
Chovy is going to be
Terlalu
okay,
banyak
but
damage
this
yang
does not
masuk.
bode well. Party cast?
Nah kan udah gue bilang,
This is
bawah
why I
dapat,
was
atas
a little
dapat.
surprised by the Silas pick, because you kind of don't beat Yone in lane, and then you don't really beat him in a side lane either. There's this sweet spot in the mid game where you can maybe get advantages just because your skirmishing power is stronger, but
Midnya sih nggak bisa dapat
right now
sih
Chovy's
seharusnya.
struggling to match that of
Nggak
Faker
bisa
in the
dapat
side, and
midnya.
T1 putting pressure everywhere. Tier 2 towers secured in top lane, they've
Harus
transitioned
balik.
over to mid, now they have another wave in bot. Gen.G's been dragged over towards
Bawah
the mid
aja,
lane,
bawah.
that tower's gonna
Bawahnya
fall.
dapat. Bawah mati.
Gen.G in game 1, slowly losing more and more control over the game.
3K gold lead now for T1, even though the first minute or so of the Baron, they weren't able to find anything. It's the
Damage
setup
yang sangat
afterwards. This
banyak
team has
dari
perfected these
Faker.
Baron plays.
Berhasil di berhasil di knockdown begitu saja dan yap mendapatkan scanner. Ultimate sudah dikeluarkan oleh Leona tapi tidak terkena Gumayusi dan berhasil carry yang menangkap Leona lagi. Bagus banget ini. Comeback terjadi kepada T1 gitu saja.
And T1
Ini udah bisa balik lagi ke
Gen.G
atas.
walk into their depths again and again and say thank you very much. The inhibitor stand, but the gold lead keeps growing.
And Faker just toying with them here on this bottom side of the map. Man, it really just feels like a big swing back. So much it was give and take in this game, but now T1 are just saying that they're going to have it all.
The pick
Itu
potential of this roster was
stun
something
semua.
we didn't get to
Tank
talk a lot
segitu-gitu
about, but you can see it
sampai
clear as day.
cheer.
The Ash arrow into the
Stun
Gragas
semua,
ultimate
anjing ya.
makes it so difficult to protect the target that gets locked down. Lahen's doing what he can to try and catch Gumayusi out, but it's just not enough. And the game is quickly snowballing in favor of T1.
Yeah. Lahen's not feeling too happy about it. You can see the GOAT as well, not celebrating yet. This is game 1 5,000 gold is the approaching gold lead for T1. They have so much map control. They should be able to deny the rest of the Dragons. They can get their ducks in a row as far as these lanes are concerned. And Gen.G back out onto the map now, trying to steal away this blue buff. They will be able to do so.
Notice on the map though that Faker's pushing out the top wave mid has kind of been sacrificed. No one is actually in a position to catch it. Carrier is the one there to try and hold the wave. Guma's going to have to go the long way around. They've got pushing bot, which means that Chobi's going to go and answer, but ultimately the river has been conceded. Gen.G have purchased over that area of the map, while Faker's remaining top, has the TP available. Let's see how this one plays out.
Yeah, playing the side lanes very well is Faker, as we can see, going to immediately teleport into the mid lane as that wave crashes forward. Keen, he's got his teleport up as well, but he's going to be behind the play just a little bit. Now Carrier looking for that opportunity. Hostile takeover, 2 seconds. Now it's back up and available. T1 are ready to fight.
Gen.G can choose to give this up. T1 only have a single dragon, but it looks like they don't want to give him the opportunity. Maybe feeling like in the late game they can't match. Gen.G gonna try and go for a Hail Mary here.
Yeah, Chobi's got a cast, get the ready. It is going to be Oner denying that soul, and now T1 starting off the fight. Can Gen.G actually find an angle as hostile takeover comes in? Carrier, he's tried to bail himself out, and it's going to work for now. The Impale is good. They take down Carrier, but can they deal with the carries? That's the question. Chobi starting to pop up, and so is Kamiyuchi. Chobi's coming down.
Dan nggak bisa ngomong gua. Itu mistake ya. Yang parah banget sih itu.
T1 and the final team fight of game 1 will snuff out Gen.G. A full-on ace at the cost of their jungle and support. The nexus in their eyes, 30 minutes in, T1 remain the gatekeepers of the World Finals, and now say you'll have to try better than that if you want to make it to London.
Nexus turret number 1, Nexus turret number 2, and T1 will take the first game in this semifinal. We'll see whether Gen.G can do better in game 2. So one of the things that I feel was missed. There was not a lot missed from our teaser today. It was one of Phil's best things ever. But one of the things that was missed is that not only do you have to beat Faker to be the best, you always have to beat Faker to be the best. And they're not quite doing it yet. Faker still remains the GOAT, and he probably will forever. It's time for us to go to a break. When we get back, game number 2, we're going to break down that game number 1.
Nah kita lihat nih salahnya tuh di sini nih. Nah di sini si scannernya nih, scanner seharusnya langsung aja ke sini, tapi karena dia ketangkep apa ultimate dari Renata, Renatanya tadi harusnya mati tapi berhasil selamat dan baru mati oleh Renekton. Jadi si sama si scannernya gak bisa nangkep si dua illusinya, biasanya jadi bener-bener free hit banget. Scanner mau ngambil tapi nih scanner udah pengen ngambil nih. Scanner udah jalan bukan sini. Nah di sini scannernya udah lagi jalan OTW ngambil ini gue mayu sini tuh udah OTW tapi nggak jadi karena udah ini udah nah di mistake itu tuh yang bikin ya kok nggak jadi sih, jadiin aja kalau itu harusnya bisa mati tuh gue mayu sih kalau si scannernya ngambil ya cuma karena ada miscalling mungkin tahu ya, hanya dia yang tahu kali ya, jadi kita ya cuma bisa menerka-nerka aja. Begitu. Lalu
数不清有多少个这样的时刻，闪现向前，焦灼。欢呼，沮丧，再来。没什么比这 这一刻更好。
15 menit kan ya? Natin camp lu kali ya?
Mobile.
Kenapa lah nggak bisa anjir?
Lebih dari sekedar mobil.
Kocak bener kocak. Bisa ya? Ini balik-balik sini.
Solo player, it's going to connect. Great impale as well, and I think Gary was there for a second, but now he is just gone. Jovi, can you actually stop something from happening here? Is it going to be Oner the last one down? Ulti from Faker finds two. He's out of there immediately. Keen's able to try and chop them up, and there goes Oner, but they'll trade that any day of the week. But can they deal with the carries? That's the question. Jovi starting to pop up, and so is the Miyuchi. Jovi's cut down. 4 arrows into his back, and he knows that it's done. Flashing forward. It's a triple maneuver, and that's
젠지는 정말 강력한 팀이고 저희가 높은 무대에서도 젠지에게 많이 패했었는데 작년에 징동도 좀 비슷한 느낌으로 되게 강한 팀이었지만 이긴 기억이 있기 때문에 저희 구마유시 캐리어 듀오는 세계 최고이기 때문에 당연히 이길 수 있다고 생각합니다.
Yes. Is it going to be a similar story? Well, Gumayushi was on that Ashe and did really, really well. And I just want to take a minute to talk about this entire first game, because as we were watching it, right, we go, this is kind of what you lay out. Gen.G, such a good team, such good macro coming out of that early laning phase, having full control, but you're waiting in trepidation because T1 is clutch. T1's gonna do something, and did they?
T1 Barons!
Let's go!
When I think of this game, and when everyone thinks of this game and they're looking back, they're going to think of the big Baron.
Yeah, why didn't Gen.G?
Well, I mean, this was a really good call. You could see that they Dragon was taken, Skarner was gone. You need to get the TP in, but Faker with this ultimate as well was clutch, and that's why it's part of the reliable Cisco network for every second counts. It was absolutely insane to see just how clean they were on this play.
And then look at the re-engage from Gen.G here. They actually split. So Pays is the big damage still alive. He goes down, focusing on Zeus, while Canyon flashed the other way to get a double Skarner ult, but there's no one there to follow up on his double Skarner ult. And so then T1 can get so much out of this. It's not just a T1 like sneak Baron. It was over a 5,000 gold Baron power play with that Baron. They got all 3 of the secondary towers and more kills because of Guma's Ash, able to hit the arrow on Canyon as he's like standing by the tower for even more gold, and it was just such a snowball.
I just think Ash is a big pick, and maybe you should consider it instead of Renekton.
Hey, and the Gragas
yeah, that's what I really wanted to bring up in that fight. Gragas is such a good pick against what Gen.G want to do. It's able to split up fights. Zeus had an insane performance on that pick. It's something we saw earlier in Swiss, and I'm so happy to see him bring it out again.
Yeah, it was, and the Renekton, in comparison, was kind of useless in conclusion.
mean, because you remember back to the early game too, the Gragas already showed up. Zeus outplay under tower during the lane swap. Got also Oner a bit ahead because he was able to get extra camps because Canyon was down there taking damage. So yeah, really big props to Zeus again on his Gragas.
I have a surprise video for you because someone's in the crowd who wasn't entertained, apparently. Let's take a look. I think maybe they should be scared, but they're not. Oh, did I just tease it and suck it? Look at Alec. Oh, no!
The yawn!
Super cut. He just.
Oh my god.
No! What's up with that?
Maybe he was out last night. Who knows?
Oh, partying? Okay, I get it. It would be allowed. It would be allowed. Oh, this is not a replay, by the way. This is consecutively.
Yeah.
Hey,
oh my god, Al, come on.
I also,
come on, man.
I like how Bin is locked in though.
Yeah, he's like
Bin is locked
laser
in.
focused.
Well, as we know, he loves Zeus, so he needs
that's
to
true.
be
He's
infatuated with his
studying.
play.
He's good point. He's like, I need to pull out the Gragas next time.
yeah. Let's go back a little bit to the beginning of the game as well, because there were times, I guess, that T1 was in a position where they had to clutch it out later because it didn't necessarily go ideal around the Grubs or the Herald.
Yeah, and I think the second Grub fight is the most egregious one, I'll say, because there was really not a lot of reasons for them to fight over this 6th Grub. Obviously, yes, you do want to get that, but they already had the 5, and this was so easy for Gen.G to just go in.
It's also that you have no smite on your jungler. Gen.G have a smite, and you already had that opportunity to just push in bot because Zeus had TP'd late. So you had a ton of options there for T1, but then we come into the Rift Herald fight as well, and this was strange because you'd already had the double resets coming through from Gumayusi and Faker. They were going to be late, and to me it felt like T1 were just trying to push Gen.G onto the top side of the map so they could collapse back onto mid wave and take the mid tower, but Keria oversteps and ends up getting caught out, and it completely falls apart for them.
Yeah, I felt like both of them were strange because the first one, Oner engaged onto the Leona there instead of even actually going for it, and then like you say, Carrier's just standing around, and there's a Leona with the ultimate ready, so you have to expect that the attempt for the pick is going to come through.
Yeah, and I think the big thing coming out of that is I actually did like T1's look in the early lane swap. They seem to really know what they wanted to do. They used the Gragas pick, to your point, Kobe, where it's so hard to dive a Gragas even super early on. And so going forward, I'm interested to see what Gen.G do. This was a risk, leaving the Yone pick open, picking the Renekton over the Ashe or something similar. So we'll see.
And that's why I want to keep my eyes on Keria coming into this game. He was a monster in this early stage, constantly roaming towards Faker, leaving Gumayusi by himself, getting that early control, and Lehens needs to control him. Lehens did not do a good job in the early stages. Now coming into game number 2, he needs to step up big time. He wasn't good in the last series, and now again is struggling against Keria.
I love it that you give this directive, that you call him out. I mean, it's true because, you know, this is only a game 1 in a best of 5. But every game counts for a reason. You're going in now with more information for T1. You could be happy with what you showed. Gen.G is going to be on the blue side, and it's just, it's a chink in the armor already. And the question is, can you now fight back and make sure that they don't get you to your knees?
So exciting. What an exciting start to this series. I mean, an explosive big Baron. We saw, like you say, some stumbles in the very beginning of the game. But game number 2, we'll see the adjustments as they swap sides.
Will Atlas, will Gumayusi finally die in this game 2?
I don't think so. I mean, I haven't seen anything that's going to prove that's going to happen, so I'm feeling that maybe he'll just cruise through this one as well. We'll see whether the Nexus dies, but I think that's going to go down before Guma does.
Yeah, Atlas is a fan, famously of small sample sizes, but this we're getting up there. Okay, it's 8 games in a row.
This is becoming a medium sample size. You know, this is getting real over here right now. So. We'll just have to see. I think if T1 are going to win, it is going to be one of those games where they should be able to roll over, but I think that there's going to be a lot of adaptation moving into this Gem Select, brought to you by Omen and HyperX. As already, Gen.G once again banning away the Xayah here, this time on the blue side.
And this should give us a really good indication of how this series is going to look like, because in Game 1, Gen.G were on red side and took a lot of risks. If T1 is able to get a 2-0 lead, breaking them on red side as well, it's going to be so much harder to fight back. Gonna have to be a really big pivot, as the smolder, even with the Yone not being in the game, is taken away.
Now, I do think that Gumayusi's pool at this World Championship is pretty much those 80 carries on her screen. Now, admittedly, we've seen him play Caitlyn, we've seen him play Draven, but Ezreal and Kai'Sa, the usual de facto go-to meta 80 carries that we're seeing often, are not his priority. The question then becomes, where does Ziggs fall on the totem pole? Because we saw how effective it was for Paze and his ability to stall out the game, but is that something that T1 want to try and prioritize? And if they do, what do they then put mid lane?
And I was going to say, this Skarner pick does seem to make a bit of sense based on how much Kenyon has wanted to play it. The amount of success, though, isn't necessarily giving us a lot of joy. But what's the other option? It's now Caitlyn and Kindred.
Right.
All right, there we go. There's
it's Gumayusi. Well, I mean, of course, he's going to pick a lane dominating carry. And the lane swap meta, I debate how effective it is. But the biggest surprise to me is the Kindred coming out from Oner as an answer into the sky.
That's some shades of 2022 that I'm seeing here with the Kate and Kindred. And do note, Nidalee this time around was not banned. And that is something that Kenyon saw even in the series against FlyQuest has very heavily relied upon. And Gen.G, the Jax, obviously a good addition. Connected didn't really hit last time around. Is available this time as well.
It's also very good into double lane carry,
exactly. But the Ahri thus far hasn't really sparked a lot of confidence. Faker can just go for the Silas, and I know it's a supposed counter pick, but that's not really how the games have played out thus far here at Worlds.
But if they wanted Gragas again, they had to take it right there. Gragas, decent matchup into the Jax, and if you have the Kindred, you kind of want to get things that are bad guys off your Lamb's Respite to get the most value, so that could have been another great pickup. But it's going to be the Braum instead. That is going to be just the power lane here for both Gumayusi and Keria, but they're going to need some engage from somewhere.
I mean, so the Lulu ban caught me off guard a little bit, but the logic is mainly Lulu's very good into Braum, and there's the realistic possibility of Paze. We've already seen Twitch, not that I'm expecting Twitch in this draft, but a potential hyper carry to pair up alongside of Lulu could be an effective answer. So that's going to be taken away. The Galio going to be banned away, and the idea between a potential Camille plus Galio plus Kindred combo coming out from T1. Bit of an old school, but definitely a classic. That respect, along with the Renata now taken away by T1.
Yeah, gives them some engage options as well. So trying to take those off the board as much as possible, as there is the Renata ban as well from T1's side. Another option that's pretty good into the Braum.
Saw it as well in the BLG series, obviously in that game 4. Hanwha versus BLG. A lot of shenanigans happening with that. Galio, the Gragas, I do agree with you, Atlas, seems like a no-brainer, but that is not going to get taken away. That is good into Jax. Xayah's just came off a great game off of it, and it synergizes really well with that Kindred.
Maybe Gen.G has a plan into something like that, because you could imagine that they do have a pretty fresh in their mind that is a likely pickup. The Maokai going to be a consideration, though. That could be the support option or a top option.
We saw that from...
No, it's not going to be support. I don't think Braum jungle is going to quite be happening
here.
Whoa,
Varus mid. Why am I blanking? It was Bree this game, sorry, from yesterday. I think it's a pretty good matchup into the Jax, in all honesty, and you get so tanky. I don't love Maokai as an engage, just because it's so slow and it's very, like, slow. Sorry, slow, I said that twice. While it has a big AoE,
possibly slow as well.
Exactly, yes. I'm fascinated as to how they're going to round this draft out. You're expecting some sort of AP mage to come through. Gen.G kind of sticking to this idea of diving with Ahri, Kai'Sa.
Yeah. Give me the Blitzcrank. Do it, Lance. Don't be scared.
No, I imagine it's going to be something like the realm or the Oner. Yeah,
Braum makes a lot of sense. So they're effectively playing full dive into Braum, Kindred, and Maokai. Which
they are.
That does not sound great. If you are Gen.G, and I got to give credit to T1, I think Gen.G thus far have been very predictable in how they have drafted and the priorities that they've used. And some of these individual champions, they've just not looked that good. And Keen on Jax, that's great. But Canyon on Skarner, Chovy, Ari, and Pace, even going back to summer finals, wasn't really able to have the performance that I think you ideally would be looking for. And then you have a ton of comfort for T1. I think the only thing that you lack is engage, but the counter engage and your ability to be, if you're first in an objective, to deny any area access is out of this world.
I'm also kind of surprised because when we see 380 carry bans, like the direction that Guma's going to go is quite predictable in a sense. And it feels like that they haven't really provided a good response to this Caitlyn. I guess the idea is that they get their hands on the Jax, which sure into 80 carries is good, but I think your point is so potent in this game about you are very short range into Braum, Kindred, Maokai. I'm fascinated. Like, ultimately, T1's engage is very low. It's not the strongest. You're very reliant on Maokai. Maybe Silas stealing a good ult. Maybe a Skarner ultimate or a Rel ultimate to start the fight. But I think T1 have cooked, and I like the dish that they prepared.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think that not having a lot of engage only matters if you lose the range battle. But I think they're doing okay in that regard. When that sort of is one of the concerns. And when you can throw saplings around to get as much information as possible, I mean, Zayas should be able to just face check anything that he would like later into the game because he is going to be a walking fortress. I think that once again, T1 are coming out of a draft looking really, really good. And this time it's on the red side. And Gen.G fans might need to start getting nervous unless they can find some angles. But it is now time to get onto the rift and see whether they can put their money where their mouth is. We jump into game 2.
The other thing is
dipukulin sama si
Braum traps, Maokai saplings as you highlighted. You said that Zayas could pretty much face check into anyone, right? Because, you know, he's Maokai, he's tank, he can also use a sapling, it's a low safety. Good luck face checking into Braum Caitlyn. Like, that is a horrifying thing to have to face check into. And the problem is that even if Gen.G is first on an objective, throw with the Maokai ultimate, zone them off the objective. You then regain the space. Once you have the space, trap. Like, and now you've got to walk into us again. I think that the idea of playing around objectives, I'm going to be fascinated to see how Gen.G navigate their way through that. I think flanks and vision control is going to be so important for them.
Chovy's going to have a really good laning phase for starters. Did go, by the way, Gen.G loves the resolve tree, as we can see.
I mean, Chovy just loves grass.
He does love grass.
It's just another thing that he can access some dopamine from.
Yeah, and so Chovy needs to do a good job. I also think that Keen, if he does get his matchup, should be able to get the shove, but the problem is you don't really want to 2v2 as Kaisarel into the Cade Braum. So you're incentivized to lane swap so that your bot lane can survive, but also you kind of want the Jax to match the Maokai, because Maokai early doesn't really get to do a whole lot. Looks like it is actually T1 that is going for the swap here initially, playing 2v2 mid.
You'll notice that Guma was hovering around mid for quite a while, which means that he was quite late to the top wave. On top of that, Zayas was denied from farm on the bot side of the map. So already this lane swap isn't ideal, optimal for the way in which T1 is setting themselves up for success. Carrier has been hovering around mid. He's going to get level 2 very quickly. He's already on his transition over to bot lane, knowing that, hey, if I get one more minion, I'll level over. That's fine. I don't need to take any more XP away from Faker. Jungler pathing topside, those kind of you'd expect. Oner, which means that the threat of the time is coming.
Sudah ada 4 orang begitu saja
He's going to get stunned up here by Lehens. He makes his way in level 2, only level 1 for Carrier. He's burning down. He's dead. And it's going to be first blood going over to Canyon, and they'll take the side because Zayas now finds himself in a whole lot of trouble. Might have a twisted advance, trying to outplay some stuff. That smash was pretty good.
Tapi masih ada TB dari
teman-temannya.
Kayan seperti mati tidak jadi Zeus masih bisa survive tapi tidak akan berhasil survive terlalu banyak damage yang masuk.
Game number 1, the dive of disaster. Game number 2 puts Gen.G back on the right track. A kill for Pace and so many resources for T1 going to waste.
I mean, that was perfect execution execution from Gen.G. They punish the rotation from Carrier, they get him before he gets level 2, and then they manage the tower aggro phenomenally. This is the Gen.G we were expecting.
And this is exactly the Gen.G that we need to see in this game if we want it to get to a best of 3.
Which we do!
They have to start early if they want to get some of these advantages. You already said that the script is written for how fights are going to go later on in the game, and it's not very fun if you're not on T1. So Gen.G, they have to be able to snowball this forward to see what they can do, because it's not over yet. They need to get more leads.
Canyon is quite far behind in terms of camps, is the biggest downside for Gen.G. You'll notice that he's only managed to get through his bot side. Oh, flash once again. I say again, I mean, he didn't get a chance to flash earlier, but Canyon putting pressure down, I should say, onto Carrier once again, as Faker going to be zoned away from what farm he can. He's doing a pretty good job so far in the mid lane matchup, but at the bottom of your screen, it's a suave shade of blue.
It is indeed. Gen.G finding a bunch of advantages. Excellent use of the word suave as well. Speaking of which, so was that just escape from Canyon.
Canyon, one of the most often heard pieces of criticism for this player, which also ties into his strength, which is mid to late game impact and carry performances, is that he's not doing enough. I think this game he's overcompensating a little bit. Still sitting at 16 CS, but because of the early kill, once he picks up his camps that are going to be decent level, should be able to very quickly catch back up in experience. And when it comes to the gold, he is still doing fine. Now this early gold lead for Gen.G, a necessity, but good to see nonetheless. Because with how game number 1 played out, it felt like Gen.G was on track for what we've seen them do so many times, and T1 really threw them off.
And I will draw attention to our viewers who aren't as familiar with the format. Overlay, I should say. You can keep track of the kindred stacks off the right-hand side of the screen. You can see that underneath the flash. And same for any of the stacking champions, which we don't have in this game.
But Smolder was banned.
Yeah. Oner actually doing a decent job if we're going to compare kindred performances that we've seen this Worlds. I think he is currently 13 minutes earlier on his first mark, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, not bad.
And shouldn't even need that to win the game. So that says
marks
something.
are overrated.
Yeah, we are really snowballing on the marks. If he keeps this one up, it could be completely ridiculous. Yeah, exactly.
Now Pays has transitioned to the top side of the Rift. Guma's actually been moved over to mid. Zeus does not have the TP available. Faker has sneaked to the top. I wonder if T1 is going to try and contest these grabs with Faker setting up a trap.
Yeah, got Oner moving on over as well. Does get seen on that control board, but finally Pays gets that information. Has to use the ulti. Chains don't land because the flash has to come out, and Pays is going to help now with these grabs. But that is not a lot of extra power here for Gen.G. Losing that flash, really important.
Pays staying alive is crucial there. Otherwise, if they get that kill, T1 can then immediately collapse. You saw the rest of the members actually making their way over, but instead it's a big win for Gen.G. They get the grubs, and as mentioned, the Maokai is always going to have a lot of impact as
Faker. Yeah, could be in some trouble here as Lehens moving on over, finds a shattering strike. Ulti available here as Faker decides to go down, but Canyon's there to meet him. Faker now trying to change positions, but the plasma is stacked, and Pays is going to get some revenge.
And Lehens to reposition there to deny the ability for Faker to ult out with that Kai'Sa ult.
And on top of that, Canyon using his E, not onto Faker, but in his flash path, meaning that he had nowhere to go. Nice collapse from Gen.G, and they funnel that kill onto Pays, crucially to get him further and further ahead. 2-0-0 now for the Kai'Sa, an 800 gold lead for him. And Gen.G came out the gate swinging here in game 2.
And he's got some compound interest. That call is ticking away. Gonna even further bolster the gold lead. And the biggest difference here has, I think, very clearly been Lehens' impact in game 1 versus game 2, and then the inverse, Carrier on the Braum, which is not really the same type of champion.
Looking for a little bit more here, but level 4, as is Carrier. The 80 carries that now actually have some levels in them, as we can see here. Some Berserker's Greaves done for Gumayushi. It's a bit of a battle towards the bottom side of the map. Zeus could be in trouble. Canyon once again just lawnmowing his way over. Oner going to get caught by the brambles. Actually not, because of course there's Zeus. I'm getting confused. Should be a jungler that has that ability. Keen jumping back. No, I don't know about that one, but he has the counter strike. Zeus now looking for an opportunity here, but Keen looks like he's out. Canyon now another one moving forward, but Oner's continuing these autos. The dance of arrows can get him in range as they get the bramble smash to slow Canyon down. Impale's going to be dodged beautifully. Counter-strike for the stun. Canyon on about 1 health, and Oner cannot dive the turret.
Not even close. Canyon holds onto his flash and makes sure that he keeps that summoner available, but what an almost turn from T1.
There seemed to be a bit of indecision on the side of Gen.G about whether or not they wanted to commit to the play. But then when they finally decided to, Oner was like, all right, fine, let's take this 2 versus 2, and you saw the power of the Kindred. And you saw the power of the Kindred early on in the skirmishes. No kill ends up dropping for either side, and Keen's able to catch this massive top wave as well.
In the picture-in-picture, also, we were distracted by what was happening, but Chovy actually forced Faker's flash. I imagine went for an offensive ult play, got that summoner out, and that does mean that T1 for a possible contest on these grubs. Trying to deny the Jack 6 grubs, definitely something that you want to do, but 2 crucial summoners now no longer going to be available. Keen also had to invest his flash, but Canyon still has his.
Yeah. And one thing I want to draw everyone's attention to is the fact is something that we've spoken about earlier. It's a 2,000 gold lead here for Gen.G. It has to be. The way team fights are going to work later in the game should be able to favor T1 if they don't fall too far behind. Right now, I think that Gen.G are on pace for trying to create a snowball, but they cannot stop. Like, this is about continuing to press this advantage as much as they possibly can. First Dragon certainly going to help out with that. Next one going to be an Infernal. And Gen.G just have to keep their foot on the gas.
I mean, I think it's important to realize that kind of on paper, Gen.G's comp is easier to execute because it's just go forward.
Yeah.
Right? Press
go in
R,
and
engage.
kill.
Yeah, exactly. So T1 in the fight, so we talked about all these tools that they have, but execution is key. Patience, cutting backwards, leveraging your range, being able to sort of circumvent your way around all of the engage that Gen.G's going to have. So if they get a lead, it becomes even harder to do that, and it can look even more dominating when Gen.G is just forcing all of these blocks.
Yeah, the fact that 2 out of the 3 kills are on Pays as well is something that could be worrying, because yes, there's a range advantage for T1, but that reposition from the Killer Instinct can really allow Gen.G, if Pays is really strong in this game, to just clean up any situation where they can get a foothold. So things could go from bad to worse very, very quickly. That's getting ahead of ourselves though. Let's have a look at how this mid game is going to unfold. As already Canyon getting to work, trying to lock down 6 of these grubs on vision right now, but we can see there's Kindred in the bottom lane, so it's not likely that a contest is going to work out.
And this all comes from Chovy's prio in mid. This time around actually is able to have that very aggressive laning phase, and Faker just has to catch the wave, so I think T1 make the right call. Don't try to fight that, instead try to look for the cross map. Gen.G with Pays and Lands arriving will be fine. I also want to highlight Oner now on 2 marks, found one on the ground in top side. But Oner, who I think was by far the most consistent member of T1 in summer, had a little bit of a dip in playoffs, but then has been exceptional once again. When you think of his best champions, they're champions with really high impact, but not necessarily the carries, right? It's the Vi moments, it's the Rel from last year.
You have to cast your mind back a very long way, right? It was when he was making his names on picks like Graves that you really remember him being able to carry from the jungle role. It's not something he's a stranger to. This is maybe something he's a bit rusty on.
It's just not something, like it's not about whether or not Oner can do it, but it's about how T1 as a team functions and has over the last couple of years.
I will say that when you look at this T1 draft, it definitely isn't typical T1. Like, seeing Zeus play a full-on tank is not something that we often get to see. Carrier, I always think of his supports as, I mean, he's the flashy playmaker. When he's on Braum,
we remember it, but not with a great look in our eye, you know?
So I will say that, like, this T1 composition is definitely a bit of a difference from what we normally see from them. And while we didn't see the best version of Gen.G in Game 1, you have to wonder if T1 also trying something different out on the red side to see if they can catch Gen.G off guard. So far in the early game, Gen.G have been outperforming them in terms of the lane swap and punishing them on the side lanes. We'll see how things transition as we get into the mid game and these objectives become more important.
Yep, I think Gumayusi's positioning going to be extremely important, and the way Oner plays around the rest of his team to try and maximize these marks. Shun got to 4 stacks of the Kindred mark in 28 minutes and 42 seconds. See whether Oner can get a little bit higher than that, because it's the next few that are going to be the most important. Of course, remember guys, 4 stacks on your Kindred marks, that's when you get the big old range boost and you're feeling really good about it. But Gen.G right now utilizing 6 grubs to smash down this turret. It's not a race this time. Yeah, T1 just didn't even really start.
It's also the biggest boost, and it's the only one that's actually essential. You know, everything past that is nice, but particularly, Lahens.
Yeah, possible catch here on the carrier once again. He shows them the door, but Pace says, no, I'm not going to get caught by that one. One more auto attack. But there's the Lamb's respite, and Oner is going to be able to save carrier. He actually walks out so that he doesn't get tagged.
I like the aggression there from Gen.G. Carrier, thanks to his ultimate, is able to get him away to safety. But Carrier very close to losing his life, and you can see how much control Gen.G have over the map. That bottom side is just littered with wards, and it just goes to show the way in which they set up the pressure onto bot. They had control over mid, transition that priority, and then they converted it into an easy objective setup. All of the early game objectives have gone the way of Gen.G, and now they return their bot lane to mid, ready for the Rift Herald.
The thing that I'm looking at is still just going to be Oner. As this game goes on, you can see he's got a gigantic lead as far as farm is concerned, but it is still Canyon. With these early kills, with the amount of objectives that they've been able to lock down, does have a slight gold advantage, but it is very, very slight. And Oner is a large proponent of where the damage is going to come from in this game from T1. And as that range increases, his lethality will increase as well. Not the stat, just in general. It's an awkward word to use in League of Legends. I apologize. That's going to be Rift Herald going on over to Gen.G as well. A monopoly on these objectives so far in this game as Carrier's flashing on over. Lahens could be in trouble. Shattering Strike going to hold him in place. Faker wants to be able to get a piece of this. He's not going to get the kill. That's going to go to Oner. As T1 who managed to get their first kill of the game.
Pretty nicely done there by T1. So Gen.G started up the Herald as a hold that thought. We might have a collapse imminent here.
Yeah, you've got Zeus throwing down the Nature's Grasp, looking to try and catch them in place. But Gen.G, they just exit. They just
leave.
The move to the left. I like the approach.
Not too bothered there. Keen will get the turret though. But T1 there identified we can't really fight for the Herald. And Chovy was alone in bot lane. So they read the play. Lahens actually trying to cover for Chovy, but gets caught mid-rotation. It's going to be the Grubs and the Herald going over the Gen.G, but the second Dragon of the game.
Oh! He just wanders on in there. He'll flash away, so they at least get that. Faker also taking the outer turret on the bottom side, but that is so big. And now it's Hextech Soul this game.
Oner didn't have Smite. And the only way that Canyon knew was because he saw the W from Paze go over the wall. He saw the HP. It didn't get smited, and so he's like, wait, I think there's an angle
Something's fishy,
yeah. And so he just went for it. Beautiful play from Canyon. Great read from him. The Herald gets dropped in mid. And the player that we haven't talked about, but is getting monstrously scary, is Keen in the top lane. He secured a full tower on the top side, uncontested. He's almost got a 1k gold lead. That Trinity Force is on the horizon. And we talked about it in the draft, right? Into double AD carry, even into a Silas. This Jax is not really going to be afraid of anyone on the side lane. The Maokai is just going to do his best to hold him off.
Yep, it's going to be about how well T1 just holds Keen at bay and tries to bide their time. But as the game stands right now, it is not looking good because this snowball is a-rolling. Gen.G are capitalizing, but it's only 2.5k, something like that as far as gold lead is concerned. 6 Grubs and 2 Dragons are what they get for it, though, which is still very, very valuable, especially with the Soul being this Hextech.
In game number 1, T1 found the one win the way of the Baron Call, and it was a weird moment because it felt like Gen.G was aware of it, yet still underestimated it. It brought them back in the game, and I think they're going to need a similar moment here because, as mentioned, this composition is really going to struggle as long as Gen.G has that map control. Gen.G is now the one that keeps shoving out the waves, keep having prio on the vision, and it is quite hard for T1 to find a good snapping gauge. They have a ton of CC once you actually get on top of them, but you don't have something like the Rel, like the Leona, like the Vi to really start up a teamfight when Gen.G isn't ready.
Well, we talked about how Gen.G, if they start off an objective, T1 actually have a lot of ways to gain access onto the objective, even if they don't have the best engage, simply due to the fact that they have a Caitlyn plus the Maokai ultimate. But ideally, they're on the objective first. They have position with the Caitlyn traps, they're forcing the enemy to face check into their Braum, into their saplings, but T1 are never being given that opportunity thanks to how well Gen.G is snowballing this early game. They have a 3k gold lead, they're playing around their side lanes incredibly well. They've got a 4-1 setup right now. Faker's in top lane catching another wave. And Gen.G is just very methodically suffocating T1 out of the map.
Yep, pulling them around, as you can see, moving over towards his inner turret into the mid lane. Ace in the hole does go down, 50 damage. Onto Lahens, decent knockup there, but Carrier had to invest the ultimate just to get them away from this turret. It's just Gen.G trading up at this point in the game.
The turret stands though. Main thing for T1 is to not lose too much of that map control. You see them still moving around as a 5-man unit, maybe looking for some stragglers. Looking at the item finishes though. Because of the gold plates afforded to Gen.G. Pays already on 2 items, and let's not forget this Kaisa. It's only going to get worse from free items onwards. When you get your revolves, when you're able to be a threat both as a poke champion as well as when you dive into the backline, as you mentioned, Betty, I actually think there's a small window where the Maokai is like tanky enough to kind of deal with the Jax. But once Triforce is done, it gets a whole lot harder. And in a team fight, he'll be able to, but in the side lane, getting to match is going to be very, very hard.
And we need to talk about our Mercedes-Benz features matchup. You mentioned it already on the Pays side, but Gumayusi is about to hit that trough. This is where he's going to have to dig deep and make sure he continues on that streak of his, because Infinity Edge is necessary. That 2-item spike, it feels better than it used to, but definitely wants 3 items, 4 items, needs armor penetration, Infinity Edge, and then he feels a whole lot better. It doesn't get better all that soon here for T1 in this game.
What you see though, T1 have been in this position before. They're trying to look for small catches inside, as Zeus could be in big trouble here.
Yeah, it does have a sapling in position, actually a bit late.
Not enough damage.
Yeah, not going to actually spot him. So yeah, Canyon versus Zeus will take a while, to say the least.
So right now, Tier 1, I wonder if they harus dibantu Oner buat nge-kill Kovi. Jadi up on the top side of the map.
Dia
Vision is spotting them out completely.
harus dimasukin banget lah ke tower.
He's walking over wards right now. Going to clear those out. Chovy respects the fact that he is on the weak side of the map as Lehens makes his way up towards the top side. Keen continues to push in the bot wave. It looks like he's heading towards a Starak second, which to me that's kind of the break point for Jax when he's got the Trinity Force and the Staraks. He just becomes this really difficult to kill bruiser.
Yep, and I was actually going to say, if this was the Infinity Edge back for Gumayusi, then maybe there's an opportunity somewhere. He's not quite there, sitting on the pickaxe and the BF sword as the Baron is about to spawn. 10 seconds until that dragon. Is good sidestep there from Lehens.
This is Gen.G dealing with the fallout and trauma of last game. Look at the amount of vision control set up as they are heading towards this for a dragon. This time around, no opportunity, and T1's Baron damage is so much worse. Last time they had an incredibly quick Baron. This time that's not really going to be the case.
T1 not going to be able to get on over there. I think as soon as everyone saw that those timers were matched up, they were like, oh, T1's going to try for it. Gen.G, of course, saw as well, so they're able to stop that one from happening, only investing the limited resources to lock down Soul Point for themselves, continuing that monopoly on the neutral objectives, and this is really looking good for Gen.G here in game number 2, which, if you're a fan of 5-game series, is pretty good.
It's, I mean, if you're ever interested in getting into super high-level league, both of these teams showcase through game 1 and game 2 how important the early game can be and how effectively you can snowball from that point depending on the strengths of your champions, because both teams have throughout this series demonstrated an effective way of how to play through that strength and snowball effectively. It's just, it's been a beauty to watch. It is a low kill game, but the map control, the decisions that Gen.G have made, the tactical decisions and the execution has been near flawless, and it's resulted in a 3K gold lead 20 minutes in.
Many have credited one of Gen.G's current coaching staff for being one of the original reasons why Vision League of Legends got changed for exactly these type of games. And if you think the map is lit up now, go back, watch some old VODs.
I mean, Europe is very fond of when they nerf that, okay?
Yeah, let's have a conversation about control wars and how much they're bought and stuff like that. I think that's a good idea.
And knowing T1, what they're going to look for now is a quote-unquote, oh no, someone's caught in the side lane, followed by an immediate fight and an immediate collapse. They have dispatched many teams when they were feeling like they were in a position of power. The problem is that generally Gen.G doesn't really bite. They just let you play it out, keep their patience. It's the way they love to play, particularly when they are looking great on their carries like in this game.
Crucially, T1's waiting for those spikes, and I believe Guma's about 200, about 100 gold off, so he needs another wave. He's waiting for that wave to be pushed in. The question is, can it, well, he's going to get it in time, because the next Dragon's in 3 minutes, and I feel like Gen.G is not the time to just sporadically force this Baron. Now, I mean, they could, it's a great window for them to do it, but Malignance is almost done for Chovy. I imagine he wants to get that finished before anything comes through. The Sun and Sky actually going to be the itemization from Keen, also something we've been seeing from him, and then he goes into the Zhonya's bird, which is also a very effective tool. So a lot of damage for this Jax in the side lane. Does make him a little squishier. So
feels like the 1v1 build.
Yeah.
Not going for that Sterk. So Keen going
also
to be
big murder AD carry build.
Oh yeah. And there is a couple of those. So it's got some options.
It's also the role kind of changes because in longer fights, if you can get the proc of the Sundered Sky on multiple people, it actually adds to your stim. As you're saying, Vedi, if he does get focused with Sterix, you can get away from some really, really rough situations. Really gonna have the same level of playmaking as the Brandwin's now done for Canyon. Gonna get so much value out of that. Steel caps on him as well. And I can guarantee you, Faker is not really interested in trying to kill a Skarner. But for the AD carries, it's going to be quite tough.
I think Pays might be mega close to his Nashes. Does
Should
he have
be,
it yet?
He does. Now Carrier gonna have to flash. Get out of the way of Canyon. Alright, striding with a purpose. And that could be important moving forward because we know that Carrier loves to play engaged Braum. We don't like looking at it necessarily, but now without Flash, he's definitely not going to be able to utilize it. So Gen.G, they have so much control of the tempo of this game. Bland's going to have to crash away from this one. T1 just attempting to bully them out of the river. And he moves on over and says no.
Item-wise, we're about as good as we're going to get, right? Both these teams should sit there and say, all right, Guma would love another item. He's not getting it. The Soul is spawning in about a minute's time. There will be nothing that he can buy in that window to be able to really be much stronger.
T1's not buying it.
What is Zeus
They're like, you're not going for this.
Well, we'll see what they can actually get done here as it's going to be Carrier blowing up like a balloon.
They were not!
Yeah.
They were not doing it!
No. They did not want to, and now Gen.G might be able to just head over towards this Baron and try and take that one down. Chovy still with that Spirit Rush running. Faker able to dodge out of the way.
Keen.
Oh god, this flank angle is absolutely terrifying, of course. All of the things about T1's team fight still kind of stand, but without the Braum, that's a big piece of that puzzle missing. We'll see what they're able to do here as the nature is grasping. Does manage to stun up Canyon. He can get over that wall pretty comfortably. As now they've just singled out Zeus. So much damage for Hens takes the kill. And T1, they had the trap set up, but Gen.G don't want to go there. As now Oner trying to dash back. Keen says, no, I'm going to buy time for my teammates as Carrier comes over. The Winter's Bite does nothing, and Keen, he just wants to fight again. They'll take the Baron, and Keen gets back into position. And now Canyon is just crashing into the two-man impale as well. And Gen.G will destroy the Baron, destroy the team fight, and I think they're looking for the game. Gumayushi is not going to stay undying this world.
It is a systematic dissection of T1. One by one they fall, one by one the objectives follow. Gen.G, calm, calculated, just eviscerate T1.
Oh, and that's straight into Soul as well.
The Nexus might not fall, but this game really should be over. Baron here for Gen.G. Hextech Soul on top of it. And let's be fair, this is what we all wanted.
Oh yeah. And this is beautiful execution of this draft as well, from Gen.G start to finish. As you can see, T1, 4 versus 5, desperation, but they knew if they let this Baron go, they're just going to slowly but surely lose the game.
What's crucial here is Gen.G giving absolutely no window to flip the game. With Kindred in particular, it's so easy to get over the wall, and we see that he is just being systematically denied access, and the keen value this Jax does so much into these AD carries, they just can't deal with him.
I think that Keen is the biggest factor here.
Oh,
him just standing there, it's kind of like his aura is saying, try
menacing,
it, you know? And the problem is when you lose that Braum, you lose a crucial part of your front line. So there's no way for them to approach.
Stressed out, man. Always fantastic to check out the Gen.G coaching stuff, but like you say, once again, back in position. Team with the Counter-Strike now on cooldown. Gumayushi, oh my god. That was insane damage. We've also now got a Seeker's Arm Guard on Pays. They really want to finish this game right here, right now. Look at that. Another Blade Seeker going to connect. And Zap onto that Caitlyn. He just, they can't walk up. Like, what's gonna, how are they supposed to stop this freight train from crashing into their base? Gen.G have taken 2 inhibitors in a matter of seconds. It's a 10,000 gold lead plus here with this Hextech Soul, and T1 once again throwing out some grasping nature. They try to line up behind their tank, and it is absolutely working. Pays is indeed unstoppable as Carrier goes down. The Killer Instinct is named well as theirs is his second one. The Lancer's going to keep them alive for now, but who's it healing? It's only healing Gen.G as they move to 1-1 in this series.
I like the idea of T1's conversation position, but in practice, the way in which Gen.G executed the lane swap, the way that they punished T1 in the early game, and then they just dismantled them from start to finish, objective control, the team fights. I mean, this is the series that we want.
Yeah, this is what we wanted.
And the impact of Lahens night and day between that game 1 and 2, and I think whichever support is going to have more impact is going to keep looking better and better in this series.
And what this series has so far been about is execution of your game plan from the draft. And so far it's been beautiful for both winners. Time for us to go to a break. When we get back, we'll see what they have cooked for us.
Sebenarnya mereka tuh udah tahu kalau scanner tuh stronger banget. Cuma nggak tahu kenapa nggak mau di ban gitu loh, malah dikasih first pick lagi, dikasih ya gimana ya. Gila, Oppo bagus banget ya orangnya cuy. Kalau misalnya T1 nggak berhasil menang di sini, BLG versus G itu, BLG sih menang. Ini gue belum lihat MC-nya ini lagi. Reaksi kali ya? Ini kesalahan fatalnya tuh di sini.
Faker to be.
Salah.
Comfort for T1.
Ini satu di pick and ban. Kedua di sini nih.
Back on the right track. A kill for Pace, and so many resources for T1 going to waste. Into the Kate Brom. So you are incentivized to lane. The dive of disaster. Game number 2 puts.
There's a couple more orders are needed. It's Pace that locks it down, almost dies, and somehow they navigate the dive.
Game number 1, the dive of disaster. Game number 2 puts Gen.G back on the right track. A kill for Pace, and so many resources for. Gonna get so much value out of that steel caps on him as well. And I can guarantee.
Gen.G executed the lane swap. The way that
ya kita off cam dulu, nanti balik lagi kita.
Ini rahasia gue lawan tepar. Baru, Sofresh Hot atau Eucalyptus. Ada real essential oil dan hot lock system. Pegel, pakai Sofresh Hot. Jangan nunggu tepar, Sofresh Eucalyptus.
So relaxing.
Lawan tepar dengan Wingscare.
You could pick a favorite. I'm the one that everybody said he couldn't make it. Now I'm on a mission. I'm trying to win my enemies and they hate is just the love when it's intensive. Dark is just the light without the sense. And loneliness is you without the fence. Click giving up for me is too expensive. Renegade. I'm a renegade, renegade, renegade. Better run away, run away, run away. I'm a renegade, renegade, renegade. Better run away, run away, run away. I'm a renegade, 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 renegade. You better run away. I'm a renegade, renegade, renegade. Better run away, run away,
Grubs and the Herald going over the Gen.G, but the second Dragon of the game.
Oh, okay, he just wanders on in there. Take the Baron, and Key gets back into position, and now Canyon is just crashing into them. The two-man impale as well, and Gen.G will destroy the Baron. The Killer Instinct is named well as theirs is his second one. The Lancer Spike going to keep them alive for now, but who's it healing? It's only healing Gen.G as they move to 1-1 in this series.
Gen.G saying you thought this was Worlds? No, this is the LCK and will bring you back down to earth by beating you the most exceptional way we know how, by macroing you until you fall asleep.
Hey, I loved that game. I'm also 10 of the most boring people I know. No, but this was
10?
All 10. This was classic Gen.G, right? Like they set up exactly what they wanted to do in draft and they executed it really, really well. They knew exactly where they wanted to be on the map. They got a little bit of help from that nice like drive-through smite steal. But yeah, like this is the Gen.G that we saw in LCK. This is the Gen.G that we expected.
Just so people don't get angry, I also love seeing great macro play. I was just leading us in, okay?
It's a joke.
Yeah.
But on the opposite side of the draft, I felt like T1 weren't playing to what was their strengths, right? Like when I looked at Red side coming in, I thought they were going to set up really nicely for like a carry, a counter pick. On my bingo card was not carry a blind picking Braum at any point in time in this tournament, and I felt like it was a lot of missed opportunities because as they came into it, you can see it in the bottom of your screen, they could have just gone for the Sylas in the position that they picked the Braum. You already know you're up against the Ahri and this is something you want to go for. Then you're still able to go for the Maokai counter pick into the Jax on that last or on that 4 or 5, and you keep that counter pick for carry where he's been so potent, and you can bring out something funky like a Nico or like the Pyke that we saw the other day. But that's not what we got. Instead, Carrier just felt invisible, was getting caught out in multiple positions, and did not look comfortable on this Braum pick whatsoever.
I completely agree. You know, Carrier's been so good on things with lots of mobility. You know, Rakan and Bard and roaming around and making a lot of plays that are quick for them, but then sticking them on Braum. And then you also look at the other players. Zeus, to me, is the most dangerous player on T1, and you're putting him on the tank, and you're putting a Kindred early pick in the hands of Oner, when Oner has been so good as you're engaged. It feels like a lot of things are just kind of swapped around for the actual players that you would feel like. That being said, the early lane swap, Gen.G got such a big advantage. Lane swap wards were great. They saw T1 trying to go for match. T1 were so dizzy, and Gen.G got a massive, massive lead out of the early game.
Yeah, I mean, it was glorious. They did send 4 people also to kill Zeus this time instead of 3.
Yeah, but, well, yes. The big point for me on this one was the befuddlement that T1 had in the early stages meant that Carrier didn't hit level 2. Because they didn't know if they're supposed to go top or they're supposed to go bottom, he didn't get onto mid-wave. He gets caught on the level 1. Then they get the dive here onto Zeus, who did play really, really well to manage to almost turn this around, but he still falls. But it was a lot of that indecisiveness that came back to bite T1 in this play, and I think it was a great from Gen.G to try and set up that confusion in the early stages.
Yeah, I thought this was in particular really good for Gen.G. They've classically been really, really good in these lane swap situations. We were talking about them as the best lane swap team in the world, which is why it was really interesting to see them so dizzy on the map at times in game 1. This is a very restabilization for them.
It's true, and it's like you got everything you wanted. All you have to do is play it out, and you are the most adept team in the world to do that. It does make me think, and we had this conversation backstage also, Rob, you're like, oh, I think all of us were a little like Carrier on the Braum, a bit disappointed, but I feel like this is one of those things that T1 would do in a draft 2 after winning the game 1, right? Because if this series gets played out, there's 4 or 5 games and Carrier hasn't pulled out that trump card, that tells me a lot about the general ability of T1, because that has been their strat, is one of the reasons why they won Worlds 2023.
Yeah, I think this to me was T1 trying to test the waters and say, hey, look, if we just say we are going to absorb the dive and try and play within that space, maybe we can find something different. And as Kobe was already alluding to, like a carry pick for Oner was not what I expected when he's been incredible on picks like the Vi thus far at the tournament. So it definitely felt like teasing the waters in the same way that we saw Gen.G do so game 1 with the Yone. But now coming back into it, I think I'd want to see T1 go back to early game control, having Carrier open up on the map, because it was actually Lehens who dictated a lot of that support matchup for me in this early stage of the game. He looked significantly better, and it was catching Carrier or catching Faker out at 7 minutes in top lane that really broke this game open for Gen.G.
You had called it out before.
Kita sudah balik lagi ke.
I had to just disappointing Datum, you know.
Heard you directly. I also think it'll be interesting now as we saw T1 going back to the blue side. I don't expect to see Gen.G leaving the Yone up again going into game 3. So I'm curious to see if a changed ban strategy affects what T1 want to get on that blue side of the map.
Yeah.
And if they're going to continue to put a lot of effort into these level 1s and these lane swaps, because again, I really feel like the information gathering at the beginning and getting the work down, you know, allow for this kind of domino effect that we see in the game here for game number 2. If Gen.G are able to come out with a really good level 1 here, this is where you could kind of like take control of the series, because you know 1-1, blue sides, but now we get into the real meat of the best of 5.
Yeah, first it's like the entree, the course, right? And we're gonna get to the main dish indeed. I just think the demarcation lines that have been drawn. If you look across games 1 and 2, because we can't forget after that kind of Zeus repel, Gen.G was also firmly in control before T1 brought it back. They were completely in control. So for me, the momentum feels a little bit shifted towards the T1 that has to make something.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is going to be trying to get access to the map early and trying to play for some of the early void grubs and getting in your control that way, because it was a big risk in this game as well, where they gave across all 6 of those void grubs, trying to cross map to a Jax that isn't going to be able to match up the mount guy. Like, there was a lot of risk taken by T1, and if you actually think back to the start of game 1, it was T1 off to an early lead. I think it was mistakes at those void grubs that came back to bite them. So there's definitely ways T1 can control this game coming into number 3.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Things are heating up here. I wonder if Atlas has taken off his jacket yet, or if he's still in his full 3-piece suit, even though it's boiling hot here.
Too committed to the 3-piece. I love this suit so much. I've worn it on 2 other occasions. One of them was a world final. The other one was my wedding. This is how you know that I guarantee this is going to be an incredible series. Those were the other 2 best days of my life.
We thank you for your work, Atlas. It's greatly appreciated. As going into this game number 3 draft, no surprises, although that Yone ban coming out on the side of T1 here. Aurora still going to get taken out. The Ashe still up, Skarner still up as well, Jax available. Skarner, Jax would be the kind of no-brainer 1-2 here for Gen.G.
The BLG approach, as we like to call it, certainly a favorite for them in their semifinal that went pretty well, you could say, for BLG. We'll see whether that is exactly where Gen.G are going to go. Not deciding to switch up the picks here, as it will be the Jax to be locked in first. And I think that, you know, you don't talk about hovers is something that we sometimes talk about. This is a hover that you can probably
harus pakai rumble gak sih? Especially with Keen. Now the question is, will it be a third game? Skarner. I'm gonna hazard a guess and say yes. Canyon, of course, has showcased a wealth of different champions. His Maokai win rate this year is almost as good as his Nidalee win rate. I mean, the man is very versatile in terms of the jungle role, and they're actually, based on the hovers, holding off on that lock-in. Chovy's win rate with Ahri so far in the best of 5 hasn't been the strongest, but last game he had the Veda over Faker. He was able to have a lot of mid control thanks to the Ahri pick and what was happening around the map. And we'll see what the response is here from T1.
Also ties into Chovy's approach. Often as a player, if he thinks the champion is the best, we'll just keep picking that until the antithesis is proven. Renata coming through. Again, Keria having an incredible game, and we were calling for this, and I love it here as well. Always gonna feel strong. The only thing for Gen.G, you do have the opportunity to pick up like Ezreal here. Doesn't mean your jungle pool is gonna get pinched, but getting a non-stationary AD carry, I think, is gonna be a really big deal, because otherwise the team fights are gonna be really hard to play out.
And what he has planned could be something else here as well, as that Ahri Nocturne combo that they swept through Swiss with is going to be locked away. Canyon, he is sick of playing this Skarner, and I could understand, no shade cap, but I don't know, it just doesn't do very much damage. You only build health, it's just less fun. The Nocturne, who does slashy.
You are setting up very clearly for a Kai'Sa pick here for Gen.G. You imagine that's going to be banned away by T1. The backline threat onto the Ashe is very lethal. The Kindred, I think, is it's a really good matchup into the Nocturne. Yeah. You just went out on the skirmishes, so they're going to remove that. Wouldn't be surprised to see the Vi removed, to be honest, with the amount of mobility on the side of Gen.G. Just take that away from Oner, one of his best champions.
Yeah, protecting a lot of bans as well, because T1 basically have to ban Kai'Sa Ezreal. And so it's going to be relatively telegraphed what they're going to be taking into this game. Of course, T1 not too worried about it because Ash Granada is just universally strong.
Yeah, I was about to say, Ezreal's another, but I think the Ziggs makes a ton of sense given what we've seen so far. And
yeah, then you get Ezreal. So I guess that's the 3 picks that they were happy to grab. And if you've got 3, then you're not too worried.
Noteworthy as well that the Silas did still get banned, even though Chovy did a really good job in that matchup, still going to deny it, and I think it's because of the Nocturne, right? So much of the value is because you're the one is the Twitch Nocturne actually going to be denied here, and I think it makes sense given how insanely annoying that looked to play against.
They thought that Lehens was going to go back to his Shen. That's what was going to happen. There's the Ezreal. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, he could still play Shen, but it's not going to be.
I like this Gen.G draft. I really do. I think it's very solid. It makes a lot of sense in the context of how Gen.G like to play. These 2 last picks are going to be crucial. The mid jungle from T1. Faker has had a phenomenal world so far. Pairing up alongside Oner, they've been doing a good job together. The question is, what plan have they got for Canyon Chovy?
Let's just see. Wanting probably a little bit of physical damage from that mid lane. We'll see where T1 are going to go. Never mind. Okay, Yasuo could be an option. Yeah, Kali really he's going to lock it in. I think if you were watching Worlds last year, you understand this is one of the ones that Faker's pretty good at. Hasn't been playing it very much this year, however. Still, this guy has played competitively like 80 different champions. So he's fine, and that's going to be the Vi locked away for Oner. Although they do have a bit of time to think about it, I still think that they don't need to worry. And so it's relying on Vi and Ash as far as that physical damage is concerned, but I think that the damage profile kind of okay. It's just range that might catch them out, but the way to start fights is what we were looking for after game 2.
It's such a peak T1 comp as well. So much upfront burst, allowing you to play towards that bailout, which is something they love to do. Oner on a champion with a lot of engage and playmaking potential. And what is Lehens going to pick here? This time the Blitzcrank is open, but it looks like instead they're going to go for something a lot more well-rounded, and they did have a really good game on it in game number 2.
Yep, the pretty standard option in the rel. But like you say, I actually think playing for Lehens' comfort is a really good idea after what we saw in game 1 and the rest of this tournament, because Lehens has kind of been the weak link here for Gen.G. Not in game 2 though. Trying to carry that one forward does make a lot of sense.
Now, when we think of Faker, there are a slew of champions that you can attribute to his name, right? Of course, Akali is definitely up there in terms of a champion that he's had a lot of presence on, but Knight yesterday beautifully demonstrated what this champion can do to an Ezreal. And that is what T1 is envisioning in this game. The level of execution damage is incredibly high. And when you've got a Vi there to dive alongside you with the potential of the Ash Arrow pick, no cleanse is going to save you from a Vi and an Akali duo, but it's about being in a position to really execute on that, because Gen.G have a lot of skirmishing threats themselves. The Jax was a huge problem in the previous game, and I can tell you right now, Ash isn't going to have an easier time in this game compared to the Caitlyn on the last one. Renata's going to be crucial in the usage of the ultimate, and I think that, again, Gen.G have a pretty straightforward and easy comp to execute.
I would agree. I think that there is a lot of pressure on T1, but I want to go back to what you were saying, Chronicler. This is a T1 draft. We were watching the World Final last year. The only difference about this one in comparison to that is that was a mental snowball that they were rolling on, right? This was a T1 that was sweeping a series. This time, they have to utilize it to come back from a deficit here after losing game number 2. But here we are onto the Rift. See whether they can make it work.
Gonna be looking at the lane assignments. Also do know Chovy going for a grasp again. Would expect him to try and keep Faker down, particularly those first 6 levels is where the Akali can really struggle.
Certainly is. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, you need to log into your Riot account on lolesports.com and earn Worlds watch Worlds Live to earn exclusive emotes, icons, capsules, all that cool stuff. We've got a little bit of time here. You're not going to miss too much. So you can hop on over and you can get that one done just to get some free stuff. It's really cool. Okay, Zeus is standing on a ward, and there are a lot of bad guys in the brush. Oh, no, there's the charm that crashed down as well. It's a dead Gragas. It's going to take a little bit of time because he's relatively tanky, but still, that's first blood going over to Pace, and maybe that makes Faker's job a little bit harder.
That ward so crucial spotting Zeus out. I don't think Chovy's flash was necessary, but he committed it anyway to guarantee that pick. And Gen.G start off game 3 with first blood.
And Chovy's flash doesn't even matter all that much because it's Akali that he's laning against. Not a lot of kill threat in the first 5 levels. So he should be absolutely fine navigating this one. He's also Chovy does kind of like the laning phase in general, as we're going to see standard lanes here for likely the first time.
Do have Pays now walking up. Tear from the start.
Oh God.
Something you're going to be very happy about just in what it means for your spikes, because obviously it doesn't really give you any combat stats early. And in this lane, Lahens and Pays are just playing to clear the waves, don't be diveable, and get to your items. 2 items for Ezreal is always the main breakpoint. From that point on, he only gets stronger. And we do see both junglers starting on opposite sides of the map, although Canyon, I think, started his Raptors, then path down. Whereas Oner just doing a full topside clear and maybe looking to impact this bot side. And these trades are actually really valuable because it could set up for a possible dive towards the bot side of the map.
I will say, it's nice to see move away from the lane swap, only because while T1, I think, in the Swiss stage really had phenomenal execution on the lane swap, this, to me, is the bread and butter of Gumayusi and Keria. Their 2v2 laning prowess has been so incredible. And while I think this summer, of course, question marks always when it comes to T1 and summer, at this World Championship, watching this bot lane 2 versus 2 has been a joy to watch. And you're seeing it right now. They know the strength and the advantage they have. They don't care about the tier. They know that with this Ashe Renata, they can bully this duo as much as they like.
Yeah, and I think that this is the biggest benefit of not having a lane swap this time around, and it's curious that Gen.G didn't decide to opt into it themselves. Maybe just saying that now that we've got a kill on our Ezreal, we're going to be okay, but a tier doesn't really give you a whole lot of stats. Still, the fact that the wave is going to be pushing out, and Pays can pick up a bunch of farm underneath the turret, that's going to be okay. Is Faker only hit by the non-true damage part of the Orbit Deception after a couple of abilities go his way. Not going to be feeling too bad here as he's playing with his health bar into Chovy in this lane.
Now the Ahri-Akali matchup is pretty interesting because once you get to level 5, you can actually start winning out very easily on a lot of trades for the Akali, just because the bonus movement speed from the W makes it very easy to sidestep the E from coming out from the Ahri. The problem is, when you go for the electrocute over the free footwork, it's very easy for Chovy to kind of chip away at your HP bar when you're trying to farm, and it means the Faker's in this awkward spot where he now needs the wave to bounce back into him, which is happening, fortunately, but it's this weird, awkward middle ground where he's now relying on his Doran shield to kind of mitigate and heal back up in this midterm.
It's also, again, the grasp, and I do think that we have seen in the past players really get caught off guard by just the extra amount of health that can give you. Akali in particular plays around kill windows so well, but if your first couple of plays don't end up working out and you fall behind the curve, it can be really hard to play out. As obviously Canyon just wants to do exactly this, which is just farm, and even though they don't spot him directly, if they see his top side is down, we'll know that he's on the bot side of the map. But it's an early game Nocturne, not really expecting a lot, but that does mean that Keen is actually in a really awkward spot. His wave state not looking good, already chunked to half, and Oner is on the top side of the map.
And full information over to T1 as well, as Canyon walks over that ward. They knew exactly, they had an idea of where he was, but then they get full confirmation. Now Canyon going to try and clear that one out, does get information of the ward he just walked over.
Yeah, read the movement.
Yeah, as a result, Keen actually just going to go for a recall right here, not wanting to risk too much. And despite the fact that Faker is sat on below half health for the majority of this lane, he has kept these minions really pushed towards Chovy. So it does give a lot of control over to T1.
Yeah, it's very awkward for him because Chovy's holding on to a monstrous freeze. The idea is Faker, you try and get those early pushes in, then you get the bounce back, but Chovy's like, no, I'm good. Now the wave will finally bounce back, but he ticks over to level 6. Ideally, Faker wants to back now, so the wave will freeze here. And now Chovy's back is a little bit awkward. He's going to try and interrupt Faker. It'll be crucial if he does. Massive,
oh, wow.
Massive,
he was on that ward. I thought he was actually just a prophet, but no.
Oh, they've actually brought the bot lane over towards mid to catch this wave. Faker can now actually TP box and go lane against Pays, who can still...
Oh, body slam going to miss. That could be a big deal here. They're evening out the health trades that have been going pretty consistently in Zeus' favor.
Chovy looking to TP back towards his lane. Will be able to do so. And the first objectives spawning now. We have the grubs online. Drake's there as well. You can argue either team is very happy to just wait till level 6. You have a Vi composition on one end and Nocturne on the other. There's going to be a trade here. Does mean that this time Gen.G not going to have the Jax with unreasonable amount of grubs. Even early trades here.
Certainly feels good for T1. This time it's going to be a trade, so it's not going to be the, the grubs team picking up all of the dragons as well. Feeling a lot more even.
Grub secured. And I think both teams are quite happy with the current game state. Obviously, T1 are setting their sights on a top lane play right now. Keen level 6. As there's resistances, no Ash Arrow available yet.
Looking to get himself into position. I think they had an idea something was going down. Notably, Canyon not quite level 6 just yet, doesn't have that paranoia up and available as T1 don't opt in for any sort of dive attempt, but Keen still wanting to get aggressive on the Gumayushi, who does have to cleanse. Pushes him away, so just going to be able to settle for the summoner spell and just move off.
Nicely as well, Gen.G have moved Pays out of the bot lane matchup in towards mid, where he's much safer. That means that they can keep Chovy into the Faker matchup, where the Ahri can continue to bully out on the Akali. With level 6 coming through and level 7 being a crucial breakpoint for Akali, just because she's going to get her Q at level 4, which I think it's either about 80 energy or about 70, but it makes the Q rotations much more comfortable when it comes to trading in the laning phase.
Vision control here for T1. Do have Canyon, but he's backing. Wanting to spend his earned gold from those players.
Oh god, okay, the arrow is going to connect, the counter-strike wears off, but
Ultimate
there's
sudah
the
dibuka dan
assist! And he can't flash leap strike out of that one, and even though he had the Grandmaster's Might, he's still going down. And it's going to be a kill going over, equaling things out for T1.
A classic T1 trap springs on Keen. Get a kill onto Vi, and also get the flash out of Keen.
I love that you called it a classic, because it truly is that idea that T1 makes it look like they've gone back to base, but they stay on the map a little bit longer to catch you pushing that wave out, and it works to perfection. They're able to equalize the kills, and T1 find their first of the game.
And I love this. I feel like it harkens back to something that Chovy was talking about in the tease earlier on. The fact that, Faker was known so much for these mind games that he plays. I think it's all of T1 that does those mind games now. It used to be maybe a little bit too much with excessive Barons being started every single game. Becomes less of a mind game and more of a, you do this every game.
A bad habit, perhaps.
Yeah, kind of. But they are always just trying to push these advantages, trying to find opportunities where their opponents don't have enough information to be able to do what they want. So really nicely done here from T1 to try and claw back a bit of control of this game. But right now, plate should be going over to Gen.G, to Chovy here.
Charm begitu saja.
Not going to be too worried.
Cuma tidak ada aksi
Canyon,
dari
level 7.
Gen.G.
Again, it's a relatively slow early game. Kind of what we've come to expect from these two teams as they prioritize farm, but also it just goes to show how difficult it is to kill these players. Like, there's a reason why Gumayushi went deathless for so long, and he still only got a single death to his name, even though Gen.G absolutely stomped.
KDA.
Yes, it is.
Oh, you love that.
And it's a situation where both teams just play the map very well. They're constantly fishing for opportunities. They're playing for these early plates. But it's the grubs now become the next big point of contention. A minute away. Both junglers already setting up some vision around the top side of the map. Keen, I imagine he wants to get a quick base in before the objective spawns, but that could be a window for Guma to already then push out mid and then set up on the top side river.
As we get into these fights, on one hand, how is Gen.G going to be able to absorb the amount of backline threat that's there? Because T1 can split up a fight very easily with the Greg Assault, and obviously he has Oner to start him out.
Going to come on through here as Zes is looking to take the fight to Keen.
Berhasil
Does find some nice body slams. There's the slow down as well. Leap strike just to try and escape, and you can see Canyon. Oh, he was looking for a potential angle as Keen able to sidestep, but that does find some space. Still, Oner not going to be committing because they didn't know exactly where Canyon was. That could have been a follow-up.
I'm actually very surprised. Keen had no flash, and Oner with ulti was in range. I think he could have committed, but I guess because Keen hadn't used his E yet, they were hesitant to really fully commit to the play. Regardless, the damage was done. Zeus has already gone back to base. He's now back out onto the map before Keen has had an opportunity to, but Keen's TP is available. Are they going to contest this?
Just have to say, I think 6 grubs is going to be pretty valuable. Oh, not T1. Yeah, the teleport flank angle is coming in here. Keen, good position to start this one off. He's just beelining right in there. Paranoia comes down. They do throw out the ulti carrier, trying to keep them at bay, and oh no!
Berhasil di-backup oleh
There goes Lahens, and now Faker is caught onto Keen, lands the shuriken, and he's going to wait for the leap strike.
Nice, Faker!
And that's Faker's Akali at Worlds, ladies and gentlemen.
And that is Faker coming in huge,
but it's the team response from T1 that's the biggest thing here. Chovy couldn't join that fight. I think Gen.G was expecting them to back off when the Nocturnals came through, but T1 said no, we can take it, and they take a big lead here in game number 3.
We talked about how this composition is very much true to the style of T1, and their ability to take these early skirmishes wasn't there in game 2, but you can see how prepared they were. Oner and Carrier were the focus at the start of the fight. Carrier, though, has the passive to be able to reborn, and then, of course, also has the ultimate available too. So even though they're getting collapsed on by every single side, the TP comes in, a nice flash comes out. Carrier doesn't care that he's getting focused on the Gragas then arrives, and crucially, as you said, Chovy can't join the fight.
Yeah, and Keen and Lehen spent most of that fight fighting each other because of that hostile takeover that came in. Faker gorgeous on the 5-point strike there. T1 with Reckless in the back. Feeling pretty happy about this one. And Helper and Mata getting more and more stressed as this game goes on. Still, a lot of game left to play here. We are tied up in this series. We'll see whether Gen.G can claw their way back to an even game state after that big lead has been acquired. About 2.5k. Now the lead for T1.
He's got to have to do a lot of heavy lifting. A lot of the gold for Gen.G is on him, but into a Fed Akali and Oner also getting bigger and bigger. They're looking to punish Keen again. This Jax not having a great time. 4 men at the ready.
All right, Canyon does have that paranoia up and available. They know exactly where he is. This is a big gamble if Gen.G do decide to go for it. Once again, Chovy is very far away, but this time has the teleport up and available. Nice little stun to come through there as Keen now with the Counter-Strike on cooldown. They're trying to deal with these waves, but another one conga lining in. This War of Attrition looks to just be going in T1's favor, especially with all those grubs, the Void Mites and everything like that. Gen.G just gonna back away.
Gen.G seeding more, and T1 no, like we don't have to dive this, we can just poke them down. The only way with the range that Gen.G have that they can never really push back is if they actually hard commit. But because of the vision, T1 knows everyone is in the area. Chovy was showing on top wave, and they weren't worried about a possible collapse.
The timing was fantastic as well. T1 had gotten a deep push into top side, which meant that Chovy went to go and answer. Bear in mind that he's a large part of Gen.G's wave clear, so while he's present top, it gives T1 the ability to force stack bot. They then keep Zeus in mid, he catches the wave there, and they don't really lose anything. Sure, Zeus lost like half a wave in the top side of the map, and crucially, Chovy does have an experience advantage over Faker, but he should be able to claw that back as long as he starts matching in the side lane. He's got his fully completed rocket belt, which means that he's now going to be a much more of a threat in the 1v1.
It's telling that the Ahri Nocturne Jax composition doesn't want to fight for Herald, and when you look at these two compositions, it does really feel extremely volatile. Because they are both so short range, you really, once you find yourself in a deficit, have to be extremely clean with your fight selection. As this bot lane turret will go, but the Herald might be dropped in mid. There it is.
Yep, that's going to be even more money going over to T1. They're happy to trade these turrets because this is so much more map control, as Canyon's doing his very best to try and clear things out. Dustbringer should be able to help, as there's the charge, and this turret's not going to be long for the world. Oh my god, the damage! The arrow's going to connect, the Land's trying to crack his way out. Look at she says no! He has his bow primed, and it's another, oh never mind, not another charge, that's a snipe coming through. Maybe it was amazing, it's a double kill! He's able to get the arcane shift, but just barely clipped by the hostile takeover. And Gen.G cannot do anything this game.
I mean, it's just a beatdown from T1. If game 2 is
oh god, okay, there's going to be 5 people towards this top side of the map as Pace is going to try and get on in there. Another card. Keen is just being thrown around by like a ragdoll. And it's another kill for Gumayushi as a result. Gen.G not able to do anything. Faker just utilizing the second portion of his ultimate because he can. And it's all of a sudden a 6,000 gold lead.
It's just a relentless barrage of punch after punch. And T1 are not letting up. They use the Herald mid. Lehen's with a slight overset gets collapsed on. The burst damage from Oner and Kuma mean that he drops first. And then look at this play. Canyon thinks that he can punish Carrier, but the way in which Oner turns this around, connects the Q, the ulti to follow, the Ashe passive is stacked, and they're able to get a double for Kuma. And what's crazy is they didn't even slow down there, because Faker was pushing out the top wave. They turn to top, they get that objective as well, they get another kill.
It's gone from bad to worse for Gen.G in this one, but T1 really showing that this bounce back was real. And coming into this series, they'd only played on blue side one time. This is the third time they've been on blue side this whole Worlds, which is kind of crazy to me because they do love this side of the map, and they are demonstrating to us that in this series it is not going to be any different. And hope, like what I'm trying to get to here is that we might have 5 games. And that'd be super cool.
T1, when they are playing a comp that feels like it fits them versus a T1 that is on something like we saw last game is night and day.
I mean, there is like a perfect example for this. We have the stats for Keen on Jax in the last game. If you compare that to what he's doing now in this game, it is absolutely night and day. And Zeus on this Gragas in comparison to the Maokai is incredible. Speaking of which, he's going to get tagged by that arrow. Still, there was no one there to follow up, so he's just going to be denied a turret take. That's going to be down very, very low, but still not going to be the money going over to Gen.G.
Look how scared they have to play as well, and the only saving grace for Gen.G, which by itself is not enough, is that they do have 2 dragons. The problem is you're playing into T1, and we all know that as soon as the Baron is online, they're going to just start pulling it consistently. This Drake, obviously Gen.G never going to contest, but I don't think Gen.G is ever going to give, or a T1 rather, is ever going to give Gen.G the opportunity to get to the point where these gold leads matters less, right? When you have the 2 items on pace, when Chovy can get to a next item.
It's going to continue not being very possible to be able to make those advantages happen. And if Faker gets into the Shroud, Zay's going to follow the kill, and now Faker's looking to try and get in there for more. Dashing after Canyon and Keen here. It is just Faker at the moment, but now you can see they make their way in. The paranoia comes down. Decent little utilization.
Tadi 9-1 sekarang.
Keen is dead at the same time. And he's almost hit by that handshake. It could have been worse, and it's still a disaster.
No mercy will be shown to their domestic rivals as T1 just run through Gen.G once more. There is no Baron for them to get. 18 minutes in, and they are slaughtering Gen.G.
Yeah,
Gen.G, the only reason why Baron isn't taken is because we're 18 minutes in. It's 9-1, 6.5K gold lead here, and Gen.G, they can't even get near the waves.
Game 2 was systematic dissection from Gen.G. They controlled the map, they were patient, and T1 were suffocated. But in this game, T1 are just brawling.
It's a sledgehammer.
It is a beatdown. And sure, a bit of anti-synergy there as this knocks Lahen's out of the way of Faker's E. He flashes to try and cancel the back, doesn't quite get it in time, but he says, guys, I'm not letting my ulti be wasted. You better collapse here. Here comes Oner, and then the follow-up comes through.
T1 from these winning positions are always going to be looking for more and more aggressive side lane punishes. And Gen.G, not respecting pace, just has to watch his teammates die. Nothing that he can do there.
And the travel on the Shuriken backflip there as well from Faker. This guy, when he plays Akali at Worlds, it's just a beauty to watch as we're straight into it once again. Magnus don't going to come down. This could be a pick of Carrier. Actually more tanky than we might have expected. He gets bailed out as well. As Faker gets another one, make it to Oner. He's in on the action still. He's going to go down. The path just to remove Pays, and Gumayushi is on a rampage. Keen is on the floor, and T1 are looking to shut out this game.
Carrier doesn't even die, gets the full value from the bailout. The TP comes in, and they're not going to relent. Chovy and Pace just, again, have to watch their teammates fall one after another, after another.
T1 is just crushing Gen.G with their wallets right now. Gen.G admirably tried to find the pick, but you said it yourself, Atlas, Carrier way tankier than they were expecting. And while they expected to one-shot Carrier, he bought enough time to allow T1 to collapse and turn it around. Now, the Baron is on the Rift. Another bad fight for Gen.G will result in that objective falling. And you can see the vision coming through from Lahens. He chopped 3 wards in a nice little triangle, I guess, to just try and make sure that they have some semblance of information.
Yeah, maybe something won't get swept.
With how deep in they are, like even a good fight might mean Baron is gone, but maybe you get like a bounty or 2. Things are looking dire, and unlike some of the previous games, the range wave clear is really lackluster when it comes to these Baron minions.
Handshake going to connect there, not a lot of follow-up onto Lahens. They didn't have a lot of information. Red buff is the prize that they're looking for, but it's going to get reset, and it looks like Oner should be able to take control of it. Into the shroud goes Faker, Paranoia, they think they might have them where they want them, and over the wall goes Chovy, he's got the flank angle, and they take the Kuma to start off the fight, but it has to be paid for by Keen. Now 4 versus 4 as T1 look to rally back into position. Can they win the fight without Kuma is the question. He's so much of their consistent damage. Is now Chovy dancing around, not able to find too much more, and T1 back away.
You're completely right, Atlas. Losing Guma is a lot of the damage gone, so T1 have to be a lot more careful. Faker had his ultimate available, but they chose not to take the fight any longer. A crucial flank from Chovy. He's been largely invisible in this game, quietly farming on the side, but you look at his itemization, he is on I mean, he's ahead of Faker in terms of itemization. So there are still avenues for Gen.G to turn this around, but they need to find more picks like this.
A very deep TP starts this off, and it's hard to respond for T1 because they don't have the vision. The Nocturne denies them so much, but this is where the wallets come through. Even with the carry being taken out immediately, Gen.G don't really have an opportunity to chase further, because if they get another kill there onto maybe Faker, you turn it into a Baron, the game might be playable. Instead, it's a moment of respite, but T1 still have a very tight clutch in this game.
Yeah, Faker actually looking for Chovy here as he gets into the shroud. The rest of T1 now moving up. The arrow not going to connect. As Gen.G are now looking to back away. Now it's Zeus' turn to start a bit of an engage with the body slam. And this push and pull, Gen.G putting that phalanx back together. All about this Baron right now, no one really being able to get too much ground.
Crucially, the Dragon is completely exposed. The bot wave has been pushed in by T1. Faker commits his ultimate to try and force something out from Chovy, but he holds his nerve, doesn't get dissuaded, still has his ulti available, but the problem is all of Gen.G was shepherded to the top side of the map, leaving the mid lane exposed. T1 get the objective, and now they can turn to the Dragon.
True Shot Barrage is going to spot that that's exactly what T1 are intending. Only going to start that one up, but you can see Keen so far away from this on that bottom side of the map, and it's because the map is so incredibly wide and dark that it's very difficult for Gen.G to get down there, as Lahen's trying to set a trap here for anyone who unwittingly moves towards his top side. The Drake will just be taken here, evening out that count 2 for 2. But next one going to be very, very scary, because a 4 Drake Hextech Soul sounds unbeatable. Shattering Strike going to get a fair bit of value here, but Lahen's still in a whole lot of trouble as Faker looking for them. Still dashing forward as the Paranoia does come down the stun. It's gorgeous! The execution is perfect! And now Chovy looking to try and get out of there with that Spirit Rush, and T1. They play it slow. They accept that they're going to take that pick, and they're looking for more now as far as control of this map.
You got to remember that T1 just took a Dragon. They need to get the resets through. Crucially in all of this, while the trap was turned on its head, notice that Chovy has a 2-level lead over Faker. He has been overgrouping, and he has been denied a lot of farm. Even that top wave just now, he conceded over to Zeus to make sure that he was getting the resources. And while there are advantages across the board, Chovy becomes the sole win condition for Gen.G. If he's able to find those picks, if he can find an opportunity, then there is an avenue back into this game for Gen.G.
And while the Baron damage for T1 is pretty solid, right? You have Vi passive, you have Gumayushi who will shred through it fairly quickly. It's so hard to deny Nocturne access to the pit. And we saw T1 themselves show that a single Baron steal can be enough to turn a game on its head. And T1, I imagine, is going to be looking, unless they get a really good Baron opportunity, just start stacking these Drakes, because the Baron actually does a ton of damage, even as we get this late into the game. You gotta have to really respect it. Not really the same for the Dragons, but that, even if you end up going for that, as dangerous as a 4 Drake Hextech Soul is, that's 8.5 minutes from now. And at that point, the gold lead isn't gonna be quite as useful. I think T1, they're gonna look for a pick onto someone, turn that into Baron, and truly break the back of Gen.G.
Well, Chovy hasn't been back to base in what feels like a decent amount of time, because he's been sitting on exactly these items for the last, what feels like 7 minutes or something like that. But now Gen.G are poised, they're in their jungle, understanding that T1 do want to look for this Baron. They do have control vision of the area. They can get over these walls pretty comfortably. As Oner going to dive into the back of the pit, take down that ward, and now T1 are going to start this one up. Paranoia can get Canyon into that pit anytime he wants, but they do need to get vision of it. They find that vision right now, and T1 immediately back away. The amount of respect being shown this game is incredibly high. T1 not willing to give an inch.
They can just keep doing this, though. Keep forcing cooldowns. Eventually, Gen.G is going to run out of wards, run out of scryers, and they are going to have to face check.
They don't have the blue trinket on Pays. I know it looks like that on the bottom of your screen, but it is unavailable. It's the only one on their side.
There you go. Ezreal just to check.
Yep, that T1 are playing with the pressure that they have well, forcing Gen.G into this uncomfortable position. Resets have come through from T1. Vision replenished now for Carrier as he makes his way back out onto the map. Faker gonna go and catch the bot wave as Trophy gets ever closer to level 16.
Only picks up a needlessly large rod, so maybe it hadn't been as long as I thought.
It's
intensity of the game might be attributing to that one.
It's a surprisingly tense game, considering the gold deficits that Gen.G find themselves in. And I really do think it's because you just keep looking at Chovy, you see how strong he is on this Ahri, and you have to respect it. T1, though, doing what they've done all game. They move into Gen.G's jungle and say, by the way, this belongs to us. Please vacate the premises as we take all of your jungle camps.
Yeah, and this is the thing. This is the slowly but surely drawing out the advantage, right? This is the safe way to win the game. T1 have been known to take some liberties as far as advantages are concerned.
Oh, yeah.
And this time around, not necessarily doing so as much. But what it's doing is giving Paze time to get farm, giving Chovy time to get more levels and farm himself. And so maybe when Paze has 3 items, Chovy has 3 items, that could be a time where the fight can be better here for Gen.G. But I still think that T1 have a lot of great tools in these team fights later on. Zeus on his Gragas has made magic happen. T1 and on his Akali needs no introduction. And Gumayushi on this champion that, if given the space, can really lose control. I mean, I think that this is a recipe for success for T1 unless Gen.G does something miraculous.
I love that you said T1 on Akali as opposed to Faker on Akali, which actually
it's synonymous, right?
It's synonymous. It's perfect. And the level 60 now hit, as you pointed out, that Ichova is getting those 3 items hit. And it's really weird because I do feel like T1 was absolutely demolishing this game. I still think they are highly favored in this game. They're going to get the soul point, and I don't think Gen.G really has anything that they can do about that. But there's got to be a point where the inhibs have to start falling, or the Baron has to be threatened as the check comes through. Obviously quite early, not really going to spot anything.
Those 2 dragons were so valuable because it kind of just bought them time. They can choose to concede this objective as well. The top wave being pushed in, Gen.G playing the side lanes methodically. They're not over-forcing their hands. And what felt like a beatdown earlier, it felt like that we were going round for round in a boxing match and T1 was just generating point after point after point. But now we're kind of in this back and forth, a lot of dodging's been happening, and Gen.G have been able to stall out enough where it feels like their stamina has been regained, and a single good punch from them could be enough to swing the whole game.
Especially now, that 3rd item does come through here for Paze. He's feeling a whole lot better in this game right now. And on his Ezreal, we know that Ezreal can do some pretty ridiculous things as the game goes on, thanks to Elk for letting us know. Paze is no stranger to it. This was, in fact, one of his first mains that we ever saw him in Challenger, is something that Chronicle will not shut up about.
Well, I was going to talk about it, actually, but thank you for being
That's good. That helps. That goes with the vibe.
Real smart.
Well, no, I don't
like
have to.
I feel like you've cast with him before.
Yeah, no, I've seen him around.
Every now and then.
He looks like an imposter. He looks like Chronicler from back in the LCK, but he's got this moustache, so it can't be him.
As T1 desperately tries to catch someone of Gen.G off guard. For T1, though, the guarantee of the next Drake setup is amazing because Gen.G has only 2 Drakes, so they can very happily give that up. Whereas Gen.G 100% is going to have to play towards that Soul. I know that in theory you can do the, okay, you get Soul, we get Baron, but it's Hextech Soul. We saw in the previous game how hard the game becomes to play out, and Guma's volleys alone are going to be an absolute nuisance if you're trying to play, particularly if you're trying to play very far forward, very aggressively. The slow makes it so hard. Gen.G still setting up these traps, but it's so easy for T1 to check.
Yeah, Hawkshot is a pretty powerful ability. True Shot Barrage not going to find any joy here as Faker on a flank angle taking control of the mid lane, and you've got the split push and Gragas, that nimble large man moving in the bottom lane, trying to put pressure on Gen.G.
I don't know if you guys ever get this, but I have this weird feeling that Chovy's going to do something really crazy.
Like in your waters?
Oner hampir saja.
Oner was thinking about it. The arrow is going to go wide, but still Spirit Rush has to be
dia
invested
sudah
in pace.
clinch
Caught by
dikeluarkan,
handshake, and
hampir
over the
saja
wall they go, but Oner might be going a little bit too far. You've got
Dan
Zayas coming in,
masuk
though, just
di
trying to be the
tengah-tengah,
hero.
hampir saja
Speaking of
mati.
heroes, finds pace, but
Guma yang
not
berhasil
enough damage.
mengetiqueting begitu saja dengan
To
damage
go
yang
down
sangat
in the
besar.
exchange,
Dan
and
Guma yang
Gen.G
sangat bahaya sekali di tengah-tengah antara Angry dan
you cannot take this belly. It's going to be Canyon that goes down next, and T1 will take down this inhibitor turret. It took a little while, but I think they're just going to move through and win game 3.
And all that tension deflates as the turnaround is found. T1 not going to let Gen.G claw their way back in this game. Canyon tries to flash just to clear the way.
King desperately trying to hold him, but he cannot. It's Chovy left on his lonesome. He's going to need to be that hero as these minions are going to now join these Nexus turrets. Lahens just trying to buy some time. He knows that this game is over. Chovy just trying to get back to his fountain. Goes golden alongside Faker. And Nexus not going to go down. Perfect execution.
Tadi gara-gara dibantai 9-1 berapa gitu.
On the fountain of Gen.G, and they'll move to match
Dibantai
point.
20
I just love that Zayas ended the fight with a beautiful bomb back. Gragas ultimate to set up on the key. Just a fantastic team fight. But I mean, gentlemen, that game was tense, but we got to go to a break, so make sure you don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a bit.
Ya, karena nggak ada yang bisa dibahas, artinya kita off-cam dulu.
Elemen trading adalah daya misteri, kekuatan alam yang tak terprediksi. Kendalikan bersama Olive Trade. Gunakan transaksi aman untuk manfaatkan situasi dan tetap yakin. Olive Trade, kepedulian yang berarti.
Vivo V40 Lite. Light it up. Vivo.
I'm on the move. I'm putting in work. I go berserk, got something to prove. Cause I got power. I got the energy for all of my enemies. I'm on the way, saving the day. No one ahead of me. I'm on the right here, right now. This is the moment we running it. This is the moment we running it. We doing this for the love of it. Give me a lives in my soul. It drives me to my goal. There's no distance I won't go. Cause the climb's all that I know. And I face it all on my own. So my name will be known. Yeah, my name will be known. Right here, right now. This is the moment we running it.
through and win Game 3.
It's no use denying the T1 magic. When it's at Worlds, it keeps happening. When in the last game, Gen.G tried to remind them what happens in the LCK, they snap back and tell them what usually happens at international tournaments, and especially at Worlds. And we find Faker and T1 to be the first to match point. I mean, sometimes when I watch this game and I watch T1 at Worlds, I just think, how did they do it? Because this was a shellacking in Game 3.
Well, they did start out with getting Oner on Vi instead of Kindred. I think that was a really good one. Blue side was big.
Yeah, I do want to go through some of the drafts in the series because we talked about, okay, you know, Gen.G were really tested by FlyQuest to do something like super, super creative. But here, especially in this last game, we see them returning to this kind of combo here, which we saw from them. This is kind of the skeleton of that Aurora and Twitch composition that we saw them bring out against HLE. I actually really loved the Twitch ban here. I thought that was smart. And then to your point, Kobe, I think this is great. I think Vi is such a good champion for Oner, but the big pick for me, the Ashe for Kumayushi. I think that has been stellar, and then the Gragas.
I think it's also been a really cool swap up for what Keria traditionally plays. Like Renata, Braum have been the two picks that he's gone towards. It is consistently, I know that Gen.G only have one style. They are going to play dive. They are going to jump in on us because that's what we've seen from them every single time. And T1 are basically saying, hey, yeah, we'll catch you with a Renata. We'll try and set up with the Braum, which didn't work as well. But it is countering what Gen.G have brought to the table every time. And Gen.G do not have an answer for what T1 are bringing.
And mainly also, it seems like they are getting more questions thrown at them, maybe even from their own decision making. Because let's look at a sequence of play, right? In Grubs and at the Grubs, and then also in the mid lane. I did not know, or I did not. If you took the nameplates off, I wouldn't believe you that this was Gen.G.
So T1 are way more coordinated than Gen.G were in this game. Like it's undoubted, and honestly, like Gen.G, they're the ones to set this up, but why isn't Canyon ulting earlier on Nocturne to try and lock Faker's teleport out? They also don't teleport Chovian very early. And so T1, another really good engage for them turning around, but it did feel like really weird to see Gen.G be the ones that are so uncoordinated.
But also here, like Lehen's getting caught as they try to go underneath the tower. This reminds me of like game 1 against FlyQuest, where Lehen's tries to engage on towards Quad in the mid lane. Seraphine ulted, completely shut down. These over aggressions and just not being in position as they try to take these plays. It's really strange because this is not what we would usually see from Gen.G domestically.
And by contrast, here you see the coordination from T1, not just in team fights, but they know exactly where they want to go on the map. They use these grubs so well. I did call them out in the last game for being like, why are you fighting over that 6th grub, right? You've already got 5, you guys are fine. But they've been so well coordinated on these like 4 or sometimes 5-man pushes with grubs onto turrets, rotating around the map. You could see it in that sequence. They knew exactly where they wanted to go. They moved as a unit, and it's fantastic.
And they're showing style here at Worlds too. Faker was like, Knight, I see you on the call yesterday. I'm gonna do it as well. Like the magic is really there. We'll see again as we switch back to blue side. But it really has been like difference in play.
It has. I mean, and things like Lehen's, right, who we know is very good at macro, who calls a lot of the moves of Gen.G, generally the one to be out of position. A big discussion that we've had here backstage is, for me, there's a difference between ADCs in terms of Guma and Paze, in that I believe in Guma and in that bot lane, even from behind or from even, not just from ahead. And even though Pace has done things to dispel that in summer, right, Emily? Outside of the finals, I don't know. You know, when he's... And here he had an opportunity, right, if they scale further into that game. But then it's him who gets caught out again. And I don't want to put everything on him because the whole team lost that game, right? But it is these differences that you need to look to make.
But I think that's the thing, is like, pressure makes diamonds, right? And unfortunately, when we look at finals in LCK, Pace didn't step up. And then you look at the game against FlyQuest, it feels like, you know, Hanwha kind of found the issues in Gen.G, FlyQuest managed to crack it, and it feels like T1 are finally breaking those foundations here, where you're not getting the big performers. They're not finding Chovy these lane matchups where he can be super successful and take over in the mid to late game. You're not having your carries perform, and now T1 are saying, no, we're going to go to the style that's worked for us. We take over in the early game. We play through our side lanes well. We get these cheeky Baron sneaks when you're least expecting it. It feels like T1 are still playing to their identity on an international stage, whereas Gen.G feel like they've just lost themselves because those doubts have started to sink in.
Yeah, and I want to pull up Gen.G's record over T1 in the LCK and internationals, because I think it makes T1's performance here so much more impressive, right? They are the 4th seed. They are one game against KT away from not making it. And here you see MSI 2023 highlighted. We had already set it up in one of our prior thing. I think it was you, Dagda, that said that, where they got the better of them at an international event at a very crucial moment. And now they're on match point once again, now at Worlds, defending their world title.
It all hangs in the balance again for Chovy, you know. I wrote down under Gen.G in my preparation as a logline, if this team can't win Worlds, who can, right? But I feel like in the course of the tournament, we've seen other teams perhaps adapt better. And I think for me, that's what they're going to have to show. In the same vein, though, I'm not ready to write this one off because we haven't seen a team break the red side situation yet, right? So T1 would have to do it here.
Yeah, I mean, if they can't, then T1 or BLG can.
The adaptations are proactively being taken away by T1. Smolder, gone. The draft is already set up where T1 go, we know what you are like. We know Gen.G inside and out. We know what they're going to fall back to, and they're stopping them every step of the way. T1 are in their heads, and I don't know if Gen.G have a comeback here.
And all year, we've been talking, or I mean, I know I've been talking about Knight versus Chovy, right? Like, we want to see this matchup. We saw it at MSI finally. This was going to be our destined world final, but in the way stands Faker, and this is a rerun of that Chovy quote where he, again, would know this more than anyone because he's had to deal with it domestically. Now he has to really step up, prove himself against Faker, to make it to finals.
Chovy has to step up. Gen.G as a whole has to step up, and we've seen it from Gen.G before. Spring this year, Game 4, it was the Kazakhs pick from Canyon that completely changed everything in that series. Gen.G are never counted out until that bell rings, and this is where they have to find that magic once more.
Beautifully said. Let's head over to our casters.
Thank you so much, Dagda. I think that's such a good point, because I want to give everyone some faith that we could be going to a Game 5, right? Like, that's the main thing, and we're already straight into draft, as the Kalista and the Xayah are still going to be banned away, and I saw that little look on your face there, Chronicler. I'm also
이 한 장의 카드를 또 어떤 형식으로 쓰나요, 젠지?
애쉬를 본인들이 할 게 아니라면 저는 그냥 똑같이 닫는 게 나아 보이긴 해요.
그냥 싹 다.
네. 뭐 예를 들어 정글 쪽에서 그냥 또 스카너라든가 다른 거를 선픽할 거라면 아니면은 정글이 만약에 뭐 스카너 니달리 같은 게 같이 살게 됐을 경우 생각해서 그냥 애쉬 선픽하면서 정글을 넘길 수도 있긴 하거든요.
이거 이 구마유식의 픽이 얼마나 중요한지를 양팀 모두 느끼고 있는 가운데 사일러스 밴으로 자신의 첫 번째 밴 페이지 닫았고 오로라까지 일단 마감졌습니다.
그러니까 이렇게 됐을 때 정글 쪽은 니달리 스카너가 같이 살아있으니까 그렇죠. 애쉬를 먼저 먹은 다음에 정글을 넘겨도 충분히 가능한 거였고
네. 그러니까 이 옵션을 T1도 레드에서 상정하지 않았겠습니까? 그러니까 이걸 어떻게 솔직히 참 궁금해지네요.
결국 T1도 T1대로 본인들이 애쉬를 뺏기는 구도에서 그 애쉬를 뭘로 상대할 건지, 특히 T1 바텀이 어떤 챔피언 폭이라던가 혹은 그 챔피언 원딜 서폿의 조합을 잘 끌어내잖아요. 그게 강점인 바텀이라서 이런 선택으로 빠르게 바텀 쪽 힘 차이를 맞추네요.
요즘 뜨고 있는 픽 중 하나였죠, 바루스.
그렇습니다. 바루스 그리고 좀 돌려보는데
정글은 입맛대로 가져갈 수 있습니다.
너무 많아서.
근데 여기서 나갈 거면 스카너가 맞아요.
사실 워낙 든든한 픽이기도 하고 레드 진영에서 특히나
그러니까 엄밀히 따져서 니달리 얘기도 많이 했지만 그게 그냥 젠지라서 그런 거거든요. 원래 니달리도 뭐 이런 상황에서 많이 쓰는 건 아니니까.
근데 그 애쉬를 가져왔고 애쉬는 오늘 뭐 하루 경기 동안 계속 강조했지만 가지고 있는 유틸성이 정글 보조에 특화돼 있어요.
와 이게 뱀픽 시작 전에 한번 말씀드렸는데 젠지가 오늘 젠지다운 밸류 조합을 살리기에 좀 조합이 어려웠거든요.
예.
근데 오랜만에 어떻게 보면 밸류 조합이 나온 거예요. 지금 당장 이렇게 봤을 때.
그러니까요.
예.
니달리와 트리스타나. 이러면 일단
너네 쌍포야? 쌍포 카운터는 잭스지.
아 잭스가 처음 부상하기 시작했었던 것이 좀 이런 의미였었는데 그리고 바로 탑쪽 그 상대 견제.
저벤이 필요했어요. 그 상태가 요즘 티어가 높다고 얘기는 안 나오는데요. 대 잭스전은 스페셜리스트기도 하고 동시에 기인이잖아요. 그런 거 다 놔야 됩니다.
그렇죠. 또 젠지한테 필요한 게 지금 앞라인이고.
자 그런 여러 가지 조건을 다 충족시킬 수 있는 픽이었던 이 크산테를 밴으로 했습니다. T1 지금까지 이 흐름에 대해서는 어떻게 생각할지. 젠지는 일단 우리의 색깔을 가지고 가자라고 얘기하는 듯한 그런 픽들 쭉 이어나가고 있는 가운데 이어지는 상대편의 속도를 만들 수 있는 바드밴입니다.
저건 또 T1의 특수성을 좀 많이 고려했죠. 그냥 레나타까지 닫아버리나요? 뭔가 좀 앞경기들 내용을 반영을 한다면.
서포터 쪽으로 이제 밴 카드들이 나오고 있는 가운데 브라운. 자, 또 다시 젠지는 오리아나 밴입니다.
이런 상황에서 미드 쪽에서 무난하게 쓸만한 게 그냥 아리 같은 픽인데 그냥 그런 쪽으로 가 있지.
그러니까 무난하다는 게 나쁘다라는 의미는 절대 아니잖아요.
맞습니다.
게다가 8강에서의 그 페이커 선수의 활약이 정말 대단했었죠. 자 이제 젠지 다운 픽들을 한번 기대해 보겠습니다. 젠지가 애쉬와 니달리, 트리스타나를 이제 완성시킨 이후에 탑을 그리고 서포터를 골라야 되는 턴입니다.
스탁에 그라가스나 뽀삐, 뭐 마오카 이런 걸로 잭스를 그냥 막나요? 아까 한번 언급하신 대로 이게 앞라인이 좀 필요하거든요.
예.
CC도 이왕이면 좀 더 있었으면 좋겠고.
예. 뭐 나머지가 그걸 못 채우니까. 저 뽀삐도 위치는 좀 더 봐야 되고요.
근데 지금 리헨지가 좀 바쁘게 얘기하는 것 같은데.
네, 뭔가 재밌는 픽이 나오나요? 예, 이용받을 용기로
가자라고 얘기했습니다. 가자. 네.
결국 필요한 그 여러 가지 것들을 다 채우는 느낌입니다. 네. 밸류, CC, 앞라인
잘 풀렸었을 때 더욱더 기대가 되는 그런 가능성까지 일단 뽀삐와 마오카이가 선택했던 젠지였고요. 자 이제 캐리아의 픽을 만나볼 차례입니다.
상대가 딜러진 비중이 큰 걸 생각하면 바드 같은 게 좋은데 결국 상대가 밴을 했고
한번 가동합니다. 파이크입니다. 자 이렇게서 양 팀의 뱀픽이 완료됐습니다. 이거 어떻게 보십니까?
양쪽의 성향이 또 확 드러난 뱀픽이 나왔다는 생각은 드는데 젠지 이번에 좀 노골적으로 밸류 좋고 무난하게 갔을 때 진짜 밸런스 잘 잡혀있고 본인들의 또 시그니처 픽들도 섞여있는 이런 조합을 골랐다면 T1은 무난하게 가는 게 썩 좋진 않거든요. 저런 조합 상대로 속도를 내야 되는데 거기에 있어서 캐리아라는 이 선수가 그리고 이 선수가 오픽을 가게 됐을 때 또 귀신 같은 플레이나
Mobile, lebih dari sekedar mobil. Mobile One dan Mobile Super untuk mesin mobil tahan lama.
좀 유니크한 픽들이 나왔을 때 그 위쪽 그러니까 상체와의 박자를 통해서 게임 템포를 올리는 걸 정말 공략하기 위해서 완전 그냥 거기에 특화되어 있는 픽이 들어갔다고 봐야 되고 이게 이제 먹히냐 안 먹히냐가 경기 내용에 너무 중요해진 거죠.
그렇습니다. 뭐 HP 내에서도 T1이 그 바로 옵션을 활용해서 구매시가 2승 1패를 기록한 적이 있습니다. 그러니까 전반적으로 이 옵션을 활용한 플레이 자체에 대해서는 안정감도 느끼고 확신도 있다는 그런 얘기인데 이 네 번째 세트 특히 레드 진영에서 이 정도로 뭔가 뱀픽이 이루어졌다. 이거 젠지가 어떻게 생각하고 있을지 특히나 자신이 자랑하는 픽은 그래도 젠지가 꺼내면서 자신의 컬러를 보여주고 싶어하면 있을 것 같은데 이 그림을 완성시킬 수 있을지 한번 보도록 하겠습니다. 양 팀의 네 번째 세트입니다. 지금부터 만나보시죠.
Masalahnya empuk banget itu anjir. Sekali di ulti mati. Makanya dia ngambil
경기 만나보겠습니다. 젠지와 T1의 경기 지금부터 다시 한번 네 번째 세트로 여러분들을 초대하겠습니다. 자 2대1로 현재 T1이 리드하고 있는 가운데 젠지가 블루 진영을 잡고 추격을 펼치고 있습니다.
T1 바텀이 오랜만에 보는 룬 선택이죠.
쌍칼날.
참 이 매력적인 조합으로 캐리어가 또 희한한 것도 많이 보여줬었는데
뭐 쌍라이비 전 세계에서 가장 잘 썼죠.
그러니까요.
그냥 아무도 못 막았습니다. 알고도 못 막고 그냥 거의 벤이고 맨날.
그래서 뭐 전 세계 최고다 이런 얘기들도 그때 뭐 해설 중에서 나왔었는데 그 말이 전혀 과장이 아니라는 것을 뭐 결과로도 보여줬기 때문에 이걸 또 너무 잘 알고 있지 않습니까, 젠지도?
T1이 왜 이렇게 극단적인 선택을 했냐라고 물어보면 뭐 저런 이제 애쉬 같은 데이터가 좋은 픽을 상대가 뺏어간 것도 있고요.
여기 있냐?
대박 맞죠?
월척이다. 기가 막힙니다.
이거 페이지를 뽑아오네요.
엄청 크죠? 이제 없는 킬각도 또 잡힙니다. 이거 잘못하면.
그렇죠.
가뜩이나 불편한데.
그러니까 일반적으로는요. 그러니까 저 T1이라는 팀의 로고를 떼고 나면 파이크 같은 픽을 저희가 좋게 보진 않죠.
맞습니다.
근데 그동안 보여준 데이터가 존재하고 분명히 상대가 니달리를 중심으로 애쉬와 함께 게임 템포를 올리려고 할 텐데 일반적인 조합으로는 보통 그 템포를 못 따라갑니다. 근데 파이크가 들어가서 만약에 저런 뼈작살이 좀 더 날카롭게 활용이 되고 킬캐치가 되면은 니달리 입장에서도 내가 철저하게 게임을 주도해야 되는데 그 템포가 끊겼을 때 여파가 있어요.
그렇죠.
거기를 약점으로 보고 T1도 픽이 나온 거죠.
워낙 또 캐년 선수 니달리 한 호흡으로 진행하는 그 정글링이 정평이 나 있는데
아무나 끌면
걸리면 그냥
선일의 타이밍도 되게 잘 잡았고 진짜 이거 많이 무섭겠는데요, 젠지 바텀?
이거 어떻게 전멸 둘 다 없는데
이게 뭐 당장 이제 크리티컬한 골드 차이로 안 이어지는 타이밍이라 그렇지 니달리 픽을 활용하는데 애쉬의 힘을 좀 믿고 나온 거예요. 근데 거기서 이미 첫 단추가 약간 이상해진 겁니다.
그러니까요. 게다가 T1을 경기하면서 이 애쉬를 또 뽑아왔는데 지금 그 부분이 캐리아의 뼈작살 두 방으로 완전히 흔들리고 있습니다. 바텀 지역에서. 자, 애초 이걸 뱀픽 상황에서 캐리아 선수가 속도를 낼 수 있는 T1의 전반적인 엔진이 빨라질 수 있는 그런 픽들에 대한 경계에 있어야 된다. 그래서 바드까지는 잘났는데 파이크가 등장하면서 이런 식으로 속도를 좀 만들고 있는 T1이 되겠습니다. 다시 바텀입니다. 그 오너는 천천히 빠져가면서 미드 쪽으로 이동합니다.
트리스타나가 아까 콤보 맞으면서 체력 관리가 잘 안 되어 있기 때문에
오너가 달려갑니다.
윙하면서
톱니얼 그냥 이것도 다 터지네요.
또 스킬 빠진 것도 잘 체크해서 들이박은 거고요.
이거 이러면 바텀 미드가 다 전멸이 빠졌는데요. 지금 이 구간이
어디든 간에 득점 찬스들이 많이 열려 있다는 거고 T1 입장에서
막는데 한정적일 수밖에 없는데 지금 굉장히 좀 불편해집니다.
그러면 뭐 좋든 싫든 약간 좀 수동적인 그런 운영을 좀 해야 된다는 건데 니달리가 그런 걸 좋아하진 않아요. 내가 니달리인데 내가 수동적으로 해야 된다니.
물론 위치는 한번 봤는데
나는 좀 받아쳐줄 생각이죠. 뒤에서
뒤에 있어요. 뒤에 있어요.
그러니까 그냥 쓱 빠져버려. 무리할 필요가 없죠.
캐리아 또 이런 것도 기가 막히죠.
실제로 젠지의 조합이 뭐 밸류적인 측면에서도 할 말은 많다고 말씀은 드렸어도 젠지가 뭐 밸류 조합한다고 해서 눕는 걸 좋아하진 않거든요.
그렇죠.
원래 이번 조합도 아까부터 포니 해설이 계속 강조하신 대로 가능하다면 본인들이 좀 주도할 생각을 했을 거예요. 근데 일단 그 그림 자체는 잘 안 되는 느낌이고
그러니까 누워서 때릴 수 있는 약간 엉거주춤 때릴 수 있는 전 세계 몇 안 되는 팀 중에 하나. 사실 그 젠지 아니겠습니까?
그렇죠. 약간 밸류는 오히려 좀 보험 역할로 남겨두는 느낌이랄까요?
그래서 그 부분을 젠지가 가지고 있다는 것을 T1 충분히 인지를 해야 될 것 같고 자 바텀 지역 전멸 빠진 그 페이지와 리엔즈를 상당히 좀 많이 압박을 해줬던 그 시간이 있었습니다. 자 기인과 제우스 이 잭스를 상대하기 위해서 꺼내들었던 이 뽀삐입니다. 그리고 캐리아가 점점 움직이고 있습니다. 탑 쪽으로 와 있어요.
아직 뽀삐가 정비라.
이런데 코란테 차가 이미 없는데 뼈 작살이.
여기도 한번 쓱 들려가지고 또 전멸 빼줄 생각이었던 것 같은데 그것까지는 한번 잘 피했어요.
근데 완전히 빠지진 않고 이리저리 움직여 보긴 하네요.
실제로 지금 젠지는 강가 쪽 싸움은 웬만하면 하기 싫거든요. 지금 킬이 안 나왔다 뿐이지 스펠 빠진 친구들이 많아가지고
그렇죠.
지금은 오히려 조금 수동적으로 하는 게 맞아요.
그러니까 니달리도 그렇게 하고 싶지 않다고 하더라도 일단 수동적으로 본인 캠프 위주로 관리를 해야 되고
물론 정말 시가 다르습니다.
파이크가 노골 쪽으로 돌아다니고 있기 때문에
그렇죠.
배틀롱 화살.
그래서 동시에 서포터가 자리를 비웠는데 정화 하나로 커버가 된 거면 싸게 대가를 치른 거기도 합니다.
그러니까 이걸 정말 잘하죠. 그러니까 앞선 경기 때문에 기록이 깨지긴 했었습니다만 월드에서 BO5 노데스 경기? 근데 이 그림이 진짜 많았다는 건데 그러니까 9만 시에 이런 그림에서 안 죽는다는 얘기거든요.
그러니까 제일 좋은 건 서포터가 로밍 갔을 때 소환사 주문이 다 빠지는 게 아니라 이걸 이제 서로 이렇게 한 번씩 번갈아 가면서 쓰면서 시간을 벌어주는 건데 제일 핵심인 전멸이 남은 거니까 결국 여전히 T1 바텀이 있다는 거고.
이거 달려듭니다.
아까부터 노리고 있었거든요. 요리조리.
홀령제
신민정 맞췄어요. 벽에를 꽂았어요. 아니 진짜 너 전면 안 써? 언제 쓸래? 언제 써? 지금 이 심리전이 미쳤어요 방금.
그 미친 플레이를 통해서 파워를 얻었습니다. 이거 그리고 연이어서 유충도까지 가고 있습니다. T1이.
저게 몸부터 꽉 완전 달라붙어가지고.
근데 일단은 이게 나왔고 터졌어요.
날리긴 했는데
이 과정에서
후면시 뒤로
하는 원했을 텐데 젠지는
그거 좋았어요?
마오카이가 한 방에 터져가지고.
T1도 뭐 유충을 무리하게 먹을 건 아니까 뒤로 빠지긴 합니다만 이미 2킬이 나온 거죠.
그러니까요.
좋으니까 이것도 어차피 상대가 먹으면 2대1인데 심지어.
이건 뭐 T1의 레드 쪽에서 기세가 이렇게 무섭습니다. 젠지 생각했던 그림이 좀처럼 나오지 않고 있는 4세트 초반입니다.
결국 이런 구도에서 구마유시가 또 한 번 생존을 한 것도 소환사 주문을 번갈아 가면서 쓰는 게 그래서 중요하다는 거예요. 한 번에 안 빠지는 게 더 가치 있는 이유죠.
그렇죠. 와 그래서 방금 마오카이도 까딱 그 마오카이가 만약에 어떻게 스킬을 흘리거나 막 흡수하면서 들어가거나 이랬으면 역습각이 세게 나왔을 수도 있는데 그걸 한 콤보에 터뜨려가지고.
그러니까요. 지금 보시는 것처럼 구마유시의 생존력이 얼마나 경기에 영향을 미치는지를 또 한 번 보여줬습니다. 바텀에서 한번 이번 유충 앞에서의 전투에서도 한번. 자 그리고 캐리어와 더불어서 같이 이동을 했습니다. 캐리어가 편안하게 이동할 수 있는 근간이 되고 있는 구마유시 선수의 생존력인데 이거를 어떻게든 막아뜨리고 싶은 젠지긴 한데 여기에 오너까지 합류하고 있습니다.
이것도 젠지 어설프게 하기에는 지금 빨리 결단 내려야겠죠?
네.
어차피 바텀 비워놓고 하는 거니까.
이게 강한 CC기로 길을 열어줄 게 뽀삐밖에 없으니까 일단 뽀삐를 끌어다 쓰는 거예요.
캐리어가 약산을 당기 줬는데 포탑을 당겼습니다. 이러면 또 전사.
캐리어 기가 막혔고 그리고 확실히 젠지도 오히려 이게 무조건 해야 된다라고 압박을 느껴서 그런지 되기 어려웠는데도 몸을 좀 들이댄 느낌도 있어요.
이거 그런 부담감 이게 젠지를 많이 흔들어놓고 있습니다. 든든하고 안정감이 있었던 그 젠지의 모습이 지금은 좀처럼 나오지 않고 있습니다.
결국 어떤 조커 픽이라던가 너무 색깔이 튀는 픽들에 대해서 그런 얘기 많이 하잖아요. 중요한 무대에서 쓸 거냐 그래서. 근데 T1은 중요한 무대에서 쓰는 팀이고 여기까지만 봤을 때는 파이크라는 픽이 왜 나왔는지에 대해서 이유를 다 보여주고 있습니다.
게다가 애쉬의 티어를 끌어올린 다음에 상대편을 쥐어주고 그 애쉬를 상대하는 모습까지 보여준다? 레드 진영에서 뭐를 하고 싶은지를 명확하게 보였던 T1이 됐는데 그리고 그걸로 포인트까지 만들어내고 있는 상황이 4세트라 지금 젠지 입장에서는 본인이 자랑하는 몇 가지의 픽들이 들어갔음에도 불구하고 불편함을 지울 수가 없습니다. 매우 또 걸립니다.
한정 싸움을 잘했죠 초비가.
그래서 이게 뭐 한 번 액션이 나올 때마다 워낙 날카로워서.
그리고 이런 걸 할 때 이제 바루스가 확실하게 생명의 위협을 받아야 T1도 이 선순환이 끊어지는 거예요. 근데 구마유시의 이런 적절한 라인 컨트롤라든가 위치 같은 게 굉장히 좋습니다.
그렇죠. 결국 파이크가 로밍 다니면서도 다른 쪽에서 뭐 손해가 발생하거나 이러지도 않는다는 거고 돈 차이도 시간 대비 꽤나 벌려놔서
그러네요.
진짜 좋은 흐름입니다.
그래서 거의 뭐 2천 가까이 격차를 벌려놓고 있습니다. 보시는 것처럼 모든 게 붉은색으로 좀 물들고 있는 바텀 지역에 전반적으로 골드의 격차들이 좀 눈에 보이고 있고 각각 라인이 다 그렇거든요. 뭐 하나 찌르려는 그 시도도 일단 젠지가 탑에서 또 무위로 돌아갔고
그래서 아까 페이커가 그 니달리 잡은 거부터 뭐 시작됐다라고 볼 수도 있는 건데 거기서도 진짜 서로 간의 심리전도 그렇고 액션이 그러니까 T1이 한 번 물었을 때 그게 젠지의 기대값보다도 훨씬 날카롭게 들어오니까 안 죽어야 될 선수들이 자꾸 죽는 거거든요. 그러면서 게임이 말리게 되는 거고 근데 이거는 속도를 봐야 됩니다.
일단 니달리가 치고는 있는데
네 그렇죠. 저런 것도 뭐 빨리 먹어놔야지 젠지 입장에서 결국에 뭐 게임 후반으로 가게 됐을 때 눕는 데 있어서 좋은 요소가 될 테니까.
T1도 핑이 드래곤 쪽에 찍히고 있긴 하거든요.
근데 거의 마무리 진 것으로 보입니다. 지금 니달리의 사냥이 계속 이어지고 있고요. 마무리 짓네요.
그리고 어쨌든 마오카이도 6레벨을 찍어야 되고요.
그 사이에 오늘 7렙 상황.
어떻게 보면 마오카이 같은 경우에도 일반적으로 서포터로 갔을 때 힘이 좋은 픽이 절대 아니라서 그냥 어떻게든 6레벨을 찍는 게 중요하긴 하거든요.
맞아요.
지금
그리고
이 게임은
사고 덜 나고
근데 사고가 좀 난 상태라고 하더라도 일단 6을 찍으면 좀 챔피언이 달라지긴 합니다.
뭐 그림만 써도 1인분 하긴 좋으니까 보통.
네, 묘목도 있고.
근데 아직 5레벨. 유충은 나왔고
여기를 나갈 힘이 없어요. 그리고 인원 배치 자체가 X가 바텀에 있어서
야 이러면 결과적으로는 유충 2개 먹은 젠지 그 다음 단계는 다 T1. 아 이거 너무 탐나는데 뭐 할 수가 없거든요.
젠지는 그냥 힘든 와중에 욕 먹어놨으니까 그냥 나머지 좀 양보하자겠지만 그러니까 생각보다 돈 차이가 많이 나는 거예요. 그래서
그러니까요.
그러니까 이게 뭐 덤비기가 어렵습니다. 이미 이게 원래 그 시간 대비로 따지면 반쯤 터진 거예요 게임.
그리고 여기서 약간 우려가 되는 포인트가 있다면 젠지가 올라오는 과정에서도 이런 위기는 분명히 존재했어요. 뭐 당장 플라이 퀘스트 전이 그랬고요.
예.
근데 그런 상황들마다 힘을 썼던 게 기인입니다. 특히 기인의 크산테가 있었죠.
네.
근데 지금 이 게임은 그 크산테가 저격을 당하고 뽀삐가 나왔는데 뽀삐는 분명히 독특하고 유니크한 강점이 있다곤 하지만 크산테 같은 판을 없는 역할을 하기에는 분명히 또 그 정도는 아니거든요.
아 그렇죠.
그러니까 그런 상황에서 이게 아래쪽이 이렇게 불리해져 버리면 뭔가 젠지라는 팀의 그런 거대한 어떤 흐름을 바꿨던 선수도 힘을 쓰기 어려운 게임 양상이긴 합니다. 이것도
참 벤의 흐름, 픽의 흐름 그만큼 T1이 준비를 잘해왔구나라고 느끼는 그런 대목이네요. 이런 어려운 상황에서 상대편이 뭘 할 수 있는가, 특히나 누가 뭘 할 수 있는가에 대해서 인지.
Ya anjing, mie sedap anjing.
Kolaborasi Masterpieceku bareng mie sedap ahli.
내고 있는 상황인데 어디서 지금 활로를 찾을지.
그러니까 젠지가 원했던 건 아니겠지만 어쩔 수 없이 그냥 방어적으로 플레이하는 수밖에 없고요. 방어적으로 플레이하는 과정에서 본인들의 밸류들이 올라오기 기다려야 되는데 T1이 가만 안 놔두겠죠.
바텀 좀더 치고 있습니다.
이라도 갉아먹고 그리고 파이크가 계속 돌아다니다 보면 없는 어점도 어디서 나오거든요.
그러니까요.
특히 지금도 바텀을 잭스가 재미를 좀 봤는데 위가 비니까 여길 또 채굴을 한번 하고
이런 속도전을 다 따라다닐 수가 없어요 지금 젠지가.
그리고 아래쪽이라고 그냥 얻어 맞았었고 또 여기인데
이런 것도 그냥 무리하지 않고 적당한 액션으로 하나씩 그냥 빼는 거니까.
그러니까 이렇게 빼두기만 하면요 그 다음에 더 큰 게 와서 그래요. 그러니까 일반적으로는 당연히 한 방에 잡는 게 좋겠죠. 근데 이런 프로씬에선 그게 아닌 경우들이 존재하고 그걸 T1이 이해하고 있는 겁니다.
자, 단독으로 뭔가를 좀 얻어내고 있었던 바루스 역시 구마이슈 역시 단독 골드 탑입니다. 생존력뿐만 아니라 그만큼 골드 숲도 잘하는 그런 모습이 있었습니다. 자, 결과적으로 초반에 벌어졌던 그 골드 차이가 계속 유지가 되고 있는 가운데 13분대 초반부터 뭔가 다른 그림을 그려나가고 있는 4강 경기에서의 T1입니다.
결국 이달리를 중심으로 한 뱀픽에 가지고 있는 그런 독특한 강점보다는 약간 막연한 게임이 되긴 하는 거죠. 이달리와 저 트리스타나의 성장을 기다리자. 언제가 될진 모르겠지만 크기만 한다면 뭔가 해주긴 할 거다. 그걸 그냥 유지하는 게 일단 젠지 입장에서 제일 우선 과제예요.
근데 그런 상황에서 어쨌든 다 줄 수는 없잖아요.
그렇죠.
그래서 이번 전령에서는 좀 시야 잡아보면서 뭘 할 생각인데
배수진인가 일단은 지금 시점
T1 입장에서는 잘만 하면 이번 한 번으로 진짜 게임 끝낼 수도 있습니다. 여기서 만약에 뭐 대승하거나 뭐 갑자기 떼돈을 벌어버리면
그만큼 젠지는 신중하게 경기를 치러내야 되는 시점입니다.
이미 반쯤 터졌다고 말씀드렸기 때문에 여기 더 터지면 못 일어날 수 있다는 거예요.
근데 이거 지금 이 타이밍이 스카너랑 바루스의 체급이 진짜 좋은 타이밍이에요.
맞아요.
아크들로가 하나가 좀 아프고요.
이거 뭐 달려가거나 이러면 마오카이 그냥 1초 컷입니다.
그러니까 둘 다 1코어가 나와 있고 바루스의 포킹이라던가 스카너의 저 순수한 체급을 젠지가 그냥 넘긴 쉽지 않아 보이는데요.
와요. 여기서도 대치하면서 탑도 공짜 이득 보고 있었는데.
야, 프리커에서 탑도 치고.
그리고 긴 체력 관리나 전반적으로 느낌 자체가
그러니까 다 오긴 왔는데요.
괜찮아요?
진행이 이상해. 이거 좀 약간 이상합니다.
이거 괜찮아요?
승부수가 돼버렸어.
위치가 괜찮아요.
부패 상태. 백돌려놨다!
그러면 뭐 전력
이거 나머지는요 날려주면 날리는데
어떻게
뒤에서 어떻게든
그러면
뒤로 잡아야 되는데 그것도 안 됐죠?
그렇죠.
전력 먹을 때 뒤로 빠집니다.
그러면서 미드도 툭툭.
야 이거 시간 달려갑니다. 긴 쪽.
그래서 뭐 걸핏하면 그냥 전면 막 다 빠져나가고 있고
이거 뭐 다 날아가네요.
결국 이거는 상처뿐인 전령이라고 보는 게 맞겠죠. 그리고 그 흐름 자체가 뭔가 이도저도 할 수 없게끔 만들어지는 상황이긴 했어요. 그 전력을 포기하자니 이미 투자값도 있고 이번 다 줄 수도 없고 근데 먹자니 또 진짜 그냥 먹다가 다 망할 것 같고 막 그런 상황이었는데 응징을 당했죠. 그래서 젠지가 먹긴 했어도.
그렇습니다. 데스도 있었고 그거로 끝나는 것이 아니라 다른 지역의 상처도 있었습니다. 이제 드래곤도 등장을 했는데 앞서 에너지를 좀 많이 썼던 상황에서 특히나 생존 스펠도 좀 빠진 상황이라 불편함이 하나 두 개가 아닙니다. 젠지는요.
그러니까 똑같은 얘기가 또 나오는 거죠. 딜러진이 전멸이 없다. 그리고 저 전령대 구도가 오브젝트로 나가면 계속 발생할 겁니다.
네.
스카너의 체급을 뚫어야 되는데 뒤에 있는 바루스까지 팔이 안 닿는 그 구도가 나와버리면 똑같이 그냥 구마유시를 중심으로 오브젝트에서 강해지는 남자의 힘을 쓰기만 하면 웬만하면 T1이 쉽게 이득 볼 거예요.
구마유시를 막아야 된다는 생각에 뱅카드를 상당히 많이 투자했었던 젠지는 맞습니다. 그러면서 애쉬도 가져왔었고, 그런데 이 바루스 카드로 팀에서 원하는 그 역할들 좀 하고 있는 가운데 캐리아도 날뛰고 아리도 좋은 장면 페이커가 보여주고 있는 가운데 오너의 단단함과 제우스의 사이드까지 지금 뭐 T1은 하나된 힘을 지금 현재 보여주고 있습니다.
그렇죠. 뭐 바텀 포탑 미는 것도 그냥 순식간인 거고.
네.
돈 차이로 봤을 때는 이건 젠지가 뭐 어떻게 얼굴을 내밀 수가 없죠. 계속 이거.
그냥 돈으로밖에 생겼는데요.
뭐 그 와중에 뭉쳐봤자 또 뭉쳐도 별로 할 것도 없고. 그러니까 애초에 이런 흐름을 원한 것도 아니었겠지만 속도가 너무 빨라요 지금 템포가. 그러니까 젠지가 바랬던 건 적어도 한 그래도 적당한 템포였을 텐데. 그거를 T1이 본인들이 또 속도를 끌어올리는 거고요.
그렇습니다. 그렇기 때문에 바텀 지역에 이 T1의 바퀴, 구마유시와 캐리아, 이 엔진이자 바퀴 같은 이 두 명의 선수를 어떻게든 속도를 더디게 만들고자 했던 그런 모습들이 있었는데 그게 뭐 뼈작살 몇 번에 흔들리고 그 이후에 바로스는 생존하고 그 이후에 빨려 들어간 젠지는 흔들리고.
말씀하신 대로 서포 쪽을 조금이라도 좀 과하게 나오거나 좀 이렇게 여유 있게 나오면 그냥 바로바로 응징하거든요 지금.
예.
그래서 리엔즈 선수 하면 보통 되게 긍정적이고 되게 밝고 여유가 좀 있는 선수잖아요. 근데 많이 당황스러울 거예요. 오늘 그런 모습이 보일 때마다 족족 응징당하고 있습니다.
안 나갈 수가 없습니다. 안 나갈 수가.
너무 큰 차이로 벌어져요. 오늘 캐리아가 그냥 나의 잡은 것처럼 미쳐 날뛰고 있고 리엔즈의 허점을 그냥 족족 계속 공략하고 있습니다.
결과적으로 8강전에서 보였던 그 폼 그대로 지금 4강전에서 날뛰고 있는 캐리어가 되겠습니다. 결과적으로 젠지 누군가가 시야를 좀 뚫어줘야 되는 상황에서 보시는 바와 같이 리엔지의 활약이 있어야 되는 상황. 그래서 앞으로 나가는 순간 그냥 주저함이 없습니다. 그냥 살에 묶이면서 그대로 잡히고요.
그러니까 지금 같은 바루스의 부패의 사슬을 중심으로 한 원거리 요격도 T1이 계속해서 시도를 할 수 있고요. 심지어 이거는 방금 장면은 오브젝트라는 정해진 필드에서 한 게 아니라 그냥 시야장악 과정에서 나왔잖아요.
맞죠.
이게 사태가 더 커지고 있다는 거고 동시에 젠지는 딜러는 많은데 딜이 없습니다. 그러니까 허수아비를 때린다면 딜이 있을 거예요. 근데 리그에서도 허수아비 때리는 게임이 아니잖아요.
네.
그게 문제입니다.
스노우볼을 굴릴 만큼 굴린 상태에서 2차 쪽도 살살 돌려깎기 하면서 시야장악 더 넓게 들어가는 거고요.
이미 툭툭 건들고 있습니다.
네, 젠지는 어떻게든 반격각을 잡고 싶지만 노릴만한 대상이 마땅치가 않죠.
그렇죠.
아리, 잭스 이번에도 다 잡기 어렵거든요.
예.
그렇다고 본대 쪽 잡자니 그냥 시야장악은 뭐 파이크한테 그냥 다 먹혔어요 아까부터.
그러다 보니까 바깥쪽 정글로 좀 나오지 못하는 상황들이 계속 반복되고 있습니다. 초비도 굉장히 신중하게 2차 포탑 뒤에서 대기하고 있었는데 그만큼 T1의 매복을 경계를 안 할 수가 없다는 그런 상황인데 크랙 플레이를 그렇게 잘 펼치는 초비입니다만 지금 현재 시점에서는 그런 크랙이 나오기도 너무나도 힘든 상황입니다.
그러니까 챔피언이 달라지긴 했어도 전판보다도 더 힘들죠 지금은 일단.
그러니까요.
네, 그냥 지금부터 어떤 불투명한 미래를 위해서 버티는 거밖에 없거든요.
버틴다고 해서 뭐가 나오는 건 아니다.
언제까지 또 버텨야 될지.
그 밸류 뭐 젠지 하면 떠오르는 그 밸류의
일단은 그래도
네.
한번 나가보자인데
일단은 이 부분을 통해서 무엇을 얻을 수 있을지
모였거든요.
먹어야 밸류가 생기는데
그렇죠. 뭐라도 좀 깨자.
그런데 매운을
아리가 각을 재고 있죠.
와 근데 긁기만 해도 일단 되게 정말 살벌하고
이게
고민하다가 가는데
마오가
너무 들어갔습니다만 일단 부패 사슬
포탑이 안 깨졌어요.
포탑 버텼고
이거 잭스가 살짝 붙여주고 결국 못 깼네요.
어떻게든 뭐 핑퐁은 된 거는 다행이라고 봐야 될 수 있겠지만
그러니까 천만 다행이긴 한데
그렇죠. 뭐 더 터질 수도 있는 거니까. 그러니까 젠지는 어차피 지금 한 번 더 넘어지면 게임 끝이거든요.
그러니까요. 더더욱더 조심스러울 수밖에 없는 이 시점에서 미드 1차 그래도 지금 이거라도 먹어야 되는 상황이라는 것을 젠지가 느끼면서 남아있는 전령을 활용을 했는데 그것조차 포탑 파괴로 연결되지 않았습니다. 자 이제 탑쪽으로 다시 한번 빠져나갑니다.
이런 거라도 깨야 되는데
아리가 갑니다.
그래서 뭐 아리 쪽을
아리를 노려보나요?
아리를 맞춰놨는데
네. 그나마 궁은 빠졌으니까
이거 잘 빨아들입니다.
네, 이거를
잡았고요.
물론 친구들이 와요.
잭스가
친구들이 오니까
캐년이 일단 위험하고요.
살긴 어렵고요. 몇 명이 살 것인가?
리엔즈도 전사할 수밖에 없고요.
네, 결국 대가를 또 치렀고 그리고 여기서
여기는 어딘가요? 여기는 어딘가요?
이게 아니다.
T1의
그러니까
방어
젠지도
뚝기!
어차피 이거 못 먹는다 이거죠.
그렇죠. 줄 거 주면서 그냥 포탑을 많이 깨자.
자, 그래서 일단 미드 쪽으로 집결하고 있는 젠지가 되겠습니다. 2차 포탑을 날릴 수밖에 없는 상황인데 이 이국의 T1의 웨이를 어떻게 견뎌야 할 수 있을지.
그래서 미드 깨고 바텀 깨고 용까지 먹으면 어느 정도 나름 이득을 많이 보는 건데 젠지도.
네.
T1도 그게 싫으니까 먹고 용 쪽으로 가요.
갑니다. 이동하고.
그거는 아니지.
그러니까
이거를 상대한테
젠지에게
주게 되면 상대가 또 시간을 많이 버는 거라서.
그러니까 젠지에게 허락된 시간이 그렇게 길지 않습니다.
맞아요.
마공룡이 일단 시간을 좀 끕니다.
와, 이것까지는 안 되겠다. 인정을 했죠.
그러면서 일단은 뭐 젠지 순간 판단은 정말 좋았었는데, 자, 이어서 불어닥칠 T1이란 이 바람을 이제 온몸으로 견뎌야 되는 젠지가 됐습니다.
그렇죠. 그러니까 손해본 와중에 판단이 좋았다는 거지 그게 그냥 상황 자체가 좋다는 걸 의미하는 건 아니라서.
그렇죠.
그리고 뭐 더 상황에 따라갔다는 것도 아니고요.
네. 왜냐면 지금부터 어떻게 보면 본격적으로 벌릴 시작인 것 같은 T1이거든요.
그렇죠. 용도 결국 T1이 먹었기 때문에 또 용압받고 계속 지속적으로 줄 수 있는 거고.
네.
그리고 여기서부터가 파이크가 그림자검이 나왔기 때문에
아.
시야 장악이 더 이제 타이트해질 거라. 그러니까 이제부터가 이제 여러 가지 그 쌓였던 것들이 다시 한번 터지면서 젠지에게 또 다른 위기가 온 겁니다.
탑들이 힘든 와중에 탑 쪽에서의 그 노림수라든가 플레이 자체는 진짜 엄청나긴 했는데.
그렇죠.
그런 거 한 번으로는 따라잡을 수 있을 정도의 차이가 아니죠.
이미 말씀해 주신 것처럼 그런 것들이 없을 때, 그림자검 같은 것도 없었을 때도 파이크의 움직임을 따라잡기가 좀 쉽지 않았었던 상황이 있었는데 이제 점점점 시야라는 정보도 사라지고 있습니다. 다시 보시죠. 탑쪽.
이거 자체는 진짜 플레이가 굉장히 좋긴 했거든요.
그러니까 이 결과값이 어떻게 됐던 해야만 했어요.
그렇죠.
근데 여기서 시간이 끌리면서 제우스 도착.
만약에 뭐 한 명만 잡혔으면 더 완전 베스트였겠지만 그러기가 어려웠고 그 상황에서 발언도 못 막는다라고 빠르게 그냥 판단 내린 거죠.
그래서 여기서 젠지 팬들과 T1의 팬들의 표정이 엇갈리는 그런 장면이 나왔습니다.
그러니까 T1 입장에선 진작에 터트린 게임이고
네.
그 한 발짝 남겨진 상태에서 계속 또 이제 그걸 어떻게든 지연시키는 젠지. 그러니까 전판과 비슷한 흐름으로 가는 겁니다. 계속.
진영이 바뀌고 뱀픽이 바뀌었을 때도 이런 힘을 낸다는 것 자체가 더더욱 더 두렵게 느껴집니다. 자, 이제 탑쪽 2차 포탑에 도달해 있습니다. T1은요.
젠지가 할 수 있는 건 지연.
대치에서 부패사슬
이거를 날리긴 날렸는데 대전이 맞았는데
점사를
제우스가
타이 터졌어요.
그리고 버티나요? 나머지는 나랑 있어야 되죠.
얘는
잡고 일단 이런 교환은 젠지한테는 좋거든요.
그렇습니다. 오너가 뒤로 안쪽 들어가지 못합니다.
특히 뽀삐는 이런 걸 하고 싶어요. 내가 전사하되 아군이 이득 보는 거.
와, 그래서 또 힘든 와중에 그래도 잘 지연시킨 거죠, 이러면.
그렇습니다.
결국 이제 뭐 바론턴은 끝나니까.
야, 그럼 어떻게 보면 바론턴에서 더 크게 굴려갈 준비라고 했던 T1의 한 번의 거대한 웨이브를 탑쪽에서 막아냈습니다.
인원을 이탈시키는 홈런의 변수는 언제나 크게 작용된다는 게 좀 드러났고
여기
이게 진짜 아슬아슬했던 게 뽀삐를 점사로 들어가는데 그때 날린 거예요.
맞아.
이게 제대로 날린 게 아니었으면 반대로 뽀삐가 터졌을 겁니다.
와, 그리고 이런 것도 만약 또 안 죽었으면 얘기가 다른데 어쨌든 아슬아슬하게 잘 마무리되고 뭐 잘 핑퐁되면서 젠지 입장에서는 진짜 벼랑 끝에서 일단 한 턴 살았다. 이런 느낌이죠.
거의 뭐 몰살 당할 뻔했고.
그러니까 이런 거를 몇 턴을 반복하다 보면 그때 비로소 활로가 보일 겁니다.
네.
근데 몇 턴 아직 여러 번 반복해야 돼요.
사실 글로벌 파워 랭킹 1위를 달리고 있는 젠지, 그 정도의 집중력이 있는 팀이라는 걸 우리가 알고는 있습니다. 하지만 너무나도 거세게 지금 계속해서 집요하게 조여주고 있는 게 T1의 그 흐름, 디펜딩 챔피언의 그 압박을 지금 견뎌내기 좀 쉬워 보이지는 않습니다. 젠지 또 한 번 공허 바이게가 사라지면서 이쪽 시야 좀 허탈하게 좀 지워지고 있습니다.
T1 쪽 아이템 진짜 다들 기가 막히게 뽑혔는데
네.
페이커의 아리 같은 경우도 저거 그러니까 매혹도 매혹인데 그냥 기본 스킬로도 그러니까 잘못 들어가면 젠지 쪽이 뭐 다 녹아버릴 수 있다는 거고요.
그렇습니다.
모든 움직임 한번, 스킬 한번, 교전 한번 정말 모든 걸 실어야겠죠, 젠지는.
이게 과장이 아니라 매혹 맞으면 그 다음에 의식이 안 돌아올 거예요.
맞아요.
그냥 매혹을 피해야 됩니다.
이왕이면 기본 공도 다 피해야 되고 다 피해야 되는데
다 피해야 돼. 다시 다 싹 다.
그러니까 그만큼 무섭다는 거고 T1도 엄청 유리하긴 하지만 그래도 더 타이트하게 좀 깰 것도 깨고 뺏어 먹을 것도 뺏어 먹으면서 확실하게 이번 시리즈 마무리 짓기 위한 액션을 해야겠죠.
그렇죠.
대닥살로도 한번 괴롭혀주면서 천천히.
그래도 뽀삐가 잘 컸다고 보긴 어려워도 그래도 뭐 앞라인 역할이나 변수 역할은 어느 정도 하고 있긴 한데
네.
기인이 아까 그런 거 안 했으면 이 게임 못 버텼습니다.
그렇죠. 단지 뽀삐가 잘 큰 게 아니고요.
네. 한번 정화는 잘 뽑았네요. 그리고 스카너 쪽 압박도 잘 됐고요.
일단 이번에 다시 또 오브젝트들이 슬슬 나오려고 하니까 정비할 친구들 정비하고.
아, 이거 뭐 T1 정말 사실 이 정도의 안정감에 대한 부분들은 우리가 월즈 때는 봤었는데 SK 내에서는 잘 보여지지 않으면 좀 어려움을 많이 겪었던 상황인데 지금은 월즈에서 그런 걸 보완해서 젠지를 상대로 또 보여주네요.
속도의 T1이라고 하잖아요.
아, 예.
정말 귀신 같은 속도로 쭉쭉 계속해서 게임을 터트려 나가고 있는 거고 젠지는 본인들의 시간이 올 때까지 이미 뭐 터진 게임은 어쩔 수 없는 거니까.
그렇죠.
어떻게든 한 번씩 지연시키는 데 있어서 이번 드래곤 쪽 대치를 또 노려보고 있는 거거든요.
지금 뭐 기인이야 뭐 오너 맞아 보니까 지금 얼마나 아픈지 좀 많이 느끼고 있습니다.
그렇죠,
자신의 방망이를 밀어야 되는 상황.
그리고 젠지가 너무 무서운 건 이거 드래곤 어설프게 또 대치했다가 여기서 손해보면 연달아 바론까지 나가서
그렇죠.
드래곤의 게임을 걸 순 없잖아요.
네.
이게 3스택이니까.
네, 장로 드래곤도 아닌데.
이거 일단 봤는데
그냥 뭐 스킬 시도 정도 가능하다면 해볼 것 같은데 눈치보다가
네, 한번 봤습니다. 그리고
스킬
한번 이거 진짜 오나요?
그래도
부캐 교환 잘 봤는데요.
그렇죠. 스킬 교환들이 좀 되고 만약에 홈런을 치면서 뺏는 그림이 만약 나오면
그러니까
넘어가요.
넓게
넘어가는데 이거를 먹었고 오너가
날렸고 근데 문제는
아니 넘어갔는데
그렇죠. 일단 근데 이게
앞쪽에서 제우스를
보고 있어요.
T1이 뒤집기이 안 들어가요.
계속 때리나요?
하이킥 잡았고 그다음 잭스 쪽 점사
빼고 왔죠.
미가 맞았어요?
아 이거
잡아버립니다.
아니
젠지입니다. 젠지.
와!
젠지.
아니 지금 순간적으로 T1이 진영이 갈라지면서 딜로스가 엄청나게 많이 발생했어요.
자, 미친 듯이 추격할 수 있는 발판이 생겼습니다. 왜냐면 이 드래곤의 넘버는 바로 바론이 있으니까.
그러니까 드래곤은 먹었는데
예.
어떻게 보면 드래곤에 너무 과몰입된 것처럼 됐죠. 오히려 T1이.
그렇습니다. 지금 격차는 분명히 있는 부분이 있습니다만 니달리의 성장도 분명히 있는 가운데 격차가 많이 줄었는데 상대편을 다 쓸어넣고 바론도 먹었습니다. 젠지가
5대5인데 마치 5대3 같은 느낌이 됐어요.
그렇습니다.
순간적으로. 결국 막 태그 매치가 되고
최악의 형태로 T1의 한타가 진행이 됐고 젠지가 다 따라왔습니다. 여기서요 아까 했던 얘기를 취소해야 될 것 같아요. 뽀삐는 그 정도는 못한다 아니었어요. 뽀삐가 했어요.
그 상태에서 R이 날리고 파이크 붙어 있고 아리가 다시 순간이동 타서 오는데 한 명 태그 매치 막 딜로스들이 보이잖아요. 이렇게 딱 봐도.
그렇죠. 아리는 날리고 잭스는 벽에다 내다 꽂고 그 다음에 아리 매혹 몸으로 막아주고
막 이런 상황에서 바로 쓰고 몇 대 못 치다가 지금부터 치기 시작하는데 이미 앞라인 다 쓸려 있고.
야.
사실 T1이 너무 유리해서
예.
이 정도로만 아니었어도 저는 적어도 세미 싸움 정도는 떴을 것 같거든요.
예. 일단 수용화살이 좀 지나가면서 페이커 한번 걸려냈습니다. 자, 말씀해 주신 것처럼 그 이후에 추격이 이어지면서 니달리와 지금 애쉬가 얼마나 때렸는지 볼 수 있는 그 팀파이트 데미지.
와, 그래서 젠지가 다시 게임을 궤도에 올렸고.
그렇죠.
물론 T1도 여전히 뭐 지금 그래서 본인들이 엄청 불리해졌다 이건 아니거든요. 여전히 힘도 있고 드래곤도 3대1인데 이제는 상대가 공격턴이라는 게 문제예요. 원래 젠지가 공격턴을 못 잡아.
그리고 그동안 니달리가 침묵하고 있었는데 니달리가 이렇게 상대를 몰아넣는 구도가 나오면 그러면 얘기가 완전 달라집니다.
그렇죠. 이제는 창 한 방에 뼈까지 들어오거든요.
지금 보였죠? 페이커 선수의 뼈가.
실제로 아리도
예.
템 위주로 많이 가서 내성 자체는 별로 없습니다. 맞았을 때.
그래서 그 부분을 생각을 하면서 계속 찔러주고 있는 원거리에서의 캐년입니다. 그리고 얼마나 잘 때렸는지를 방금 전에 팀파이트에서 우리가 봤기 때문에 저 창 하나하나가 다 유효타라고 인지를 해야 되는 상황이 됐습니다.
와.
자, 그래프가 여기까지 올라오면서 그래프가 미세하나마 파란색으로 바뀌었습니다.
젠지도 오랜만에 잡은 이 공격턴을 최대한 쥐어짜고 싶어하는
여기
거고
한번 몰아치고 싶은데 꽤 되겠습니다.
마오카이 한번 흘렸어요.
네, 그러면서
버텼고
일단 포탑도 최대한 좀 지켜내면서 잘 막고 있어요. T1도.
그렇죠. T1도 성장이 밀리는 건 아니니까 확실히 저항력이 있습니다.
자, 미드 쪽에서는 1대1 대치를 하고 있는 상황인데 자, 조금씩 다시 한번 미니언을 제거하면서 또 한번 버티고 있습니다. 자, 계속해서 압박을 하고 있는 젠지가 됐습니다.
근데 이게 라인을 다 막기는 결국 어렵긴 해요.
그렇죠. 젠지가 라인을 지울 수가 없으니까 이렇게 유지하다 보면 결국 뚫릴 건 뚫리게 되는 거고 이러면 젠지가 드래곤을 제외하면 앞서 나가는데요.
포탐 날아갑니다.
결국 돈에서 앞서 나가고 뭐 정말 굉장히 불투명했던 오지 않을 것 같았던 뭐 밸류에 대한 얘기나 여러 가지 얘기도 이제는 좀 할 수 있는 단계가 됐어요.
엄청나게 신중한 걸음을 걸었다고 말씀드렸는데요.
터진 게임이었거든요.
그리고 그 터진 상황이 20분 이어졌었고, 근데 T1이 뭘 조심했는지를 젠지가 보여줬네요. 이거였습니다. 이거를 조심했습니다.
물론 T1도 뭐가 됐든 결국에 욕 먹고 다시 한타 잘하면 되돌릴 수 있는 기회가 있습니다.
그렇죠. 지금 현재 시점에서 차이가 그렇게 많이 보이진 않고 분명히 잘 성장했으니까, 근데 여기까지 왔다는 것 자체가 정말 대단하게 느껴집니다. 젠지가. 자, 다시 천천히 안쪽으로 들어가고 있습니다. 자, 다음 드론까지 한 1분 정도 이미, 그리고 그 자리를 지키고 있는 젠지입니다.
여기까지 오게 되면 어떻게 보면 이제 보통 그런 얘기가 잘 안 나오는데 서포터 쪽의 밸류에 있어서 파이크랑 마오카이가 좀 극단적으로 갈리긴 하거든요.
그러니까 마오카이가 몇 번을 죽었어도 그냥 성장 자체가 그렇게 나쁜 것도 아닐 뿐더러 말씀하신 대로 근본 챔프가 달라서
그러니까 보통 일반적인 서포트 서폿이면 뭐 하기 나름이다 이런 얘기가 나오는데 이 챔피언들 간의 구도는 다르죠.
그렇죠. 파이크한테 요구되는 건 언제나 좀 더 냉혹한 시선이에요.
예.
좀 더 슈퍼 플레이, 눈에 띄는 플레이. 마오카이는 그냥 스킬 누르면 1인분이에요. 파이크는 슈퍼 플레이 해야 이제부터는 1인분입니다. 약간 그런 식이 돼요. 그러니까 잠대가 말도 안 되게 되죠.
그러니까 지금 말씀하신 대로 가고 있거든요. 지금 067인데 레벨이 앞서고 뭐 플레이에 영향력을 더 미치고 이런 상황이 됐거든요.
아, 그리고 차라리 지금 한타를 좀 빨리 할 수 있는 상황이었으면 전 T1한테 오히려 나았을 것 같은데 이제 젠지가 스펠이 다 돌아요. 니달리, 트리스타나, 애쉬 막 다 돌거든요. 지금 딱 맞춰가지고. 저게 또 전멸이 없을 때가 그나마 T1이 뭔가 좀 더 변수 만들기라든가 한 방에 물기가 좋은데 위쪽으로 애쉬 붙고 먼저 때릴 생각이죠 이거?
일단은 때려보는데
이제는 스카너도 버티기 어려워요.
아래쪽을
제대로
그래서 젠지!
그리고 달려들었는데 오너가 일단 묶었고요.
파고들고
이 다음은요.
애쉬 일단 돌아가게
원래 있어요. 있습니다. 뒤에는요. 길이요. 이걸 잡아버립니다.
오너를 또 T1이 낚아채나요?
이러면
또 한 번 캐리가 달립니다. 캐리가 쏘자. 그리고 납다운.
이러면
갑니다.
T1에게 절호의 기회가 왔는데요.
이제 갑니다.
이거 어떻게 막을래?
이거 어떻게 되나요? 거의 끝난 건가요?
니달리가 이 전선을 사수할 수 있나요?
이거 볼 수 있나요?
이거 어떻게 막을래? 니달리가 돈이 안 있는데 앞으로 뛰고
라인 지우고 앞서 시간 벌고
자, 결국 이렇게
그래서 마오카이 나오고 그래서 지우고
넌 어떻게 막을래?
한번로
나도 간다.
내 이렇게 막는다?
또 한 번 달려들어서
와, 그래서
T1 이렇게 베이커라는 별자리의 5번째 보이지 않는 그 별의 문장이 뚜렷해지고 있습니다.
길고 길었대 시간 빼는
자, 결국 넥서스가 파괴됩니다. T1입니다.
와, 몇 번을 잡혔었어요. T1.
Gen.G.
누가 T1의 현재를 보정했습니까? 2015-16년 연속 월드 우승으로 거듭됐던 왕조를 지금 재현하기 위해서 그때의 왕이 지금도 왕이라는 것을 보여주기 위해서 T1이 그 속적이었던 젠지를 잡고 영국 런던으로 갑니다.
디펜딩 챔피언이 또 한 번 결승에 오르게 됐고요. 결국 이 월드라는 무대에서 역사의 일부가 될 거냐, 역사 그 자체가 될 거냐, 한 명만, 한 팀만 이걸 달성할 수 있습니다. 그 무대에 T1이 정말 많이 올라갔던 팀이죠. 또 한 번 거기로 도전을 이어나갑니다.
시대의 미래라고 얘기했던 젠지였습니다. 그리고 그 미래가 얼마나 강한지를 우리는 느낄 수 있었습니다. 하지만 이 롤의 과거이자 현재이자 미래였던 구만 씨의 표현대로 챔피언으로 걸어왔어, 챔피언으로 나오겠다고 얘기했던 그 얘기대로 T1은 이랬습니다. 2023년 월드 디펜딩 챔피언은 이렇게 강합니다.
한 명 한 명 정말 엄청나게 맹활약하는 게 계속해서 잡혔었고 특히 바텀을 중심으로 오는 게임 템포가 정말 중요했었는데 거기서 진짜 좋은 퍼포먼스가 계속 나왔던 게 진짜 컸고요. 젠지 입장에서는 한 해를 돌아봤을 때 정말 아쉬운 게 많을 것 같지만 어쩌겠습니까? 이어가는 수밖에 없겠죠.
그렇습니다.
내년은 노리는 수밖에 없겠죠.
이번에는 젠지 얘기가 또 나올 만했는데 그리고 와 파이크 마지막에 그 어려운 순간 또 그 파이크의 그 플레이도 좀 등장을 했었고 뭐 T1이라는 팀의 그 매력이 어디서 나오는지 여기 경기 하나에 정말 잔뜩 녹아 있었습니다.
캐리아 선수가 지금 느끼고 있는 감정이요 여러 가지가 복합적일 거예요. 분명히 이게 올라갔을 때 기쁨도 있겠지만 T1 선수들 떨렸을 겁니다. 게임이 이상해졌거든요. 이상해진 게임이 5세트로 넘어가게 되면 거기서부터는 아무리 노련한 선수들이라도 알지 못하는 미지의 영역입니다. 근데 거기로 갈 뻔했던 게임을 본인들이 의도대로 끝을 냈고 그때의 카타르시스는 말로 설명이 안 되겠죠.
5번째 별 사실 보이기가 쉽지 않았습니다. 왜냐하면 그 업적을 달성하는 건 말도 안 되는 것처럼 보였으니까. 그런데 페이커 선수도 그 별자리 5번째의 그 별을 확실히 잡을 수 있다는 보여주는 단 플레이를 펼쳤습니다. 그리고 ACK의 T1이라는 단어는 빼도 될 것 같습니다. 3개의 T1입니다. 지금 이곳은 파리입니다. 하지만 전세가 열광할 만한 플레이를 T1이 보여줬습니다.
그냥 온갖 수식어 어떤 말로도 표현하기 힘들 정도로 진짜 대단하네요. T1 그리고 이 제오페케.
어떻게 이러죠?
네?
이 로스터 동일 로스터로 3년 연속 월드 결승? 이거 역대 최초니까
한 번만 가도 대단한 건데요.
그러니까요. 이러면 뭐 베이커 선수는 9번의 월드 가운데 7번째 결승 진출 확정을 졌고 최초의 5번째 우승을 노리는 상황이 됐습니다. 그리고 2번째 연속 우승까지 노릴 수 있는 말도 안 되는 그런 업적에 가까워졌고요. 이거 뭐 사실 김정인 감독도 마찬가지는 6번째 월드 결승 진출 대단합니다.
그러니까 분명히 진짜 많은 것들을 이룬 선수들이지만 도전 뒤엔 또 다른 도전이 있잖아. 선수는 인터뷰가 항상 그런 얘기를 해요. 이 도전 내가 분명히 성공을 했지만 그 다음은 나에게 새로운 무대다. 근데 그 새로운 무대에서 본인들의 어떤 기량이라던가 본인들의 마인드를 유지하고 그걸 달려나가는 건 그게 진짜 더 어려운 영역이란 말이죠. 근데 이 선수들 제오 페구케는 이제 한 걸음 남았습니다. 또 한 번요.
사실 그 처음 그 월드 왔었을 때 오너 선수 인터뷰가 좀 기억이 납니다. 우리가 이번에는 어디까지 갈지 모르겠다. 사실상 자신이 많이 없다라는 얘기였습니다. 그만큼 T1이 그 SK 내에서 너무 많이 고생을 했었고 그리고 월드 왔었을 때도 쉽지 않은 경기가 있을 거라는 거 본인이 인지하면서 왔는데 그냥 또 와버렸네 결승을.
그러니까요. 이러니까 인비저블 썸띵인 거고 언제나 T1을 전 세계에서 다 두려워하는 거고 진짜 이렇게 오니까 진짜 또 다른 팀이 되고 경기력은 계속 올라가고 마지막까지도 그러니까 플레이가 뭐 뱀픽도 그렇지만 그러니까 BAG 사실 이제 결승전 쉬운 상대는 아니지만 T1이라면